In the vast universe, there exists a realm where the unimaginable unfolds. Within this enigmatic expanse lies a grim pocket known as Solitude, a prison that can only be likened to hell itself. In the depths of Solitude sits a seemingly blind old man, his face obscured by a scarf tightly knotted around it. A scorpion scuttles carelessly across the floor of its cell, only to become a meal for the old man inside. After savoring his unexpected feast, he sits upright, settling into a meditative state. Moments later, a prison guard arrives, calling out to the old man by his cell number, 51. The guard informs him that it's time for a transfer. Without a word of protest, the old man rises and follows the guard. The two begin their journey through the expansive facility, with the blind old man surprisingly taking the lead. The prison guard is taken aback, unable to comprehend how a blind man can navigate so confidently. His colleagues had warned him about what to expect before he came to collect the old man, but witnessing it firsthand leaves him utterly astonished. The facility's structure and architecture shift every month, yet the old man navigates it with ease. Before long, they reach the hall where the regular prisoners are confined. In this room, every inmate is classified as a Class 1 prisoner. The old man quickly draws the attention of the other prisoners, who size him up and dismiss him as an easy target. In this prison, Class 1 inmates are regarded as the lowest of the low, with rankings ranging from Class 1 to Class 5. Most prisoners fall into Class 1, while Class 2 holds the distinction of being the best among them. Yet, amidst this hierarchy, the old man catches a whiff of a peculiar scent emanating from one of the prisoners, piquing his curiosity. Not long after, the transfer portal inside the cell activates, signaling to the prisoners that it's time to eat. When the food finally appears, disappointment washes over most as they find themselves staring at yet another serving of maggot porridge. Yet, a few among them are simply grateful for the chance to eat, no matter how unappetizing the meal may be. Two prisoners continue their heated argument when suddenly one of them is struck in the head by a pig-headed man, a Class 2 prisoner. At that moment, the rest of the inmates freeze, fear etched on their faces. It's clear that Class 2 prisoners operate with impunity, and there's little anyone can do to challenge them. Tommy, the pig-headed brute, and his gang begin to devour their food greedily, completely oblivious to the plight of the other prisoners around them. At the back of the room, a young boy turns to his brother, his voice tinged with hunger. "I'm starving," he admits. Meanwhile, the Class 2 prisoners engage in a heated debate about the unappetizing scraps of food being served. Suddenly, an old man steps forward, catching them off guard. The Class 2 prisoners quickly assert their dominance, barking at him to remain where he is, insisting there's no food for him. Disappointment washes over the old man as he responds, "You're supposed to show a little compassion for the elderly, even in this godforsaken prison." One of the Class 2 prisoners mocks him, taunting that he can only eat if he's within a circle with no exceptions. To everyone's surprise, the old man stands his ground, leaving the burly man in front of him stunned. The big guy can't believe the old man's defiance, thinking he must have lost his mind. Infuriated by the old man's arrogance, he seizes him by the neck, lifting him effortlessly with one arm. "How did you find the food without even being able to see?" he demands, bewildered. The arrogant man struts around, full of bravado, until the old man swiftly turns the tables on him. Before he can even process what's happening, he finds himself sprawled on the floor, blood pouring from a wound in his neck. The old man walks away from the dying prisoner, leaving a chilling warning for everyone else. Touching his eyes is strictly forbidden. The sight of the old man defeating the hulking brute leaves the prisoners in stunned silence. Meanwhile, the pig-headed thug orders his gang members to bring the old man to him, signaling that the situation is about to escalate. As this unfolds, one of the prison guards speaks with the warden, expressing concern over the old man's remarkable resilience. He reveals that the old man has survived 30 days in the maximum punishment cell and inquires whether he has killed again. The prison warden informs the guard that they are in a facility where thousands perish each day, making it utterly foolish to punish a prisoner for killing another. Intrigued, the guard's curiosity about the old man's actions deepens. The warden then reveals the grim reality of the prison, leaving the guard utterly stunned. As they discuss their plans, the old man is relentlessly dismantling the Class 2 prisoners. The leader shouts at the top of his lungs, urging his comrades to encircle the old man. Yet, they find themselves unable to overwhelm him, for he wields what seems to be a formidable weapon. In the warden's office, he informs the guard that the old man has a chilling history. He once killed over 200 people in a single night, a testament to his terrifying nature. As if to reinforce this reputation, the old man swiftly dispatches the Class 2 prisoners in the room with ruthless efficiency. The warden also points out the marked numbers on the prisoners' necks, indicating the order of their arrival. He then asks if he remembers the old man's number, and suddenly it hits him the old man is number 51. A cold chill runs down the guard's spine as the warden reveals that this old man is a celebrity within the prison walls. To put it into perspective, he is the 51st prisoner to ever enter the facility since its inception, and his name is Argol Rastos. As Argol finishes dealing with a stubborn member of his gang, the room is engulfed in stunned silence. While the others panic, questioning Argol's identity, the young boys seem to recognize him. Meanwhile, the boy gapes at the old man in disbelief, struggling to comprehend how he has managed to survive for the past 64 years. The other prisoners stand frozen in shock and fear as Argol tears through the tough inmates as if they were made of tissue. Surprisingly, he spares their lives, leaving them writhing in severe pain instead. Not a single one lies dead from the brutal punishment he has inflicted. With a trembling voice, the pig-headed man dares to ask Argol what he truly is. The old man responds with a piercing question of his own. Do you really believe that numbers equate to power? Argol concedes that having the numbers could be advantageous against certain foes, but he quickly dismisses their combat skills as pathetic. You can't even lay a finger on me, he taunts. Turning his attention to the wounded prisoners, he delivers a chilling message. In a month, you will all be dead, thanks to the injuries I've inflicted. He informs them with a chilling calmness that they are welcome to come at him if they wish to meet their end sooner. The wounded prisoners watch as Argol strides over to the pot to serve himself. While the others grumble about the terrible food, Argol can't help but feel grateful. To him, this meal is a feast compared to what he endured in solitary confinement. Once Argol finishes, the other prisoners gather around the large pot to savor their own meals. The man from earlier remains wary of Argol, determined to shield his brother Sero from any potential threat. Lost in his thoughts, he jumps when Argol suddenly appears beside him. Fear flashes across his face as he bolts away from Argol, panic evident in every step. He wondered when Argol had approached him, as he couldn't sense his presence at all. Turning to Sero, Argol revealed that he could detect a unique scent on him. You have special blood, he remarked. However, Sero's big brother quickly dismissed this, calling Argol's words nonsense. Argol, undeterred, replied, I may be an old man, but my intuition is all I have left. This only fueled Sero's brother's anger. With a fierce glare, he threatened Argol. If you breathe a word about Sero, I swear I'll kill you. Argol reassures the man that he has no intention of pursuing that course of action, as it would serve him no purpose. He admits to being entertained by Sero's unique talent, remarking that it's been a long time since he's encountered someone as extraordinary as Sero. The man then shifts his attention to Sero, suggesting they make their exit. Just then, the prisoners who had been sent to the quarry return to the hall. In a dimly lit corner of the prison, a rhinoceros beast man named Menlok, alongside the eagle warrior Haluk and a werebeast known as Gork, surveyed their surroundings, fatigue etched on their faces. Suddenly they noticed the ground smeared with blood, a shocking sight that piqued their curiosity. Haluk crouched down, his keen eyes scanning the crimson stains. As he examined the scene, he realized the blood belonged to at least a dozen individuals. A frown creased his brow as he pondered the unsettling question, why had an attack erupted after months of eerie silence within the prison walls? Furious, Menlok bellows, demanding to know who made this mess during their absence. His voice, a thunderous roar, echoes through the space as he challenges the culprit to step forward. Without a moment's hesitation, Argol emerges, calmly admitting his responsibility. Menlok's surprise is palpable. He has never encountered this old man before. Are you a newcomer? He inquires, but Argol simply replies with his name, sidestepping the question entirely. Menlok smirks, refusing to accept that Argol, an old man, could be responsible for the chaos. As Menlok continues to ramble, Haluk's gaze falls on the number etched into Argol's neck. Embodying his alpha male persona, Menlok seizes Argol by the throat. But before he can escalate the situation, Haluk swiftly intervenes, slapping Menlok's hand away. Menlok is taken aback when Haluk warns him to be cautious of an old man. Ignoring Menlok's surprise, Haluk turns to Argol, urging him to avoid any conflict and not to put a target on their backs. Argol, unfazed, nods in agreement, assuring Haluk that he won't cause them any trouble as long as they steer clear of him. Argol walks away, hinting at the possibility of a peaceful life ahead. Moments later, the prison sleep time is enforced. Along with this, a strict no-standing rule activates, compelling everyone to lie down with their backs against the cold floor. This no-standing policy is just one of the many systems implemented by the prison to maintain control. The prisoners are fitted with gravity resistance devices that keep them from standing during sleep time. While some attempt to resist this enforced confinement, they are merely gambling with their lives, facing a perilous 50-50 chance of succumbing to the spark. Despite their resentment, they have no choice but to lie down until morning. Frustration simmers among them as they realize the guards and the warden wield absolute control over their existence. Suddenly, an ugly, bizarre-looking bug clings to a prisoner's leg, unnoticed. As darkness envelops the room, Menlock turns to Haluk, questioning why he had stopped him from attacking Argyll earlier that day. Haluk hesitates before revealing that he witnessed something terrifying. Argyll's prison number 51. Menlock's eyes widen in shock. He struggles to accept the chilling truth. This reveals that the old man has been in the facility since its inception, which explains why only numbers are inscribed on his neck, unlike the class distinctions seen on others. Menlock acknowledges that nothing good can come from associating with someone like Argyll. Concerned, he turns to Haluk and asks if he should apologize to Argyll. Haluk reassures him, saying not to worry. Argyll didn't take offense. He adds that there was no way he could have known. Suddenly, a cascade of stones tumbles down their path. When they look up, their hearts drop at the sight of zombies charging toward them. Panic erupts among the prisoners, who are hopelessly confined by the no-standing system in place. Argyll soon learns of the situation, pondering whether the bug room had opened while he was in solitary confinement. Just as the zombies close in around him, he summons his strength, rising with the radiant light enveloping him. With an intimidating presence and an overwhelming aura, Argyll readies himself to confront the encroaching horde. Meanwhile, Sorrow and his brother are taken aback by the sight of the approaching horde of zombies. Despite the weight of the gravity resistance device holding him down, the brother struggles to rise. He urges Sorrow to take cover behind a nearby rock before he transforms into a beast, crackling with electricity as the air around him sparks with energy. In beast mode, Sorrow's brother unleashes his fury on the zombies, ripping them apart with primal ferocity. Meanwhile, Menlock and Haluk are locked in their own struggle against the relentless horde, bewildered by the sheer number of attackers. Haluk observes, frustration creeping into his voice, that no matter how many they defeat, the zombies just keep coming. It seems that beastmen have found a way to defy the no-standing system, while the weaker prisoners remain vulnerable, destined to become zombies. Menlock ponders why the undead are immune to this rule, and Haluk explains that the system doesn't activate for the deceased. Just then, another wave of zombies surges toward the duo, sending chills down their spines. If they get surrounded, it will be the end for them. Menlock confides in Haluk that he's nearly out of energy, the system relentlessly draining his stamina. Haluk suggests a clever tactic to deceive the system by positioning himself with his back against a rock. Just then, Argyll arrives, swooping in like an unstoppable force, effortlessly tearing through the zombies in a single sweeping motion. Menlock and Haluk stand in stunned silence, awestruck by the old man's formidable power. They couldn't believe how quickly he had dispatched the horde. Argyll then checked to ensure they hadn't been bitten by the vampire zombie fleas. Menlock and Haluk dropped to the ground, still in shock, and asked him why he had helped them. With a casual shrug, Argyll replied that he simply wanted to avoid any troublesome situations. From his explanation, they both conclude that he did it because beastmen are typically stronger than ordinary prisoners. If they were to become zombies, their strength would only increase, making them even more troublesome to handle. Suddenly, the werebeast Gork, now a zombie, emerges before them. Menlock, taken aback, realizes he has been bitten. He quickly warns the old man not to engage with a zombie werebeast. Argyll, undaunted, feels a thrill coursing through him. It has been far too long since he faced a werebeast. With a swift motion, he delivers a decisive chop to zombie Gork's neck, leaving Haluk in stunned silence. While Argyll finds his opponent surprisingly easy to handle, he can't help but admire Gork's quick reflexes. Yet, despite Gork's speed, he proves no match for Argyll's lightning-fast strikes. Haluk observes that the no-standing system has no effect on Argyll, who not only stands but also moves with remarkable agility. Without hesitation, Argyll deftly dodges all of Zombie Gork's attacks, leaving Haluk in awe, questioning how he can maneuver so skillfully without sight. Suddenly, the werebeast undergoes a transformation, morphing into a massive Doberman weredog, its strength amplified several times over. Argyll remains unfazed, dismissing the creature as mere trash. With remarkable ease and precision, he closes in on the giant dog, using its massive thigh as a foothold to propel himself upward. Reaching the top of the beast, he claws at its head with one hand while driving his weapon across its neck with the other. As Argyle takes the dog for a walk, he reflects on how its size has made it vulnerable. Watching the fight unfold, Holuk realizes that survival in solitude means adhering to the wisdom of the old man. Meanwhile, Argyle notices the dog still struggling to hold on to life, but he can't ignore the urgent cries for help echoing in the distance. With a heavy heart, he decides to leave the dog behind. Despite Menlock's desperate pleas for him to stay, Argyle races off to assist Ciro's older brother, who is struggling to fend off the zombies while keeping an eye on his younger sibling. In a flash, Argyle bursts onto the scene, swiftly cutting down the remaining zombies in a seamless sweep. The bodies hit the ground before anyone can even utter a word. As the dust settles, the two of them gaze at him in disbelief, left stunned and questioning his identity. The next day, the system awakens the prisoners and announces the morning roll call. To their shock, out of 94 prisoners, only 14 have survived, 80 did not make it. Amidst the grim announcement, Argyle leans against a tall rock, finding solace in meditation. After tallying the survivors, the system announces its intention to replenish the missing personnel. Golden lights fill the prison as new prisoners are teleported in to replace those who have fallen. Confusion washes over the newcomers as they take in their grim surroundings, overwhelmed by the stench of decay and the sight of bloodied corpses. Exhausted from last night's zombie raid, the veteran prisoners lack the energy to haze the newcomers. Instead, they choose to rest, while everyone else hurriedly finds their own spots to catch some much-needed sleep. The morning roll call passes quietly, devoid of any playful hazing. Meanwhile, Argyle sits in meditation, a satisfied smile on his face, knowing he has successfully eliminated all the infected zombies. It turns out the outbreak was triggered by the vampire zombie fleas from earlier, creatures that can kill with just a single bite. As Argyle contemplates this grim revelation, his super hearing picks up a faint sound that piques his curiosity. Without hesitation, he leaps down from the rock and strides toward a nearby door, leaving everyone wondering where he might be headed. They gasp in disbelief as they watch him push open the door, ready to step outside. The new recruits, eager to follow, hesitate. Halak quickly intervenes, cautioning them that stepping through that door means facing Hades himself. No one has ever returned from that threshold. He warns them that the corridors beyond are teeming with the most dangerous and sinister creatures imaginable, capable of crushing prisoners like mere ants. The thought of unimaginable, shadowy creatures only heightens Argyle's curiosity. As he strolls through the corridor, he encounters a small green elf named Jacob, who greets him with a cheerful "Master" and mentions that it has been far too long. Jacob had been anticipating Argyle's arrival after hearing the commotion. Intrigued, Argyle wonders how Jacob knew to find him in the corridor. With a sly grin, Jacob reveals that he paid the guards 5 gold coins for the tip. Jacob seethes at the thought of the greedy guard Hogez, who sold him crucial information at an outrageous price. Yet, he reassures himself that it was worth every coin just to see Argyle again. As soon as Argyle arrives, he takes a seat and cuts straight to the chase, urging Jacob to skip the pleasantries and get down to business. It quickly becomes clear that their monthly meetings are essential. The prison layout shifts on a monthly cycle, and Argyle is there to help Jacob redraw the map. After a conversion 2 days ago, Jacob finds himself in need of a new map. The conversion periodically alters the prison, making it impossible to memorize all the paths. However, Argyle stands as the sole exception, able to retain the entire layout in his mind. Jacob watches in awe as Argyle sketches the map, marveling at his skill. No matter how many times he witnesses it, the process never fails to amaze him. While Argyle insists he simply has a knack for it, Jacob is always amazed by his talent. Moments later, as Argyle completes the map, Jacob expresses his gratitude and offers him anything from his magic bag. Argyle, with a straightforwardness that makes Jacob chuckle, requests proper food. In response, Jacob presents a platter brimming with succulent meat, and Argyle eagerly begins to feast. As Jacob eats, he shares some crucial information. A summoning is set to take place today in all lower-class cells, and he lists the monsters expected to emerge. Argyle listens intently, noting that the most troublesome creatures are sure to make an appearance. He acknowledges the value of this information, recognizing that summonings are both irregular and unpredictable. Jacob turns to Argyle and inquires about the usual troublemakers, a group of demon-like figures adorned with skull motifs. Argyle responds that things have been surprisingly quiet lately, but he cautions Jacob to mind his own business. Jacob quickly apologizes for being nosy, bowing respectfully as he wishes Argyle to stay safe. Argyle turns to leave, urging Jacob to be cautious on his way back. After the meeting, he pauses at a door marked Merchandise Storage, which he suspects is connected to Ciro. He reasons that the prison warden must have sent him here for a particular purpose. As he stands there, Argyle reflects on how he hasn't been feeling quite himself lately, and reminds himself to retrieve his reward from the warden. Argyle returns to the cell, and the atmosphere shifts dramatically as he unveils the meat platter Jacob gifted him. The tantalizing aroma piques the curiosity of the other prisoners, who quickly realize that Argyle is seated before an actual feast. Their eyes widen in disbelief at the sight of real meat, a stark contrast to the usual fare of maggots. 3 overzealous inmates attempt to snatch the food by force, but Holuk and Menlock step in, their presence commanding respect. With a menacing glare, they threaten to turn the would-be thieves into shawarma, effectively quelling any further attempts at theft. A single glance at the fearsome Menlock sends them scrambling in terror. Once the chaos settles, Argyle turns his attention to Holuk, teasingly calling him a sparrow. Holuk retorts, proudly declaring himself a golden eagle. Meanwhile, Menlock, drooling with anticipation, inquires about the source of the meat. Sarrow's eyes nearly bulge out of their sockets as he gapes at the food, but his brother quickly calls his name, snapping him back to reality. Argyle brushes aside their questions and warmly invites them to join him. After indulging in the delicious feast, they collapse onto the ground, still savoring the flavors. Holuk is the only one who kneels, expressing heartfelt thanks to Argyle for the meal and for rescuing them during the last zombie raid. However, Argyle humbly declines the gratitude, insisting that surviving in solitude is not something worthy of thanks. He warns them that life in this prison will eventually breed a deep resentment for existence itself. He explains that he saved them because he sensed their desperate will to live. When he asks if they wish to endure this solitude, they all nod in agreement, until Argyle speaks up, questioning what they will do when their survival instincts drive them toward ending their own lives. His words hang heavy in the air, leaving them all paralyzed with fear. Argyle reflects on the harsh reality of life in solitude, then poses a question. Do they still wish to survive? After a brief pause, Menlock firmly states that he refuses to die in a place like this. Holuk echoes his determination, declaring his intent to make it through. Sarrow's older brother adds his own desire to survive and return home. With a spark of hope, Sarrow quickly chimes in, expressing his longing to see his father again. Recognizing their unwavering determination, Argyle realizes he needs allies as the end draws near. He gathers the group and informs them about today's summoning, urging everyone to prepare for what lies ahead. Meanwhile, in a different location, 2 men are busy clearing away corpses. One of them, visibly frustrated, grumbles about the unpleasantness of their task. His companion urges him to endure, reminding him that the bodies must be removed to prevent the spread of disease. The first man grumbles in response, blaming their dire situation on their own weakness. After tossing another corpse into the dump, they cover their noses as the foul stench of decay assaults them, gazing at the mountain of bodies. One of them mutters, "This prison truly lives up to its reputation as the worst place in the universe." He recalls hearing from older inmates about an old man who had slaughtered all those people, but his friend remains skeptical. Suddenly, golden lights flicker to life, and giant floating heads materialize, their tongues slithering as if searching for something to consume. As panic erupts among the prisoners, Holuk calls out to Argyle, who remains undisturbed in meditation. Calmly, Argyle explains that the heads are merely processing filth and corpses, unfazed by the chaos around them. Holuk inquires if the creatures are dangerous, to which Argyle replies that they only attack when provoked. Just then, a foolish, overweight man kicks one of the heads, provoking an immediate and furious response. Argyle turns to Holuk, asking about the task he had requested him to handle. Holuk assures him that he has taken care of everything and is currently working on some additional preparations. Satisfied, Argyle nods and tells him it's time to head back and get ready. Meanwhile, one of the cleanup crew, still reeling from the stench of decaying flesh, tells his friend to dial down the dramatics. After all, they encounter corpses regularly. His friend retorts that while he's seen plenty of bodies, this is his first experience witnessing the process of decomposition. The dark-haired crew member smirks and advises him to brace himself, as they're bound to encounter more of this in the future. Suddenly, the golden lights flicker once more, and a colossal 2-headed, fire-breathing reptile materializes before them. Shock ripples through the crowd as they struggle to comprehend the unfolding chaos. Panic sets in, and people flee in every direction as the double-headed dragon begins to transform the entire prison into a scene of utter devastation. Amidst the fire and chaos, most of the prisoners lie charred, cooked to a disturbing medium rare. Taking refuge behind a towering rock, Holuk turns to Argyle, questioning if this is the premium event he had warned them to prepare for. Argyle nods in affirmation, his gaze fixed on the grim scene before them, where the prisoners are being roasted like Wagyu beef. The sight triggers a haunting memory of his meeting with Jacob. He reflects that the fire-breathing dragon is the most formidable monster he feared. Meanwhile, the rest of Argyl's gang huddles behind the rocks, sharing his concern. Menlock wonders if they can withstand the dragon's scorching heat, but Argyl reassures him. "Don't worry," he says confidently. "We've prepared well for this. To survive, we must follow my lead." Moments later, the dragon roars into view, unleashing torrents of fire in every direction. Argyl quickly shouts for everyone to brace themselves for impact. He explains that the dragon's fiery breath reaches up to 10 meters and has a 1-second delay before it erupts. "When you see the dragon, find cover behind a rock," he urges. "You might get singed, but I promise, you'll survive." He reminds them to keep an eye on the position of the dragon's head, just as he had taught them. The group heeds Argyl's advice, skillfully navigating through the flames. Under his guidance, they had gathered stones from within the cell and constructed a barrier to shield themselves from the fire. Although they had previously doubted his plan and voiced their complaints before the summoning, this strategy ultimately saved them from being roasted alive. In addition to shifting the rocks, they mixed soil with water to create mud, which they hurled at the dragon whenever it became distracted. According to Argyl, this dragon breathes through its skin, and the mud would obstruct its ability to breathe. After splattering the creature with mud, its labored breaths made movement a struggle, and its vision was severely impaired. When it's Argyl's turn to unleash chaos, he embodies his usual overpowered main character persona. With his favorite weapon in hand, he swiftly slashes the dragon in 100 places at once, leaving it no chance to catch its breath. Watching Argyl perform this feat once again reminds Holuk that to survive in solitude, one must cling to the wisdom of the old-timers. As the dust settles and silence envelops the cell, the remaining prisoners cautiously peek out from behind the rocks, ensuring it's safe to emerge. As the chaos subsides, they step into the open air, their eyes widening in disbelief at the sight before them. The monster lies sprawled lifeless on the ground, its remains scattered like discarded sausages. They can hardly fathom that the old geezer managed to defeat such an untouchable creature. Meanwhile, the other prisoners gaze at Argyl and his crew in awe, marveling at the sight of the fallen beast. Before they can catch their breath, the golden lights reappear, signaling yet another summoning. The sight leaves everyone stunned and weary. With his keen instincts, Argyl senses that over 10 fire-breathing dragons have been summoned. Holuk and the rest of the crew nearly lose their composure, wondering if they will even survive the impending onslaught of flames. Before anyone can react, raging flames erupt from the dragons, incinerating a few more survivors. The cell quickly fills with a cacophony of terrified screams. Meanwhile, Argyl remains composed, his chill guy demeanor unwavering as he strategizes on how to defeat the dragons. He realizes that taking them all down at once may not be the challenge. The real struggle lies in keeping his crew members alive amidst the chaos. Sorrow's brother, however, is focused on shielding his younger sibling, urging him to hide behind him. The sea of fire engulfs the crew in terror, leaving them shaken to their core. Holuk turns to Argyl, questioning whether they should employ the same strategy as before. But Argyl surprises everyone, shaking his head and declaring that they must head to the corridor instead. Without hesitation, they fall in line behind him as he clears the path ahead. Holuk harbors doubts about the plan, but chooses not to voice them. Menlock, on the other hand, is gripped by fear and confronts Argyl about the reckless choice to venture into the corridor. Holuk, trying to calm the situation, urges him to relax, insisting that staying close to the old man is their best chance of surviving this hellish ordeal. Menlock hesitates, paralyzed by fear, and before he knows it, one of the dragons closes in on him. Just when all seems lost, the old man springs into action, swiftly dispatching the beast and saving Menlock from certain doom. Meanwhile, Menlock stands frozen, nearly paralyzed with terror, his body trembling uncontrollably. Argyl snaps him out of his daze, reminding him of his earlier resolve, not wanting to die alone and without purpose. Moments later, he joins the crew as they step into the corridor, Argyl trailing behind them like a protective papa bear, urging them to hurry. But soon, Argyl takes the lead, striding ahead. The corridor is shrouded in a thick haze, prompting Holuk to grumble, "I can't see a thing." Anxiety tightens around him as he finally confronts the infamous corridor known for its dangers. Argyl warns them to remain vigilant. They might encounter other prisoners, particularly those classified as Class 3 or Class 4. Ignoring their fearful expressions, he continues to instill dread, warning them that danger could strike in the blink of an eye. Holuk steps forward, offering to take the rear position, confident in his keen eyesight. With a proud grin, Argyl assures him he will be counting on him, but adds a stern warning not to stray from the group. As they press on, Holuk's sixth sense begins to tingle, a chilling awareness creeping over him that something lurks in the shadows, watching. He scans the area with suspicion, wondering if it's truly safe to be in the corridor. Though hidden from view, a mysterious figure catches Holuk's eye, confirming his fears. He calls out to the old man, insisting they return to the cell, but horror grips him as he halts mid-sentence, realizing he's utterly alone. Holuk scans the desolate surroundings, calling out for his master, but the crew is nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, in another part of the area, Menlok searches frantically for Holuk, shouting his name in desperation. Argel quickly intervenes, urging him to stop yelling like a frightened child unless he wants to attract unwanted attention. Menlok, clearly anxious, struggles to comprehend how Holuk could have disappeared so suddenly. Argel explains that certain creatures in the corridor have the ability to shift their positions at will. When Menlok inquires if a ghost has kidnapped Holuk, Argel bluntly confirms his fears. He warns them that the corridor is teeming with unimaginable horrors, leaving them gripped by terror. Menlok, having witnessed the ghostly event firsthand, struggles to dismiss it. Yet, a gnawing worry lingers in his mind. What if they never find Holuk? Argel reassures him not to worry about finding the sparrow, oblivious to Holuk's disdain for that nickname. Yet he confesses his uncertainty about whether they will find him alive. Meanwhile, Holuk walks along a desolate path, his mind wandering to endless corridors filled with mysterious realms crafted by the universe's greatest magicians and brilliant architects. The thought of being left alone in the corridor fills Holuk with dread. His senses start to tingle as he senses something approaching. Suddenly, a giant ogre looms before him, towering menacingly. Without a moment's hesitation, the ogre swings its massive wooden baton. Holuk loses his composure, shedding a few feathers in the process, but he quickly reminds himself to stay focused. He spins swiftly, narrowly evading the blow, but quickly realizes he is no match for the creature. In a panic, he decides to flee. However, just as he darts in the opposite direction, another giant ogre appears, blocking his path and trapping him between two looming threats. Now cornered, Holuk frantically searches for a way to escape being torn to shreds. He swiftly spreads his wings and takes flight, soaring above the ogres as they swipe at him with their bare hands. He deftly dodges a flurry of attacks, weaving through the air to stay just out of their grasp. With a final surge of determination, Holuk propels himself upward, reminding himself that he cannot perish in this wretched place. Just as he nearly breaks free, one of the ogres lunges forward and snatches him up like a discarded piece of refuse. As the ogre's foul mouth gapes wide, ready to devour him, Holuk feels his life flash before his eyes. He wonders if it will truly end in such a meaningless way. In a moment of desperation, he lets out one final cry for help. Just then, as if the universe has taken pity on him, a pig-headed man named Becky bursts onto the scene, wielding a baseball bat, as if he's been preparing for this moment his entire life. Becky delivers a powerful swing to the ogre's thigh, freeing Holuk from the clutches of death. The blow sends the giant ogre howling in pain, a surprisingly high-pitched scream for such a massive creature. Holuk scrambles to safety, utterly bewildered by the scene before him. How could this small, pig-like figure, wielding nothing more than a simple bat, have just flattened a colossal monster that was mere seconds away from turning him into a gruesome soup? As Holuk grapples with the sheer madness of the situation, Becky stands triumphantly over his fallen opponent, chest puffed out like a champion basking in victory. Without missing a beat, he raises his bat once more and delivers a thunderous swing to the ogre's head, narrating the moment with the flair of a sports commentator, hyping up a grand baseball finale. The second ogre lunges at him, but it stands no chance against Becky's incredible speed. With a single, powerful swing, she slams her bat into the creature's face, sending it crashing to the ground. Holuk watches in stunned disbelief, utterly amazed that Becky can take down two giant ogres with such ease. After dispatching them both without breaking a sweat, Becky joyfully hops around, proudly declaring it a double home run. What happens next fills Holuk with a mix of disgust and shock as the tiny pig creature begins to gnaw at the ogre's flesh like it's a piece of brisket. The gruesome sight makes Holuk realize just how out of his league Becky truly is. She's a Class 4 prisoner after all. With no other option, he falls to his knees begging her for help, desperation etched across his face. With his mouth still full and a sizable chunk of ogre meat in hand, Becky stops to watch Holuk intently. Holuk remains on the ground, looking quite humble, as he realizes that his fate rests in Becky's hands. For a moment, surprise flickers across Becky's face as he questions Holuk's lingering presence, asking why he hasn't left now that the game is over. Overwhelmed by shame, Holuk quickly responds, insisting that he can't die like meaningless trash. Becky bristles with offense, questioning why Holuk is treating him as if he were some deranged killer. As he continues to speak, he abruptly pauses, sniffing the air around Holuk. In a fit of anger, he hurls his precious ogre meat aside, demanding to know why Holuk carries the scent of the old blind geezer. With a fierce glare, Becky threatens Holuk to answer him immediately, leaving Holuk nearly paralyzed with fear. As Holuk realizes that Becky is referring to Argyle, he attempts to speak, but a group of unsettling prisoners interrupts him. Their menacing appearance sends beads of sweat trickling down Holuk's forehead. One prisoner bears a number on their neck, indicating they are also Class 4. Like a protective papa bear, the towering figure warns Becky that she shouldn't be wandering alone. Meanwhile, a redhead with hair cascading over her face like Medusa praises Becky for capturing an ogre, declaring it a divine blessing. A towering, Frankenstein-like prisoner praises Becky, drawing the attention of the black-haired man nearby. His gaze soon lands on Holuk, who is frozen in fear at the sight of the Class 4 prisoners. Trembling, Holuk remembers Argyle's warning. Their cell was actually safer than other parts of the prison, even amidst the zombie chaos. Meanwhile, Argyle and the rest of the crew continue their frantic search for Holuk. Suddenly, Argyle raises a hand, signaling everyone to stop. Manhwak leans in, asking if there's any news about Holuk. Argyle peers down into a dark opening, beckoning them to take a look. What they see below leaves them in shock. A terrifying creature with 6 arms, each ending in massive razor-sharp blades. The ground is littered with corpses, some still impaled by its deadly appendages. Argyle warns that the monster is formidable, capable of crushing a Class V prisoner like a melon. He explains that every creature in the corridor has a name, and this one is called a decapitator. It earned its name for its gruesome specialty severing heads. Argyle stresses that there is no safe zone nearby and urges them to exercise extreme caution. After the lecture, they continue on their way, and Argyle warns them that with their meager abilities, none of them would survive an encounter with the decapitator. Manhwak quickly vows never to set foot in the corridors again. Argyle raises an eyebrow and asks if he's afraid. Manhwak retorts that it hardly seems like a suitable place for a leisurely stroll. Argyle then questions whether they should abandon their search for Holuk. Manhwak, resolute, insists he cannot abandon his friend. Impressed by his determination, Argyle agrees that they must continue the search. Yet doubt creeps back in as Manhwak questions whether they can truly find Holuk. Argyle reassures him, affirming that they will succeed. Meanwhile, Becky interrogates Holuk about Argyle. Just calm down, Holuk urges, trying to diffuse the tension. Argyle is just a cellmate. But Becky remains unconvinced, her eyes narrowing as she threatens to pluck one of Holuk's feathers if he doesn't come clean. The giant man inquires about the commotion, and Becky reveals that she detected the old man's scent on Holuk. This revelation sends a chill down their spines. Meanwhile, Yurik, the prisoner with a Frankenstein-like appearance, begins to panic, crying out for help as he insists he must flee or risk death. The giant, casually chewing on a piece of ogre meat, tells Yurik to calm down, reminding him that the old man is not currently around. He sits down to tear off another piece of meat and calls the redhead to join him. The redhead declines, expressing his desire to speak with Holuk instead. The giant grumbles, urging him to keep it brief, and adds with a hint of disappointment that they can't enjoy chicken since Holuk seems to have ties to the old man. Turning to Holuk, the redhead reassures him, "Don't worry, I promise not to eat you." Holuk, still trembling with fear, stammers a response. The redhead warns him that in his solitude, Argyle has become a target for many beings, and anyone connected to him inevitably faces the same fate. This revelation sends a chill down Holuk's spine, prompting him to ask about these beings. She responds, her voice steady yet grave, that they are monsters so terrifying that even making eye contact with them is impossible. The redhead casts a spell, healing all of Holuk's wounds, and explains that she recited a prayer to soothe his mind. Moments later, she warns him to be cautious on his journey back, before turning to leave with Becky and the others. As they depart, Yurik, still trembling, mutters his relief that they didn't encounter Argyle. The giant shakes his head, telling him to stop being such a drama queen. Meanwhile, the redhead quietly offers a blessing to Holuk before they vanish from sight. Left alone, Holuk cautiously ventures deeper into the unknown abyss. Suddenly, distant footsteps echo through the darkness, and he freezes in terror. To his relief, it's Argyle and the crew. Manhwak informs him that they were able to find him thanks to Argyle's efforts. Gratefully, Holuk thanks Argyle and the crew for their timely rescue. A moment later, he shares his harrowing encounter with the Class 4 prisoners, specifically mentioning a redhead who is a follower of the Light Constellation. Argyle reflects that he might not have been so fortunate if he had encountered a follower of the Void constellation. Intrigued, Sorrow admits he's heard of it before. His brother elaborates, explaining that the universe is home to godlike beings representing both the light and dark Void constellations. Each faction is filled with fervent believers who cling to the notion of an afterlife. Even in isolation, prisoners find themselves divided between these opposing ideologies. Menlock, indifferent to the discussions of gods, feels a wave of relief at Holuk's safe return. Argyle, meanwhile, is struck by the fact that Holuk managed to survive alone in the corridor. He contemplates training him to become a Fang, just as he has with many others before. However, he knows that such training requires time, and his greatest worry is that he doesn't have much of it left. As they press on, Argyle suddenly feels a surge of danger. "Run!" he shouts, urgency lacing his voice. But before they can react, an explosion rocks the ground behind them. From the chaos of the rubble, the fearsome Decapitator rises, its massive blades gleaming ominously. Panic sets in as they scramble for safety, dodging its relentless attacks. In the midst of the chaos, Sorrow's brother scoops him up onto his back, urging him, "Hold on tight." Shocked, Holuk turns to Menlock, seeking answers about the monster he missed during Argyle's presentation. Menlock names it, but Holuk's confusion lingers. Just then, Sorrow's brother, sprinting alongside them, chimes in to clarify. "It's called the Decapitator," he explains, recounting Argyle's harrowing tale. As the weight of the story sinks in, Holuk realizes that the ogres he faced were mere pests compared to this formidable beast. Menlock, still puzzled by Holuk's expression, simply shouts, "Run." Ahead, Argyle shouts a warning. They will be instantly killed if the Decapitator catches up to them. As he runs, he frantically searches for a way to distance himself from the group, knowing the monster is targeting him. Just then, the creature nearly snatches Holuk, who cries out, "Argyle, I'm running out of juice!" Spotting a narrow passage, Argyle urges them, "Get inside. The monster won't be able to follow us here." As anticipated, Decapitator becomes trapped at the entrance. The crew breathes a sigh of relief, believing they've narrowly escaped, but Argyle quickly reminds them that this is just the beginning. He instructs Holuk to guide the group through an alternate exit while he distracts Decapitator. Holuk nods in agreement, but before they can make their move, the monster bursts through, sending them into a frantic dash for survival. Argyle sprints away, the monstrous creature hot on his heels. Once he manages to escape, Holuk and the others take a moment to catch their breath. Menlock, still anxious, expresses his concerns about their safety. Holuk, however, offers reassurance, reminding him that the Decapitator is focused on Argyle. Sorrow's brother proposes they go back to help Argyle, but Holuk firmly declines, insisting that Argyle can take care of himself, and that they must stick to their plan. They all agree to return to the cell as Argyle instructed. Meanwhile, Argyle is engaged in a heart-to-heart conversation with Decapitator. The monster wonders if Argyle is weary of running and offers to cut off his leg. Slightly offended by Argyle's silence, Decapitator teasingly prompts him to share his last words. Argyle, maintaining his composure, calmly asks if Decapitator truly wants to kill him. The monster confirms, insisting that it's because Argyle deceived him. Argyle vehemently denies the accusation, but Decapitator, with an air of nerdy precision, cites the exact moment down to the second. It seems Argyle has been caught in a lie. 4 years ago, he had promised to play rock, paper, scissors with Decapitator. This absurd revelation leaves Argyle astounded. After all, ghosts are supposed to be mentally unstable and certainly shouldn't have access to ChatGPT. Argyle, suspecting that a figure named Saddle is orchestrating events behind the scenes, confronts him directly. Saddle feigns ignorance at first, but Argyle skillfully drops hints to draw him out. The tactic proves effective. Saddle reveals himself, lurking within the monster. He lets out a laugh, clearly impressed that Argyle could discern his influence even without seeing him. Argyle, however, humbly downplays his insight, claiming he was merely testing the waters. In a shocking turn of events, it is revealed that Saddle, a demon worshipper and necromancer, wields control over Decapitator through dark magic. Argyle, unfazed by this revelation, smugly reminds Saddle of his own superiority, boasting about his elevated status. But just as he revels in his self-importance, Decapitator launches a sudden attack on him, catching Argyle off guard. 5 years ago, Saddle was a weak, insignificant nobody, but now he believes he has finally gained the strength to defeat Argyle. As always, Argyle effortlessly dodges each of Saddle's strikes, showing no signs of exertion. Undeterred, Saddle relentlessly attacks with his weapon, Decapitator, boasting about his newfound ability to command every ghost in the corridor. He is convinced that no matter how invincible the old man appears, Argyle cannot escape his new domain. He confidently declares that Argyle stands no chance against him, as he is a Class 5 prisoner. Saddle boasts that he can easily overpower other Class V inmates, and warns Argyle to surrender before it's too late. Meanwhile, as the chatterbox revels in his bravado, Argyle moves with precision, skillfully dodging every strike from Decapitator. Unfazed by Saddle's newfound hobby, Argyle calmly reminds him that he has endured 60 long years in prison. Saddle, however, dismisses Argyle's boasting, naively believing he can defeat him with just 5 years of experience under his belt. As Argyle skillfully counters Decapitator's attacks, he taunts Saddle, calling him a baby, and highlighting the insurmountable gap in their experience, one that Saddle simply cannot comprehend. Saddle dismisses Argyle, questioning his abilities, but soon regrets his arrogance as Argyle delivers a fatal blow with his dagger. As he slashes Decapitator with precision, he lectures Saddle, pointing out that he squandered 5 years of training, only to learn the most basic skills. After delivering a stern lecture, Argyle swiftly begins to slash at the monster, severing its limbs with ease, as if slicing through sausages. In no time, the ground is drenched in blood as he effortlessly dismantles the Decapitator, asserting his dominance with every strike. Once the beast lies defeated, Argyle stands triumphantly on its corpse, a sense of exhilaration washing over him. It's then that he notices the mark of Saddle on the creature's forehead, the very symbol that had been controlling the monster. He seizes the Decapitator by its luxurious Brazilian weave and plunges his blade into its skull, shattering the mark. As he does this, he instructs Saddle to warn the demon worshippers against their futile actions. Meanwhile, Haluk guides the crew back to the cell, unaware that navigating the corridor has become a daunting challenge, all thanks to Argyle's questionable sense of direction. Menlock wonders aloud if they are on the right path. He also reflects on the old man, concerned about his well-being after hearing loud noises earlier that have now faded into silence. Suddenly, Sorrow interrupts, pointing ahead at Argyle. With a casual demeanor, Argyle remarks that they are late. The group is taken aback by his unexpected appearance and bombards him with questions about how he managed to escape the monster. Amidst their chatter, Menlock shakes his head, stating that nothing surprises him anymore when it comes to the old man. Argyle dismisses their questions and commands them to enter the cell. He explains that fire-breathing dragons must have roamed these corridors. Sorrow pales in horror at the sight of the charred, blackened corpses within the cell. The gruesome scene churns his stomach, and he nearly retches as his brother checks on him, offering no comfort. Argyle grips Sorrow's shoulder firmly and says, "Get used to it. This is the harsh reality of solitude." Still trembling with fear, Sorrow mutters that only the strong can survive in this place. Argyle counters, asserting that anyone, regardless of strength, can meet their end at any moment. His words resonate with Haluk, who recalls how countless individuals arrive each day, alone, only to face the same fate. Death spares no one, regardless of class, ability, or connections. Haluk ponders the suffocating darkness of solitude and how many succumb to despair before they even have a chance to fight back. Menlock grimaces at the sight of the grotesque janitors devouring corpses, voicing his disdain for solitude. Haluk, unfazed, refers to the scene as a recycling factory, where prisoners are systematically killed, processed, and replaced in an unending cycle. As they discuss the daily roll call, the system suddenly announces the commencement of the ritual. To their horror, they learn that out of 690 prisoners, only 5 remain alive, meaning only Argyle and his crew have survived. Their cell is understaffed, and suddenly the system alerts them of an impending transfer. The news leaves everyone in shock, even Argyle. As the teleportation process begins, Sorrow clings tightly to his brother, fear etched on his face. During the transfer, Argyle warns them that they might be separated. The thought sends a wave of unease through the group, leaving them anxious and unsettled. Sorrow's brother, Argyle, anxiously urges Sorrow to hang on. He rambles about release and liberation after their transfer, insisting that if they end up in the jungle, they should run toward the sea. Confusion lingers, but before anyone can ask questions, a sudden zap transports them. Moments later, Argyle finds himself in cell number 3498. He feels a twinge of disappointment. He had hoped to assist the crew in their development, but they were all scattered. Just then, he spots Sorrow beside him, anxiously searching for his older brother, Lucas. In that moment, Argyle understands that the prison warden orchestrated this separation. With a renewed sense of purpose, he decides to concentrate solely on managing the merchandise and supporting Sorrow, all while anticipating a potential encounter with the warden. Meanwhile, Sero continues to call out for Lucas, completely unaware of his surroundings. Argo, feeling the weight of time pressing down on him, devises a plan to guide Sero and help him achieve his goals. Before long, Sero catches sight of Argo and calls out to him. Argo responds, explaining that their new cell resembles a zoo, filled with around 300 prisoners, as indicated solely by the cacophony of sounds surrounding them. From a distance, two thugs spot their targets and approach, confident they can overpower an old man and a boy. Their eyes gleam with greed as they plot to enslave Argo, casting hungry glances at Sero, sensing their sinister intentions. Sero swiftly darts behind Argo for protection. Just then, a voice rings out from behind them, halting the thugs in their tracks. A red-haired woman named Rosna strides forward, struggling to carry a load of heavy melons. She strides in confidently, flanked by a group of bald men, boldly declaring Sero as hers. With a fierce glare, she labels the thugs as arrogant trash, sending them scurrying away. Turning her attention to a minion, she commands him to bring Sero to her. As the man grabs him, Sero clings desperately to Argo, screaming in fear. Yet, Argo feigns indifference, ignoring the commotion. As Sero struggles, he suddenly convulses violently, breaking free from the man's grip. Stunned, the man can hardly comprehend what's happening. Rosna, growing increasingly annoyed, berates him for being useless and failing at his task. Meanwhile, Argo remains calm, curious if this will finally be the moment he witnesses Sero in action. Amidst the chaos, Sero continues to convulse, while the man beside him insists to Rosna that he hasn't done anything to the boy. As the man turns around, he is taken aback to find Sero standing right behind him. Meanwhile, Argo can hardly contain his excitement over Sero's sudden transformation. He is eager to discover the true extent of the boy's potential. Rosna, too, is captivated by Sero's change and devises a plan to nurture his abilities. With a commanding tone, she instructs her minion to seize him. The man lunges forward in anger, attempting to grab Sero, but the boy deftly evades him, his claws swiping through the air. Frustrated and aware that he can't harm the child, the man demands that Sero remain still, yet the boy continues to slip through his grasp, dodging him with surprising agility. Just then, another man intervenes, swiftly knocking Sero out from behind. After the boy falls unconscious, he delivers a sharp slap to the first man's face, clearly unimpressed by his incompetence. Argo suddenly steps forward, seizing Sero with determination. The second guy, feeling smug, tells him to back off and attempts to strike him, but Argo swiftly catches his wrist and effortlessly slams him to the ground. With a quick move, he also knocks out the incompetent thug, freeing Sero from his grasp. Rosna watches in awe, clearly impressed by Argo's skills. Argo remains unimpressed. Despite Sero's awakening, he struggles against even a Class 2 prisoner. Nonetheless, Argo is determined to train him. Meanwhile, Rosna catches him lost in thought and reprimands him for knocking out her minions, whom she affectionately refers to as her children. Brandishing her whip to intimidate him, she demands his attention. Unfazed, Argo retorts that only the Grim Reaper truly frightens him. With a fierce glint in her eye, Rosna accepts the challenge, vowing to instill in him a genuine sense of fear. She cracks the whip to the air, a menacing promise to bind him and peel away his flesh. Yet, Argo remains unfazed, confidently declaring that she will soon eat her words. Just then, a towering figure named Morgan strides in, striking a dramatic Avenger pose. Rosna rolls her eyes at his flamboyant entrance, asserting that Argo belongs to her and telling Morgan to back off. Morgan, maintaining a veneer of politeness, warns her to back off. In response, she defiantly flashes him the middle finger. Undeterred, Morgan threatens to unleash a war if she dares to confront him, but Rosna remains unfazed, even relishing the prospect of conflict. As Morgan stands his ground, Rosna soon finds herself encircled by his minions, each marked with his emblem on their foreheads. Feeling cornered, Rosna calls Morgan sneaky and decides to retreat. She mutters that their fight would only please someone named Beckham. With a huff, she walks away with her minions, giving Morgan the middle finger once more and vowing to get back at him someday. Morgan, however, simply brushes it off, relieved that she backed down. When Argo asks who he is, Morgan beams with excitement and introduces himself, reminding Argo that he saved him in the jungle a year ago. He bows respectfully, addressing Argo as Big Brother, vowing never to forget the life-saving act. However, Argo claims he doesn't remember him. After a moment of reflection, he concludes that he must have inadvertently saved someone while hunting natives in the jungle during the liberation. Despite Argo's lack of recognition, Morgan kneels and pleads to serve him. His followers watch in disbelief, astonished to see their leader bowing to an old man. Morgan snaps at his gang, commanding them to bow as well. They quickly kneel, calling Argo Big Brother. However, Argo finds the display grating and dismisses the noise with a wave of his hand. Just then, Sarah jolts awake, screaming from a nightmare about Rosna's minions capturing him. Disoriented, he looks around and realizes he's in a bunker, with Argo deep in conversation with Morgan. Morgan reveals that they are in Cell 3, number 498, which houses 3 distinct factions. The first is the Axe Circle, under his leadership. The second is the Whip Witch Circle, led by Rosna. Lastly, there's the Blade Master Circle, headed by a man named Beckham. He emphasizes that all the leaders of these circles are Class 3 prisoners, and together, they maintain a delicate balance within the cell. Morgan informs them that preparations for release are underway, with each circle searching near the cell. As he explains, Argo learns that Morgan has spent 3 years in solitude, and he's impressed by how quickly Morgan has adapted. Morgan attributes his progress to Argo, who saved him a year ago. Grateful for the information, Argo expresses his desire to rest. Morgan assures him to call if he needs anything, and then offers them food. Sarah stands in stunned silence, horrified by the repulsive insects before them, meant to be their meal. Yet, without a moment's hesitation, Argo begins to eat. After a few bites, Suro turns to him, bewildered. "Why didn't you help me earlier?" he asks, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. "Is it because you see me as a weak imp?" Argo pauses, recognizing that Suro has forgotten his own moment of strength. But rather than bring it up, he simply replies, "If I had abandoned you, we wouldn't be here together now." Sero stands frozen, his eyes wide with shock. Argo, noticing his hesitation, inquires if fear has taken hold of him. With a heavy heart, Sero confesses that he feels powerless without his brother Lucas by his side. Argo shakes his head, insisting that Sero is not weak. He explains that true strength is relative, shaped by the challenges one faces. Argo expresses his desire for Sero to thrive, even in solitude, and offers his guidance to help him grow stronger. With a knowing smile, he adds, "But first, you need to eat." Sero questions him, asking why eating is so important. Argo responds that his greatest fear is hunger, for nothing is more agonizing than starvation. He warns Sero to eat the bugs, or he will never gain the strength he desires. With newfound determination, Sero vows to grow stronger for his brother. Despite the bugs' revolting appearance, he steels himself and forces them down. Meanwhile, in Raz's circle, one of her minions inquires about her whereabouts. A bear beast man replies that she has stepped out to deliver her regular report. Elsewhere, Rosna, now draped in a striking red cloak, bows before a pulsating red orb. A voice emanates from it, asking about her progress. With a determined tone, she reports that they will be able to fully collect the life force by the next liberation. She informs her master about Argo and Sero's arrival in the cell, assuring him that there's no need for concern. The voice, intrigued, prompts her to elaborate on Argo. As she describes him, the voice appears to recognize the name. Suddenly, a fiery demon face materializes from the orb, dismissing Razan's inquiry and vowing to handle the situation personally. Stunned by her master's intention to visit the cell, Rosna quickly offers to capture Argo before he arrives. The voice finds her enthusiasm amusing and grants her permission to capture him, dead or alive. Rosna bows deeply, acknowledging the voice as the great leader of demons. As she departs, she assures her master to expect her triumphant return. With a flourish, she pulls down her cloak, revealing her assets, and confidently vows to capture her targets, Argo and Sero, for her master. Back in the cell, Argo begins training Suro as they sit together in meditation. "You don't need to rely on brute strength or fighting techniques," Argo advises. Instead, he guides Sero through a series of breathing exercises designed to help him access his inner strength. As Sero follows his instructions, his thoughts drift to reuniting with Lucas. "Keep breathing," Argo encourages, "until you reach your inner self." Sero focuses on his breathing, but suddenly, he finds himself plunged into a dark, empty abyss. Panic sets in as he calls out for Argo, but his voice echoes back unanswered. Confused and disoriented, he struggles to comprehend where he is or how he arrived there. Just then, he hears Argo's voice, though he can't see him. Fear grips Sero as he voices his concerns, but Argo calmly reassures him to relax, insisting that he is right beside him. Sero is taken aback when Argo reveals that this is his inner self. Argo explains that confronting the darkness within is essential for him to grow stronger. Since this is Sero's first experience, Argo advises him to take just one step forward today. As Sero takes that step, he is suddenly flooded with a joyful memory of his family, bringing tears to his eyes. Argal calls out to Saro, urging him to pull back and stop dwelling on his doubts. Focus on your breathing, he instructs. Though it's a struggle, Saro makes an effort to follow his advice. Just as he feels himself slipping into unconsciousness, he is abruptly yanked back to reality. Argal smiles at him, praising, "Well done for your first time." He reminds Saro that his unique blood will become his greatest weapon. Saro is taken aback as he notices a subtle transformation in his hands. After the lecture, Argal announces that it's time for a meal, a prospect Saro dreads. Moments later, Margan serves them grilled monster meat, and Argal expresses his gratitude. Saro breathes a sigh of relief, thankful he won't have to face slimy insects for dinner. As Saro enjoys his meal, he notices a group of guys outside and wonders aloud why they aren't eating. Argal advises him to ignore them, explaining that they have their own ways of doing things. Just then, Rosna struts in with an exaggerated flair, reminiscent of an ostrich, and calls out to Margan to bring something out. Margan, clearly annoyed, tells her to tone it down. It turns out they are all involved in a project they had originally agreed upon. Rosna spots Argal and is taken aback to see he's still alive. Meanwhile, Margon's men drag out 4 corpses from their team, victims of yesterday's hunt in the corridor. With a grin, Margan offers them to Rosna, who eagerly accepts, thrilled at the prospect of a feast. She boasts that only 2 from her camp have perished. Saro's eyes widen in shock as he realizes they consume the corpses, and Argal, with a hint of pride, explains that this practice is common in Solitude. As Saro comes to the horrifying realization of what he had eaten earlier, he nearly loses his stomach. However, Argal quickly intervenes, clarifying that the meat they consumed was, in fact, monster meat. Meanwhile, Rosna and her crew return, brimming with excitement, as they drag back 2 corpses for their upcoming meat party. Margan advises Argal to take a break while they head off to indulge in the feast. With a hearty laugh, he departs with his men, eagerly hauling the remaining 2 bodies, equally thrilled about the celebration ahead. Once they leave, Argal advises Saro to stick to monster meat or insects, but to steer clear of the flesh of dead prisoners. Saro, relieved to hear this, eagerly agrees. Not long after, a group of brutes, each sporting an upside-down cross around their necks, returns to the cell, boasting about how they've taken down some Class 1 prisoners. These men are part of Blade Master Beckham's entourage. They quickly part ways as Beckham strides into the room, commanding attention with his presence. Margan arrives and approaches Beckham, inquiring about any harvest from the hunt. Beckham nods, eager to share his bounty. Argal, who is also present, overhears and raises an eyebrow as Margan informs him of Beckham's generous offer. Curiosity piqued, Argal wonders aloud why everyone seems to be so friendly with one another. Margan reveals that Beckham puts on a facade of tranquility, seeking to appear magnanimous and superior to those around him. He informs Argal that Beckham wishes to speak with him and offers to accompany him to the meeting. Meanwhile, Saro senses danger at the sight of Beckham. Argal, however, instructs Saro to return while he speaks with Beckham. Reluctant to face the situation alone, Saro hesitates, prompting Margan to suggest assigning a few men to ensure his safety. The 2 men assigned to watch over Saro are far from pleased about their babysitting duty while others indulge in Beckham's spoils. Their mouths water at the thought of feasting on Saro's tender flesh, leaving him trembling with fear. One of the men, struggling to resist temptation, warns the bald one to control himself, or they might find themselves as the main course on Rosna's dinner table. As they bicker, Saro's loneliness and terror begin to creep in, amplifying his sense of dread. He wonders if he can ever become as strong as Argal. The only thing accompanying him is the memory of their earlier conversation. They had been discussing Argal's incredible strength, and Saro had admitted he had never met anyone quite like him. He can't help but question if Argal is even human. With a reassuring smile, Argal confirms that he is. Yet, Saro remains skeptical, pressing Argal to reveal whether he can harness ki or mana. Argal reveals that he doesn't use mana, but he can manage ki to some extent. Saro is taken aback, his curiosity piqued. He bombards Argal with questions, starting with his age and hobbies. With a hint of pride, Argal responds that he is 88 years old and enjoys taking leisurely walks through the corridors. Saro, eager to know more, inquires about his friends. Argal smiles softly, mentioning that he has a few, his thoughts drifting to his bear companion and a girl with silver blue hair. Saro eagerly inquires about Argal's reason for coming to Solitude. For a brief moment, Argal freezes, the painful memory of his wife's death flooding back to him. Saro's eyes widen in shock at the revelation, but Argal quickly assures him that they can discuss it another time. Just then, Saro is jolted from his thoughts by the crack of a whip wreaking havoc nearby. He watches in horror as the whip ensnares one of his guards, crushing him mercilessly. After dispatching the guards, Rosna realizes that Argyle is nowhere to be found. Her gaze falls on Sharo, who is huddled on the floor, trembling like a frightened puppy. Panic washes over him as he grapples with the absence of Argyle, unsure of what to do next. Just then, Rosna, with an unsettling intensity reminiscent of an overly enthusiastic fan, beckons him to approach her. After whipping Saro for some time without eliciting a reaction, Rosna observes his remarkable endurance. There are no convulsions like the day before. Suddenly, Saro cries out in pain, begging her to stop and warning that something terrible will happen if she continues. Rosna, however, dismisses his threats with a casual air, convinced that he will only end up trembling and losing his mind, just as he did yesterday. She urges him to hurry up and reveal his true potential, her boredom evident. Suddenly, Saro transforms, but her expression remains unfazed. Instead, she feels a thrill at the prospect of having a new pet. As she attempts to whip him again, Saro charges forward to attack, only for her whip to ensnare his leg, slamming him hard to the ground. Filled with excitement from the little action, Rosna playfully urges Saro to bark like a puppy. As she watches him lie helplessly on the floor, she can't help but wonder how Argyle will react when he returns. Meanwhile, Argyle is seated with Morgan and Beckham, enjoying a casual chat. As they share a meal, Beckham glances at Argyle and asks, "Why don't you have a class number written on your neck?" Argyle responds with a hint of nostalgia, explaining, "I've been in Solitude for quite some time, and back then, class numbers weren't assigned." This prompts Beckham to refer to him as Senior. Morgan praises Argyle, noting that he single-handedly fought off the jungle natives. However, Argyle humbly brushes off the compliments, insisting that he's just a boring old geezer now. Beckham, unconvinced, can't shake the feeling that it's unusual for someone without class numbers to be standing before him. He also finds it hard to believe that one old man could take on the jungle natives and come out alive. Beckham envisions himself launching an attack on Argyle to gauge his strength, but, as always, Argyle picks up on the intent, and the atmosphere grows heavy with tension. Even Margon can sense the sudden chill in the room, though he brushes it off as mere hunger pangs. Argyle soon decides to take his leave, prompting Margon to urge him to eat more. However, Argyle explains that he must check on Saro. Beckham collects some monster meat from the loot before they depart. As they walk away, he can't help but marvel at how Argyle remained unfazed by his killing intent. It seems Margon is the only one who failed to read Beckham's threat. With a menacing glint in his eyes, Beckham vows to remember the old man. Meanwhile, Saro finds himself captured, and Rosna's minions celebrate her acquisition of a new pet. They close in around her as she watches Saro, who resembles a cute little chihuahua. Rosna feels a rush of excitement at the thought of Saro struggling while she flays him later. Saro, too weak to protest, lies still like an animal awaiting its fate. He resolves to live the rest of his life as a pet, clinging to the hope of seeing his big brother again. However, her moment is interrupted when two men approach, reporting that Argyle has been spotted in their camp, much to Rosna's annoyance. She feels a sense of satisfaction that he approached her on his own. Upon hearing this news, Saro suddenly recalls that he has an old man supporting him. The minions, trembling with fear, announce that Argyle has arrived with Margon and his entire crew. Rosna steps forward to confront them, and Morgan warns her that she's stepped on the wrong foot. Still brimming with confidence, she retorts, calling him a leech for depending on an old geezer, and boldly challenges Margon to a fight. Margon warns Rosna not to speak disrespectfully to the old man, but Argyle steps in, urging him to relax. He calmly asks Rosna to return Saro. With a playful smirk, she coyly refuses, claiming that since she caught him, the pet now belongs to her. She goes on to blame Argyle for not protecting the boy properly, calling Saro a rare and adorable jewel that she simply can't part with. Argyle, irritated by her unsettling demeanor, mutters under his breath, calling her a cougar, but she remains blissfully unaware of his comment. He tells her she is naive and ignorant for taking the child without understanding his significance. With a menacing tone, he warns that she will surely pay with her life for capturing Saro. Unfazed, Rosna dismisses his threats as mere bluster. Morgan suggests finishing her off while Argyle rescues the boy, but Argyle simply tells him to back off and turns to leave, leaving Morgan bewildered. As Argyle makes his way back, he ponders the slow rescue of Saro. Surprisingly, he feels little concern. After all, they wouldn't dare kill Saro. He reassures himself that the merchandise is safe, especially with the prison warden keeping a watchful eye. Just then, a chill runs down his spine as he senses a presence nearby. He swiftly scans his surroundings, alert and on edge. To his surprise, it's one of his friends, the silver-haired girl he had mentioned to Sarah earlier. She appears before him, radiant and enveloped in a soft, baby blue light. He asks her if she happened to see him while passing through. Alice replies that she wasn't merely passing by. She had sensed the intense atmosphere when he confronted Sarah about his return, prompting her to come and check on him. She then inquires about his health, and Argyle admits he's worried due to the limited time he has left. Alice offers to assist him in dealing with the troublesome demon-worshipping underlings in the cell, referring to Rosna and her band of misfits. However, Argyle declines her help, concerned that Sarah might become collateral damage if she gets involved. Alice responds with a wry smile, saying Sarah must be fortunate to have Argyle looking out for him. She hesitates, ultimately deciding to step back. The chaos in that cell is clearly not a concern for Argyle. As she's about to visit her sister, Argyle asks Alice to send his regards. A blush creeps onto her cheeks as she replies that her sister would be thrilled to hear from him. Still buoyant with emotion, Alice wraps her arms around Argyle in a warm hug, reminding him to call if he ever needs assistance, affectionately referring to him as their benefactor. After she vanishes, Argyle reminds himself not to rely on a child's help, no matter how dire the situation becomes. Standing alone in the corridor, he reflects on how adept he once was at confronting challenges head-on in the past. Suddenly, a jolt of electricity surges from his ankle and wrist devices, a stark reminder that it's time to adhere to the no-standing rule. As the others in the cell drift off to sleep, Argyle remains wide awake, his body still crackling with electric energy. As he moves through the makeshift camps, he resolves to stop holding back his true strength. Eventually, he finds himself in Rosna's circle, and surrounded by the electric current, he draws his dagger, ready to take a bold detour. In a dream, Rosna is transported back to her past, a time when she was merely an ordinary Class 3 prisoner. Her life had been rather pitiful until she crossed paths with a terrifying demon lord. Instinctively, she knew better than to make eye contact, so she quickly fell to her knees, bowing her head in submission. The demon's overwhelming authority propelled her upward, allowing her to swiftly ascend the ranks to become a formidable leader. But just as she was lost in this dreamlike state, a voice pierced through the silence calling her name. Rosna, clearly irritated, snaps at the insolent man for disturbing her sleep, warning him that if his reason for waking her isn't worthwhile, he'll regret it. The man, sweating profusely, apologizes and reveals the shocking news. Most of her minions have been killed. He explains that he discovered this grim reality upon waking up that morning. Rosna struggles to believe him, knowing that everyone adheres to the no-standing rule, which means they all sleep at the same time. She hurriedly gathers a few remaining members and rushes to the scene. Rosna gasps in horror at the sight of her comrades sprawled in a pool of their own blood. Out of the 80 people in her camp, 40 have perished. As she inspects the grim scene, one of the survivors notes that the victims were killed with a small, pointed tool typically used for piercing holes. Rosna shakes her head, bewildered. She has never witnessed such a weapon being used in the cell. Suddenly, she recalls her pet prisoner, Zero, and a surge of anger propels her to find him. Upon arriving at his cell, she discovers it empty and quickly deduces that Argyle must be behind this. With renewed determination, she summons her crew, declaring that it's time to hunt. Meanwhile, back in the cell, Zero awakens. After gulping down a bottle of water, he looks up, surprised to find Argyle standing before him. Argyle approaches Zero, who expresses his gratitude for being saved once again. This experience has ignited a desire within Zero to grow stronger so he can protect himself in the future. With determination in his eyes, he pleads with Argyle to help him bulk up. Just then, Morgan arrives, surprised to see Zero back so soon. Argyle informs him that he brought Zero back and inquires if Beckham will be attending the morning roll call. He explains that he wants the three of them to discuss something, sparking Margon's curiosity. Outside, Rosna bursts in with her minions, confronting Argyle, Beckham, Morgan, and their teams. As Argyle engages in a private conversation with Morgan and Beckham, Rosna boldly calls out, challenging him to face her. Morgan warns her to back off, but she retorts, telling him to mind his own business. Fuming with rage, she confronts Argyle, demanding to know if he's the one who took out her crew and stole her beloved puppy. Her threats hang in the air, promising dire consequences if he doesn't answer. Unfazed, Argyle coolly dismisses her, referring to her as a mosquito, which only serves to infuriate her further. Rosna pretends not to hear, but Argyle, undeterred, raises his voice, calling her a gong. The insult lands hard, leaving Rosna seething with anger. Despite Rosna's attempts to engage, her words fall on deaf ears as the others continue their conversation. Argyle turns to the two, seeking their opinions on his proposal. When Rosna inquires about the details, they act as if she's invisible. Margon nods in agreement, while Beckham chimes in, stating that the proposal is worthwhile, even if it comes with risks. He points out the growing scarcity of food, noting that it's becoming a pressing issue, even in the corridors. After hearing their plans, Argyle turns to Rosna to share his proposal. He explains that they intend to host a feast using the bodies of her fallen 40 subordinates and then capture the remaining 60 along with her team alive. Rosna's heart races with fear as she processes his words, realizing just how dire her situation has become. The power balance within the cell has shattered. Each of the three factions, it seems, originally consisted of 100 members, a delicate equilibrium now thrown into chaos. With 40 of her camp members dead, Rosna found herself a sitting duck. Margon and Beckham still commanded a force of 100, and if they joined forces, she stood no chance. The sheer power gap sent the chill down her spine, and soon her worst fears materialized as the two united against her in a brutal clash. As she watched them charge toward her crew, terror gripped Rosna, forcing her to confront her deepest demons. She freezes, unsure of how to overcome them. Argyle stands in the center, watching the chaos unfold in the cell as the clash intensifies. Margon and Beckham's crew completely overwhelms Rosna's team, decimating them like sheep. The brutal battle rages on, and soon Rosna finds herself caught in the fray, fighting fiercely for her life. Unfortunately, it proves to be insufficient, and soon Rosna finds herself encircled by a horde of adversaries, their weapons piercing her repeatedly. In an instant, her strength wanes, and she meets her tragic end. From a distance, Argyle witnesses her downfall, a grim reminder of the promise she made before when he had asked her to return Ciro. With a heavy heart, Argyle slips away from the chaos of the battle, making his way to the rendezvous point, where Rosna was to meet her master. There, he discovers a glowing orb and quickly realizes it is a life force orb. Grasping it tightly, he understands that she has been using it to siphon life force from the cell. Argyle then draws the energy from the orb into his own body, soon enveloped in the vibrant red aura it contains. As he absorbs the power, he reflects on his encounter with the Warden, knowing that dealing with troublesome matters like this will undoubtedly delay their meeting. As Argyle gazes intently at the orb, he calls out to the formidable figure behind it, Darkus. He knows Darkus can hear him, the very one who sent Saddle, who was connected to the Decapitator. With a hint of bravado, Argyle boasts about tampering with Saddle's link, wondering aloud if it has driven him to madness. Finally, he delivers a stern warning. Darkus must cease his pursuit, or he will come to regret it. On the other side, Darkus observes Argyle through another orb, dismissing him as a mere chatterbox. With a smug grin, he taunts Argyle, questioning whether he's afraid. Argyle stands his ground, boldly declaring that he fears nothing from someone as insignificant as Darkus. In a show of defiance, he crushes the orb in his hand, delivering a chilling warning. Just as he had cautioned Rosna, Darkus will meet his end if he continues to pursue him. With that stern message hanging in the air, Argyle shatters the orb into countless tiny fragments. A short while later, in cell number 6, 879, Vampire King Enduras, a Class 8 prisoner, relishes a moment of tranquility as he sips on a fine Cabernet Sauvignon hemoglobin. However, his peace is abruptly shattered when Darkus, the demon-worshipping Legion commander and fellow Class 8 inmate, barges in without warning. Enduras, visibly irritated, glares at him and threatens to transform him into a premium vintage wine. Darkus disregards the hostility in the air and boldly announces that he has an important proposal. Enduras' displeasure deepens as he retorts, calling Darkus a foolish oaf. Undeterred by the insult, Darkus presses on, insisting that the proposal serves Enduras' interests too, given their shared allegiance to the Void Constellation. He then gets straight to the point, requesting Enduras' help in capturing Argyle. Darkus reveals that his favorite disciple has been destroyed by Argyle, igniting a desire for revenge within him. However, Enduras, fully aware that Darkus is no saint himself and will ultimately consume his own disciples, swiftly rejects his plea. He warns Darkus that Argyle is a ticking time bomb, far too volatile to be controlled, and urges him to abandon his quest for vengeance. This refusal only fuels Darkus' fury, causing him to seethe with rage, even tearing the cloth stitched to his mouth in frustration. Darkus warns Enduras that he will come to regret his choice, declaring with a fierce roar that he will capture Argal on his own. Enduras, unfazed by the outburst, simply wishes him luck. As Darkus storms out, Enduras mutters under his breath, calling him an ignorant brat, before returning to his drink. He reflects on the futility of Darkus's ambition, knowing that anyone who has managed to rise in the ranks has learned to keep their ears to the ground. They inevitably discover just how terrifying the old man truly is. Despite numerous attempts by prisoners to capture him, no one quite understands how he has managed to survive for decades in a hellhole like Solitude, especially as a human. Enduras is astute and senses there must be a deeper reason behind his longevity. He's not foolish enough to seek out trouble or risk his life chasing after the impossible. Meanwhile, in cell 3498, the brutal fight has come to a close, leaving the surviving members of both circles to indulge in a chaotic feast on the fallen subordinates of Rosna. One of Beckham's men had declared that they could eat until they could eat no more. In the aftermath of the battle, each of the two opposing circles lost 20 members, while Rosna's group suffered even greater losses, with 30 casualties, including Rosna herself. Morgan's body is mercilessly torn apart, like a filet mignon. As she drinks the raw plasma, a subordinate approaches Beckham with news. The rest of Rosna's team has been captured and secured. Amid their gruesome feast, Morgan turns to Argyle, expressing her gratitude for his assistance in eliminating the arrogant Rosna. Argyle is revolted as he watches Beckham sip on a blood-like liquid. But Beckham insists it becomes enjoyable once you get used to it. Noticing Argyle's lack of appetite, Beckham inquires about it, to which Argyle simply replies that he has no hunger. Beckham can't help but admire Argyle's talent for planning and executing daring schemes, genuinely impressed by his audacity. He invites Argyle to join his circle, explaining his plan to unite the lower-class prisoners in order to overpower the mid-class prisoners during the upcoming release. Argyle immediately declines, insisting he's too old for power games, but offers to lend support from the sidelines. Morgan also attempts to recruit him into his own circle, but Argyle swiftly shuts him down without a second thought. As he rises to leave, he casually mentions that he has a child to babysit, leaving both Beckham and Morgan utterly stunned and momentarily speechless. 6 days later, as Sorrow prepares to delve into his inner self, he turns to Argyle and asks why he must undertake this journey. Argyle explains that understanding what his heart truly desires is crucial for Sorrow to determine his next steps. Once again, the exercise begins, and Sorrow is enveloped in darkness. He hears Argyle's voice urging him to walk forward continuously. This marks the 8th time he has delved into his inner self today. Though he struggles to understand the purpose behind this ritual, Sorrow complies. All he desires is for the old man to teach him how to fight, yet Argyle seems solely focused on his inner cultivation. As he journeys through his inner self, Sorrow is confronted by memories he'd rather forget, haunting reminders of how his family and home were shattered and the painful farewells to those he loved. He finds himself favoring physical pain over the emotional torment of these recollections. Amidst the darkness, he strives to steady his mind, convincing himself that Argyle must have a purpose behind it all. Argyle's voice cuts through Sorrow's thoughts, a reminder never to look down into the darkness. Choosing to trust him, Sorrow nods and presses on. Before long, he finds himself at the edge of a cliff. He calls out to Akel for guidance, but the old man urges him to keep moving forward. Fear grips Sorrow, and he protests, but Argyle's voice is unwavering. If you want to become strong, you must proceed. Despite his fear, Sorrow resolves to press on, driven by his desire to grow stronger and protect those he loves. He takes several steps forward, determined not to glance down, as Argyle urges him to stay focused, even as someone attempts to engage him in conversation. Suddenly, Sorrow loses track of Argyle's voice, and a chilling dread envelops him. Just a few meters from the edge of the cliff, he feels something shift beneath his feet. Suddenly, a voice rises from the swirling purple light below, its tone chilling and unsettling. It laments that Sorrow has not summoned it sooner. Conflicted and wary, Sorrow remains silent, refusing to engage. Yet the voice presses on, accusing him of selfishness and holding him accountable for the suffering of its people and the death that ensued. Moments later, a towering, three-eyed monster emerges from the blinding light below, its presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Sorrow gasps, struggling to breathe as pain grips him. Desperately, he cries out for it to stop. Summoning every ounce of courage, he finally meets the creature's gaze. In that instant, the monster lunges forward, intent on devouring him. Sorrow freezes, convinced his time is up, when suddenly a powerful hand seizes him, yanking him out of harm's way just in time. Back in reality, he takes a deep breath, steadying himself after the harrowing experience. Moments later, Argyle commends him for bravely confronting the darkness within. Sorrow realizes that his body has grown stronger and more imposing. Recognizing this transformation, Argyle seizes the moment to help Sorrow fulfill his heart's desire. He challenges him to a fight, eager to teach him the art of combat. Before Sorrow can voice his confusion, Argyle launches an unexpected attack. Quick on his feet, Sorrow manages to dodge the blow, ready to face whatever comes next. Sorrow is elated that he successfully dodged the old man's strike, but his thrill is short-lived as Argyle's fist crashes into his face, followed by another blow that knocks the wind out of him. Gritting his teeth, Sorrow transforms and retaliates with a swift attack. Argyle merely smirks, advising him that to attain true strength, he must learn to trust his wild instincts. With a powerful strike, Argyle slams Sorrow into the ground, acknowledging the impressive strength behind his attacks, but noting that his movements remain far too clumsy. Undeterred, Sorrow presses on, fighting with unwavering determination. Yet despite his relentless efforts, none of his strikes find their mark against Argyle. Sensing his struggle, Argyle offers a piece of advice. Stop overthinking every move. Trust your instincts. Taking the advice to heart, Sorrow shifts his mindset, and gradually, his attacks become sharper and more focused. Argyle notices the change almost instantly and offers his praise. He observes that Sorrow's strikes are no longer concentrated in one area. Instead, they are now spread out, targeting vulnerable points across his body, even his fingers. Argyle observes that Sorrow is finally beginning to trust his intuition and praises him for adapting so swiftly. In a sudden move, he delivers a powerful jab to Sorrow, demonstrating the second method for skilled combat. With lightning speed, Argyle unleashes a flurry of strikes, leaving Sorrow scrambling to defend himself. But Argyle's movements are too rapid, overwhelming Sorrow at every turn. Argyle insists that Sorrow must learn to take a hit. Without allowing him a moment's respite, he continues to strike, emphasizing the vast difference between those who have faced suffering and those who have yet to endure it. The relentless barrage intensifies, each blow landing with increasing weight, until finally, Sorrow collapses, unconscious. As Argyle gazes at Sorrow sprawled on the floor, a flicker of doubt crosses his mind. As he pushed the boy too far this time, deciding to postpone the third lesson, he takes a moment to assess Sorrow's progress. Argyle can't help but marvel at how much the boy has grown through their combat training. His talent far surpasses Argyle's expectations. Watching Sorrow lie unconscious, Argyle feels a surge of anticipation for the future. How much further could this young warrior develop? He can't wait to find out. As Sorrow sleeps, he finds himself lost in dreams of his joyful childhood, filled with memories of his mother and father. Yet one dream casts a shadow over his happiness. He feels a deep loneliness as he watches his father shower affection on his older brother. In that moment, Sorrow's heart aches, convincing himself that his father never loved him and cruelly left him in solitude. Despite his struggles with these feelings, tears begin to fall as he yearns for his father's presence, longing for a connection that seems forever out of reach. He wakens from the dream, tears glistening in his eyes. Argyle observes that Sorrow's recovery is swift, a benefit of being a werewolf. As Sorrow takes in his unfamiliar surroundings, he turns to Argyle for answers. Argyle explains that they are on the rooftop of a building, hidden away inside a cell. He urges Sorrow to focus his gaze and look for some prisoners in the distance. Sorrow squints ahead, but the figures remain elusive, obscured by the distance. He begins to voice his complaint but halts mid-sentence as his supersight activates, revealing a group of prisoners peacefully sleeping. Confused, he turns to Argyle for answers. "Why are they sleeping?" he asks. Argyle surprises him with the revelation that it's time for rest, now that he is no longer bound by the no-standing rule. "How does it feel to finally overcome that restriction?" Argyle inquires, a hint of curiosity in his tone. He explains that the no-standing rule doesn't apply to those who have confronted the darkness within themselves. Sorrow is taken aback. Like the old man, he now possesses the strength to defy the prison's regulations. Argyle watches him with satisfaction, noting that the merchandise is growing faster than anticipated. He plans to trade it soon for drugs that will help sustain his body. Argyle realized he had pushed his body beyond its limits for far too long, leaving him weakened. After hiding away for 60 years, he had finally decided it was time to end his seclusion. reflecting on his recent conquests. Necromancer Saddle, Whipwoman Rosna, and demon worshipper leader Darkus Argyll acknowledges that it was only a matter of time before their paths crossed. After all, he had been avoiding others for far too long. Now, he believes it's time to eliminate those who pose a threat. Meanwhile, in the dim confines of the cell, the prisoners ready themselves for their impending escape. One of the seasoned inmates cautions the newcomers to remain vigilant. The exact moment of their release remains uncertain, and vigilance could mean the difference between freedom and failure. Another man cautions them against carrying heavy baggage, warning that it could deplete their fuel during their journey. Morgan observes closely, reflecting on how he has endured in solitude for 3 years, honing his instincts. Today, his intuition whispers that the release is imminent. He slings his bag over his shoulder, feeling as prepared as he can be, and hopes to navigate the release with skill and finesse. From the rooftop, Sorrow observes the flurry of activity below as everyone busily packs their belongings. Curious, he turns to Argyll and inquires about the commotion. Argyll informs him that it's release day. Confused, Sorrow asks for clarification. With a somber tone, Argyll explains that this system is meant to instill a sense of anticipation in the prisoners, as many of them will face extermination today. Sorrow is overwhelmed with questions, his mind racing as the system materializes before him, just as it does during roll call. Argyll informs him that the release might commence sooner than anticipated. Almost immediately, the system announces that the release begins now. As expected, a golden light envelops them, teleporting everyone to the lower corridors. The first-timers stand in stunned silence, realizing that the release has teleported them out of their cells. Argyll steps forward, clarifying that the system forcibly ejects all prisoners into the corridors, regardless of their class. He urges them to return to their cells quickly, warning that the corridors are teeming with dangerous beasts and high-class prisoners. Before Argyll can finish his sentence, the very dangers he was warning about appear, leaving Sorrow in stunned disbelief. They turn to face a horde of grotesque green goblins charging towards them in a frenzied rush. Sorrow's shock and terror grow as he takes in their overwhelming numbers, but Argyll remains unfazed. With a casual demeanor, he urges Sorrow to brace himself, reminding him that it's time to put their training to the test in the heat of real combat. As a horde of snarling, ugly green goblins charged toward them, Argyll stood out as the only one genuinely excited by the chaos. The members of Morgan and Beckham's circle quickly recognized that their escape route was cut off, leaving them with no choice but to fight their way through the goblin swarm. Sorrow transformed into his werewolf form, bracing himself for the impending battle as the goblins closed in around them. Argyll brandishes his favorite weapon, urging his companion to fight with desperate determination if he wishes to survive. Moments later, a fierce and chaotic battle erupts in the corridor, pitting the goblins against the prisoners. Sorrow, fueled by primal instincts, goes wild, tearing into the goblins with his claws. Each movement is a testament to Argyll's teachings, urging him to trust his instincts. Following that advice to survive at all costs, he rips through them with brutal efficiency, as if they were nothing more than slabs of meat. For a brief, terrifying moment, Sorrow feels invincible, but that feeling shatters when he spots a tiny goblin child cowering in the corner. In that instant of hesitation, he almost pays the ultimate price, realizing too late that he's walked into an ambush. 2 other goblins spring from the shadows, seizing him from behind. As one of them plunges a dagger into his side, the goblin child grins wickedly, joining in the attack with a gleeful stab of his own. Fatally wounded, Sorrow braces himself for the worst. But just in time, Argyll intervenes, slicing through the attackers and saving his life. Once the danger has passed, Argyll imparts another crucial lesson. Sorrow must learn to embrace the reality of killing and never hesitate when the moment calls for it. As Sorrow inspects his wound, Argyll presses on, emphasizing that even a moment of hesitation could cost him his life. In this harsh, solitary world, it's kill or be killed. He urges Sorrow to suppress his emotions, declaring them a liability. Survival demands ruthless action. Just as they are about to delve deeper into this grim lesson, a new wave of goblins rushes toward them. Without a second thought, Sorrow leaps into action, ready to fight. As Argyll strikes, his voice pierces through the chaos, urging him not to dwell on their numbers, but to assess their strength. He reminds them that combat abilities can vary significantly, even among prisoners of the same class. To him, goblins are so weak and insignificant that they don't even merit a class designation. Meanwhile, Morgan and Beckham are relishing the battle, effortlessly slicing through the goblins with ease. After dispatching the horde of goblins, the group pauses, faced with two diverging paths. Argyll turns to his companions, inquiring which route they should choose. Morgan suggests the wider path, reasoning that it would be easier to prepare for any potential ambushes. However, Beckham counters, pointing out that a broader path could attract more monsters. He argues that the narrow path might allow them to sidestep greater dangers lurking ahead. Morgan argues passionately, insisting that strong monsters guard narrow spaces. Meanwhile, Argyll observes their bickering in silence, noting their debate over who has more experience in navigating corridors. Finally, Argyll interjects, stating that both of them are mistaken. He turns to Sorrow and urges him to follow as he suddenly takes off running. Sorrow, caught off guard, struggles to comprehend the request as Argyll sprints ahead. Without hesitation, Sorrow trails closely behind him. Moments later, Morgan and Beckham cease their argument, realizing that Argyll has vanished. After running for a while, Sorrow grows tired and calls out for the old man to wait. He then inquires why they separated from the group, suggesting that it might be safer to stick together in larger numbers. However, Argyll shakes his head, explaining that remaining in a group makes them easier targets. Argyll suggests that searching for cells separately is their best chance for survival. He believes Beckham and Morgan are foolish to stick together, especially while dragging their entire crew along. He finds their newfound camaraderie quite peculiar. Sorrow agrees, noting that Beckham and Morgan were once at each other's throats. Argyll adds that he didn't see fear in their faces, a crucial emotion one must never forget in Solitude. Sorrow senses something off and questions whether there's a reason behind their strange behavior, but Argyll is just as clueless. Suddenly, they hear footsteps approaching. It's Beckham and his crew catching up to them. Beckham's gaze is unsettling as he fixes his eyes on them, demanding to know why they left so suddenly. Argyll seizes the moment to inquire about Morgan. Beckham replies coolly, explaining that they had to part ways because they simply couldn't see eye to eye. He then invites Argyll and Cyril to join him as they head back to the cell. Frustrated with Beckham's suspicious demeanor, Argyll snaps, urging him to abandon the terrible act. He reveals that he saw through Beckham's true identity the moment they first shared a meal, particularly noting how effortlessly he drank blood earlier. Argyll inquires if Beckham serves the vampire king, Indorus. A wicked grin spreads across Beckham's face as he reveals his fangs and invites Argyll to follow him quietly. It seems Indorus had instructed Beckham to escort Argyll with respect. However, Argyll bluntly refuses, asserting that if Indorus wishes to meet him, he should come directly. Beckham's grin widens, his fangs glinting as he calls Argyll an insolent old geezer. Determined not to be disrespected, Beckham confidently unsheathes his sword, threatening to end Cyril's life with a smug grin, casually boasting that he wouldn't mind breaking a few of his bones in the process. Sorrow, taken aback, watches in horror as Beckham and his goons morph into terrifying vampires. Suddenly, it all clicks into place. The reason he had sensed blood when they first met was that Beckham had been a vampire in disguise all along. As the vampires ready themselves for an assault, Sorrow undergoes a dramatic transformation into his werewolf form. Beckham, taken aback by this unexpected change, realizes that this is precisely why Argyll kept Sorrow close. Yet, undeterred, he stands his ground. Argyll challenges Beckham, asking if Sorrow resembles an ordinary werewolf. It turns out that Sorrow's brother, Lucas, is indeed a werewolf, but Sorrow himself is a purebred lycanthrope, setting him apart from the typical werewolf due to his unique bloodline. As Argyll explains the fundamentals, Sorrow undergoes yet another transformation. Witnessing this terrifying display of growth, Argyll is struck by Sorrow's remarkable talent and the astonishing speed of his development, even without any external stimulation. With his weapon in hand, Argyll instructs Sorrow to confront Beckham while he takes care of the minions. Without hesitation, Sorrow leaps forward and Beckham follows suit, brimming with overconfidence. He believes Sorrow is no match for him. However, Beckham soon faces a harsh reality check as Sorrow moves with blinding speed, effortlessly dodging his attacks. Frustration boils within Beckham, and he hurls curses at Sorrow, finally realizing just how gravely he underestimated his opponent. Argyll effortlessly slices through the mindless minions. To divert their attention, he slashes his hands, letting his blood sprinkle into the air. Like moths drawn to a flame, the foolish creatures are captivated by the scent, rushing toward it like a pack of hungry lions, even shoving one another aside in their eagerness to taste the sweet blood. Realizing they've walked right into his trap, Argyll swiftly eliminates them without hesitation, leaving Beckham to watch in regret. Shaken, Beckham returns to his battle with Sorrow, but the overwhelming scent of Argyll's blood lingers in the air. He begins to understand. This must be why their leader was so intent on capturing him. Beckham is captivated by the enticing aroma, vowing to claim a piece of it for himself after dealing with sorrow. Impatience courses through him as he lunges forward, blade in hand. After a tense struggle, he finally lands a hit on Sorrow's arm, a rush of triumph surging through him. But his exhilaration quickly turns to disbelief as he watches Sorrow's arm begin to reattach itself, leaving Beckham to question his life choices in the face of this unsettling reality. Sorrow, filled with rage, delivers a forceful punch, but Beckham remains unfazed. He continues to smirk, taunting Sorrow when suddenly, to his shock, Argyll strikes from behind. Beckham is left in disbelief. As his life flashes before his eyes, he grapples with the realization that Argyll has already dispatched all 80 of his minions. He had underestimated Argyll, assuming he would be too preoccupied with the others to pose a threat. In his final moments, Beckham comes to a stark realization. He was never a match for the old man. After dispatching Beckham, Argyll turns to Sorrow, commending him for his remarkable progress. Just 3 weeks ago, during the battle against the fire-breathing dragons in Rosna, Sorrow was hardly more than a mutt. But now, he stands transformed, stronger, faster, and larger than ever before. Sorrow is exhilarated. He has finally experienced the thrill of battle as he shifts back into his human form. Argyll reminds him that there's still room for improvement. Realizing how much time they've lost, Argyll urges him to hurry back to their cell. In a moment of urgency, Sorrow grabs a shirt from one of the fallen, declaring that he needs to freshen up quickly. Meanwhile, 3 women dressed as maids approach Endora's, apologizing for their tardiness due to the recent release. He simply nods, instructing them to get back to work. Suddenly, he senses the severed connection between himself and Beckham, a stark reminder that Beckham didn't heed his warnings, and now Argyll has taken him down. Endora's laments the inability to communicate telepathically due to the ongoing release. He vows to be more mindful of etiquette when dealing with Argyll, and looks forward to sharing a cup of tea in the future. Meanwhile, in a distant corridor, 3 cloaked figures catch their breath after vanquishing a massive ogre. As they shed their cloaks, Holuk, Menlock, and Lucas Sorrow's brother emerge, all classified as Class 2 prisoners. Menlock proposes they grill some ogre meat, and Lucas readily agrees. He suggests they enjoy a meal now and pack a bit for the road, emphasizing that returning to their cell remains their top priority. Moments later, they finish their meal and prepare to leave, ready for whatever lies ahead. As Lucas departs, a wave of concern washes over him for Sorrow. He hopes fervently that his brother is with Argyll. With a steely resolve, he vows to survive and reunite with him. Meanwhile, Sorrow is locked in a fierce struggle against a group of relentless prisoners. Breathing heavily, he turns to Argyll, questioning, "Who are these people? Why do they keep attacking us?" Argyll reveals that they are black magic users affiliated with a demon-worshipping organization, and they're after him. Sorrow, puzzled, asks why. Argyll explains that he had a falling out with their leader. Once he returns to his human form, he urges Sorrow to hurry back, warning that they must avoid the encroaching darkness. He reveals that he commands hundreds of mid-class prisoners, and facing them could prove to be quite troublesome. As they prepare to leave, an unsettling presence looms ahead of Argyll and Sorrow. Argyll warns Sorrow that it's a ghost named Goose. Suddenly, a grotesque giant, drooling and menacing, materializes before them. Argyll urges Sorrow to confront it, but Sorrow, paralyzed by fear, finds the creature far too intimidating. Sensing his hesitation, Argyll reassures him, insisting that despite Goose's strength, this challenge is well within Sorrow's capabilities. Still grappling with uncertainty, Sorrow transforms and charges ahead, placing his faith in Argyll's words. He is taken aback when Argyll effortlessly lands a punch on the monster's face, igniting a flicker of hope within him. However, the monster quickly retaliates, delivering a powerful blow that sends Sorrow crashing to the ground, leaving him momentarily dazed. Argyll observes them in silence, contemplating that one reason prisoners perish in the corridors upon encountering ghosts is their lack of combat skills. However, the more significant factor is the terrifying aura that ghosts emit. It seems that all ghosts are Class 4 or higher, which is why prisoners of lower classes are overwhelmed by fear and ultimately destroyed. However, this doesn't account for those who have confronted their own inner darkness, like Sorrow. As Sorrow relentlessly attacks Goose, he soon finds himself overwhelmed. Argyll observes that Sorrow simply lacks the innate ability to truly defeat the monster. Defeated, Sorrow sinks to the ground, his expression a portrait of despair. Suddenly, blue lights illuminate the room, and icicles materialize out of thin air, heralding the arrival of another presence. As the monstrous figure lunges toward Argyll, he shouts for his ally to strike. In response, his friend Alice unleashes her ice ability, freezing the creature in place. This is precisely the kind of inherent power Argyll had been referring to. After freezing Goose, Alice turns to Argyle and inquires about his time during the release. He mentions encountering some troublesome vermin, but assures her that he managed to handle them. Curious, he asks about her sister. Alice replies that she passed along his regards, and her sister was quite pleased to hear from him. With a flick of her wrist, Alice effortlessly splits the frozen monster in two. From the shadows, Sorrow watches in astonishment, curious about the mysterious girl who defeated the ghost with a single blow. He marvels at her ability to conjure ice from thin air and notes her apparent closeness to Argyle. Once the chaos settles, Sorrow turns to her, gratitude in his voice as he thanks her for saving him. However, Alice brushes him off, her focus solely on Argyle as she asks for his help in locating her cell. As she walks away, cradling Argyle in her arms, Sorrow is left behind, feeling a pang of exclusion. Doubts creep into his mind. Does she not like him? Meanwhile, in a distant corridor, Solverin, a Class V demon worshipper and black magic swordsman, searches for something with her steel-faced minions in tow. Frustration bubbles within her as she vents about her inept partner, Saddle. In a fit of irritation, she strikes him across the face, labeling him nothing but trash. She inquires about the severed connection with Decapitator, a result of Argyle's actions. Solverin chides him, suggesting he should have chosen self-destruction over succumbing to madness. Though she longs to be rid of him, her pairing with him under Darkus's orders binds her. Instead, she resolves to focus on the reward awaiting her upon their success. Suddenly, a chill runs through her as she realizes that a significant number of her Lynx subordinates have just been wiped out. She had instructed them to send a signal if they encountered the old man, but the moment they did, the connection was cut because they had been killed. Solverin's heart raced with excitement as she finally spotted Argyle. She gestured for her team to follow, urgency lacing her voice. "Hurry!" she urged, determined to ensure that no one else would steal her moment. She was ready to take him down first. Meanwhile, after dispatching Solverin's henchmen, Alice turns to Argyle, noting that she has encountered an unusual number of black magic users today. She recounts her experience of stumbling upon a swarm of them on her way, mentioning how they gathered in groups during the release. As their conversation unfolds, Sorrow lingers in the shadows, observing them intently and pondering Alice's strength and her connection to the old man. He wonders if he can become like her, and with a surge of courage, he approaches her. "What's your relationship with Argyle?" he asks, curiosity tinged with admiration. "And how did you become so powerful?" Alice turns to meet his anxious gaze, contemplating the possibility of rivalry brewing from jealousy over the old man's attention. A flicker of recognition crosses her mind. She remembers a time when she, too, longed for Argyle's approval. However, she has come to realize that he treats everyone equally. Alice then responds to Sorrow, recounting how she met Argyle 7 years ago when she arrived in Solitude with her sister. They had been falsely accused of their parents' deaths. Just as they were on the brink of despair in the harsh reality of Solitude, Argyle appeared like a knight in shining armor, coming to their rescue and guiding them to the arena. Sorrow, intrigued by this mysterious place, asked about it, but Alice brushed off his question. Suddenly, she fell silent, sensing danger lurking nearby. With a swift glance, she called out to Argyle, who immediately grasped the urgency of her warning. Sorrow quickly realizes the truth, a familiar sensation echoing the aura he had sensed from the monster, Goose. Just then, Solverin and her henchmen confront them. With a commanding presence, she instructs her minions to capture Argyle, and they spring into action, unleashing their dark magic. Alice urges Argyle to sit back and relax, determined to handle the situation on her own. She wants to demonstrate just how much she has grown. As the black magic users unleash a torrent of fiery magic at her, Alice remains calm. With a single, precise blast, she counters their attack, scattering them effortlessly. Argyle watches in awe, impressed by his protégé's display of power and control. He marvels at how quickly time has flown by. It feels like just yesterday when he first encountered the two sisters, crying and clinging to each other for comfort. Meanwhile, Alice effortlessly dominates the battlefield, her every move a testament to her growth. Argyle can't help but mutter to himself, acknowledging how impressively she has evolved, each motion reflecting her hard-earned progress. To showcase her newfound power, Alice transforms into her stunning snowflower armor. The breathtaking transformation leaves even the black magic users momentarily speechless. As she undergoes this metamorphosis, a question lingers in her mind. Why did Argyle save them? But in that moment, it hardly matters. Her focus sharpens on the battle ahead and the opportunity to impress Argyle. Alice's excitement swells as she senses more opponents closing in. This is the perfect moment to showcase her skills and impress Argyll. Meanwhile, Cyro watches in awe, captivated by her transformation and the swirling ice that surrounds her. Curiosity getting the better of him, he turns to Argyll and asks about her ability. Argyll explains that she wields the power to manipulate ice, a unique ability that allows her to control elemental attributes. He continues by explaining that there are 7 attributes: light, dark, lightning, wind, fire, water, and earth. Alice has developed her water attribute, while the monster Cyro encountered earlier possessed the dark attribute. This revelation only deepens Cyro's curiosity, leaving him eager to learn more. Suddenly, the situation becomes even more dire than Argyll anticipated as the Decapitator enters the fray. While still battling the smaller foes, Alice is taken aback by the appearance of the 2 massive headcutters. She can't help but wonder how they were summoned, as Solitude monsters are notoriously difficult to call forth. It takes a unique set of skills, much like those possessed by the renowned puppeteer Saddle. In that moment, Argyll comes to a startling realization. Saddle is the one orchestrating events from the shadows. Despite feeling somewhat diminished after their last battle, he knows his abilities remain intact. He swiftly instructs Cyro to stand in front of him. Confused, Cyro hesitates and asks, "Why?" Argyll acknowledges the daunting challenge ahead, noting that battling the black magic users alongside 2 decapitators might be overwhelming. To assist Cyro, he decides to establish a link with him. With a focused determination, Argyll clasps his hands together above Cyro's head. After a series of deliberate movements, a radiant light envelops them as he initiates the connection. This linking process resembles telepathy, but Argyll knows he can only sustain it for about 10 minutes. As the linking process unfolds, Cyro is taken aback to discover he can hear Argyll's voice resonating in his mind. Just as they begin to grasp this connection, one of the decapitators lunges at them with ferocity. Through their telepathic link, Argyll warns Cyro that his stamina may not hold out, and he could risk fainting. He urges Cyro to seize this moment to learn. Suddenly, they find themselves thrust into a fierce battle against one of the decapitators, their lives hanging in the balance. As Cyro battles, he finds himself questioning what he is meant to learn from this experience. Through their connection, he discovers that Argyll intends to forcibly draw out his attribute, even though it feels premature. Taken aback, Cyro momentarily loses focus, but Argyll's urgent voice cuts through the haze, instructing him to duck left. Unfortunately, he doesn't react quickly enough, and while he takes a hit, at least his head remains intact. No decapitation today. As Cyro confronts one decapitator, Alice is engaged in a fierce battle with another. With each strike, it's clear that the decapitator is no match for her skill. However, her confidence wavers when she spots more black magic users gathering in the distance, a development that could complicate the fight ahead. Determined to end things swiftly by taking down Decapitator's controller, Alice finds herself hindered by the swarm of black magic users surrounding her. Realizing she must first deal with the vermin, she shifts her focus and begins to eliminate them with precision. Her goal is clear. Clear the path to Saddle and confront Decapitator without any distractions. Cyro continues to dodge Decapitator's relentless attacks, but suddenly halts as a purple light begins to emanate from the weapon. Intrigued, he freezes in place, recognizing that he can sense this mysterious energy both within Decapitator and within himself. As he delves deeper into this sensation, he discovers he can perceive the intent behind Decapitator's strikes, their trajectory, and direction and insight that could change the tide of battle. With an uncanny foresight, Cyro effortlessly dodges every attack aimed at him, as if anticipating them before they even land. In this moment, he seems invincible, gracefully evading the Decapitator's strikes. Argyll observes this remarkable skill and realizes that Cyro's affinity lies with the wind, granting him exceptional recognition and sensing abilities across a vast range. As Cyro continues to wield his newfound ability against Decapitator, Argyll remarks that it suits him perfectly. Meanwhile, Solitude grows increasingly weary of the unfolding situation. Despite facing 2 formidable monsters and a swarm of lesser foes, Alice remains an unstoppable force. Solitude has heard whispers of Alice's extraordinary skills and tales of her sister, but this is her first time witnessing Alice's prowess firsthand. Despite Darkus's warning that the mission could be troublesome, she never anticipated it would be this chaotic. Determined to help, she suddenly freezes as she realizes Argyll, who had been fighting just moments ago, has vanished. Panic sets in as she frantically scans the chaotic battlefield for him, her heart racing with the unsettling thought that he might have fled. Without warning, Argyll launches a stealthy attack from behind. As she stumbles, nearly losing her balance, Solverin swiftly steadies her, preventing a fall. Grateful, she praises him for his sneakiness, admitting she hadn't sensed his approach until he was almost upon her. With determination, Solverin readies herself for battle, summoning her powerful ability, Suffering Armor, which envelops her like a shadowy ninja. As Argyll begins his transformation, he seizes the moment to pursue Saddle. However, Solverin swiftly intervenes, blocking his attack. With a knowing smile, she reveals that she anticipated his move. Argyll, taken aback, admires her ability to predict his actions and withstand his strike. Solverin, equally impressed by his strength, inquires about Darkus's obsession with him. Argyll admits he's just as confused and encourages her to ask him directly. Intrigued by him, Solverin draws her sword, a hint of regret in her voice as she reflects on her decision to take the mission. She muses that she should have abandoned her black magic training long ago, opting instead to explore the world and meet fascinating people like Argyll. As he readies himself for a fight, Argyll warns her, "I wouldn't recommend the life of a wanderer." Ciro, meanwhile, finds himself locked in a fierce battle with one of the decapitators. Despite the relentless onslaught of attacks, he skillfully dodges each one, thanks to his wind attribute. As the tide of battle shifts, Ciro gains the upper hand, landing several swift blows against the decapitator, his claws tearing into its flesh. However, after delivering a few more strikes, he realizes with growing concern that the creature's body is far sturdier than he anticipated. He can easily dodge its attacks, but inflicting damage is another story. Pausing to strategize his next move, he suddenly hears Argyll's voice in his head. "Don't overdo it," Argyll warns. Decapitator's dark attribute renders your current abilities ineffective. Feeling his abilities fall short, Ciro grapples with uncertainty about what to do next. Argyll steps in, instructing him to distract the monster and keep it away from Alice. "Your job is to dodge its attacks and hold it back while I take care of the rest," Argyll emphasizes. With a newfound sense of purpose, Ciro springs into action, determined to keep the decapitator at bay and protect Alice at all costs. Meanwhile, Argyll continues to engage in a fierce battle with Solverin, who quickly realizes that she is no match for this formidable opponent. She watches in awe as Argyll, despite his age, moves with astonishing speed. Could he be an Aura Knight? After all, knights trained in mana can age more slowly and possess superhuman strength. Yet, as she considers this, she dismisses the idea. She can't sense any mana radiating from him. As their battle rages on, Solverin smirks at Argyll, mocking his small weapon and calling it a mere kebab skewer. With a confident flourish, she raises her formidable sword, laughing as she declares that even a cat could scratch her armor better than his so-called princess skewer. But before her taunt can fully sink in, Argyll surprises her by using that very skewer to shatter her Excalibur sword, slicing through her armor as effortlessly as cutting through a kebab. Solverin stands in shock, unable to comprehend how her dark magic armor was shredded by nothing more than a pink skewer. Doubts swirl in her mind. Could Argyll also wield the dark attribute? After losing an arm in the fierce battle, she attempts to sense any trace of darkness within him, but finds nothing. This only deepens her suspicion that his peculiar weapon is anything but ordinary. Determined not to surrender, she repairs her arm, reinforces her armor, and vows to keep her distance in battle. The transformation also revitalizes her sword, and she swiftly launches an assault on Argyll while staying out of his reach. As she unleashes her feeble ranged attacks, Solverin can hardly believe that a legendary black magic swordswoman has been driven to such desperation by an old man. As Solverin watches Argyll effortlessly evade her attacks, a nagging question about his origins creeps into her mind. Suddenly, she freezes, a chilling wave of terror washing over her as his presence intensifies, exuding a horrifying aura that rattles her to her very core. Overwhelmed by fear, Solverin resolves to take the ultimate risk, even if it means sacrificing herself to bring Argyll down. She summons a forbidden dark magic, one that grows stronger with each sacrifice. To amplify the spell, she chooses Saddle's life as the offering. Though a part of her fears that ghosts will lose their power once their controller is gone, that concern fades away. In mere moments, she realizes she may soon become nothing more than a lifeless shell herself. As soon as Saddle falls, the two decapitators drop lifelessly to the ground, leaving only Ciro and Alice. A wave of relief washes over him. He finally feels safe. Meanwhile, the sacrifice triggers a surge in Solverin's power. From a distance, Alice watches anxiously, hoping for Argyll's victory, whispering a silent plea for him to stay safe. At the height of her power, Solverin harnesses the surrounding darkness, commanding it to obliterate her chosen foe Argyll. With a pointed finger, she unleashes a torrent of dark purple flames that surge toward him, culminating in a devastating explosion. A satisfied smile crosses her face as she revels in the moment, secretly hoping the old man has been thoroughly charred. To her astonishment, Argyll emerges unscathed, strange blue lines glowing across his face. He praises her impressive talent, but cautions that she is foolishly reckless for offering her soul to demons through such perilous black magic. Undeterred by his words, Solverin unleashes another wave of attacks, even as Argyll warns her that, due to the black magic, her soul will soon become sustenance for the Void constellation. Growing weary of her desperate mosquito-like assaults, Argyll finally resolves to end the fight. As his imposing figure looms behind her, Solverin collapses to her knees in utter despair. She struggles to comprehend how Argyll remains impervious to all her dark magic. With her countless questions left unanswered, Argyll raises his weapon and, with a swift motion, separates her head from her armored body. As the battle concludes, Argyll rushes to check on Sorrow and Alice, ensuring they are safe. Concerned, Alice asks if he is all right, and he reassures her that he is fine. However, he quickly realizes that she is not in the best condition. Sorrow, now back in his human form, is drenched in sweat and visibly exhausted from all the frantic movement. Argyll urges them to leave immediately, fearing that another troublesome situation could arise at any moment. Alice nods in agreement, fully supporting Sorrow as they prepare for their move. As they step outside, a figure lurking in the shadows observes them intently, clearly impressed by Argyll. When Alice notices the strange man and his group advancing, her instincts kick in, and she readies herself for a confrontation. However, Argyll remains composed, gently urging her to relax. "Don't worry," he assures her. "They're not here to cause any trouble." He steps forward to greet the man named Iobi, and from their conversation, Alice quickly discerns that they are old acquaintances. As the two engage in dialogue, she observes their attire, gradually realizing that they are fanatics devoted to the 11 constellation symbols of love, faith, and hope. Ironically, this group claims to purify through the massacre of any heretics. Alice finds their hypocrisy infuriating, especially when she sees Aobe smiling like a saint. She can't help but wonder how many prisoners he has killed under the pretense of peace. With that same gentle smile, Aobe turns to Argyll and informs him that he has been cleansing the filthy demon worshippers since the day he was released. Argyll responds that he has already cleared this area, and Iobi sincerely thanks him for his assistance. Alice is taken aback when Iobi bows deeply to Argyll, particularly given that Iobi is a Class 6 prisoner. It suddenly hits her. Argyll's connections and influence extend far beyond what she ever imagined. Moments later, Iobi's subordinates quietly weave restorative magic, revitalizing both Sorrow and Alice. With a warm smile, Iobi explains that this is his way of expressing gratitude for their help in cleansing the prison of vermin. He then extends the same blessing to Argyll, but the old man quickly declines, insisting that such magic has never had any effect on him. Exhausted, Argyll insists they must return quickly, leading Alice and Sorrow away as Iobi respectfully bids them farewell. As they walk off, Iobi whispers that Argyll is someone who must survive. Argyll brushes off the concern, urging him not to meddle in others' lives. In response, Iobi softly declares that he wouldn't mind dying as long as Argyll lives, promising to come to his aid whenever needed. As Argyll and his companions advance, Iobi and his followers suddenly drop to their knees in fervent prayer. Their words echo a deep, unsettling devotion to Argyll, revealing that they do not simply follow him. They revere him as a savior, willing to offer even their bodies as sacrifices. On their way back, Alice attempts to catch Argyll's attention, but he remains unresponsive, lost in his thoughts. Noticing his somber demeanor, she attempts to inquire about what's bothering him, but he remains silent. Shifting the conversation, Sorrow asks Alice about the relationship between Argyll and Iobi. Alice replies that she only spent a year with Argyll after arriving in Solitude, so she isn't well acquainted with many of his close connections. Alice struggles to reconcile Argyll's close connection with a fanatic, especially since he once confided in her that he despises those who believe in constellations. Curiously, Sorrow asks her if believing in a higher power is inherently wrong. Alice responds thoughtfully, clarifying that it's not necessarily a bad thing. She elaborates that these higher beings typically do not intervene directly in the affairs of mortals. They appoint representatives, but sometimes those in power use it to either protect the weak or bully them. Moments later, they arrive at Alice's cell, 5 to 251, where she expresses her gratitude to Argyll for successfully escorting her. Alice is in awe. No matter how many times she witnesses it, she is still amazed by Argyll's uncanny ability to navigate the labyrinthine corridors. She then tells him that she'll try to visit often, but Argyll reassures her not to worry about it. Alice laughs lightly, promising to drop by again. As she hugs him tightly, she urges him to stay safe. In return, Argyll reminds her to take care of herself. As Alice watches them depart, she reflects on the perilous corridors ahead. For Argyll, they represent a path to freedom, but for others, they are a haunting maze where death lurks at every turn. After walking for a while, Saro suddenly recognizes a familiar cell number. A wave of relief washes over him as he realizes it's their own. At long last, after an entire day following their release, the two return to their cell, only to find it completely empty. 5 days pass, yet nothing changes. No prisoner ever returns, and the silence lingers. Saro sits alone in a corner of the desolate prison, meditating as Argyll does, reflecting on the countless changes he has undergone in such a brief span of time. He recalls a time when he would hide behind his brother, trembling with fear. Each battle brought hesitation, but now he stands as a full-fledged lycanthrope, capable of killing without a second thought. Saro realizes that it's not just his appearance that has transformed. His mind has evolved as well. He finds himself reflecting more deeply, and at times, a wave of shame washes over him as he remembers his former weakness. From a distance, Argyll observes in silence, feeling Saro's spirit begin to awaken. Suddenly, Saro sits up, alert, and remarks that a strange scent is approaching. Argyll has already deduced that it's Morgan. Saro, taken aback, notes that this smell is nothing like Morgan's familiar scent. Argyll explains that Morgan must have tapped into his true power to survive in the corridors, and the unusual odor is a result of some peculiar pills. He adds that, much like Beckham, Morgan has been concealing his true identity from the very beginning. Growing serious, Argyll asks if Saro knows what to do once they arrive. Saro responds with unwavering determination, vowing not to hesitate any longer. In solitude, he realizes it's a matter of either destroying them or being taken out himself. Before long, Morgan and his crew arrive at the door, where Morgan greets the old man with an exaggerated enthusiasm. Yet, an unsettling shadow lingers on his face, as he claims to be delighted to see Argyll once more. Suddenly, Saro descends from above in his beast form, launching a surprise attack on Morgan. Annoyed, he marvels at how much Saro has changed in just a few days. Still pretending to be oblivious, he asks Argyll to stop Saro. Instead, Argyll pulls out his weapon, urging him to drop the act. He then reveals that, just like Beckham, Morgan attempted to lure them in with the intent of turning them into ingredients for his pills. Realizing he had been discovered, Morgan drops the pretense and transforms into a fearsome red-eyed demon. He sneers at Argyll, taunting him about when he figured it out, but Argyll, unfazed, brandishes his weapon. In an instant, he decimates Morgan's entire crew and delivers a fatal blow to Morgan himself. Argyll warns him that Darkus, Enduras, and the Mafia King whom Morgan serves have all made a grave mistake by targeting him. He asserts that no one can capture him, especially when the big bosses wish to see him. Instead of sending their lackeys, they should come to him in person. With Morgan already losing a significant amount of blood, Argyll makes a swift decision to help him meet his end more quickly by severing his head in one clean motion. Meanwhile, in the control room, prison warden Shrioson is on the line with the master of Solitude, Lord Kraisman. After delivering his routine report, Shrioson inquires if Kraisman has had a chance to review the latest updates on Argyll. Kraisman confirms the grim news, noting that Argyll has been systematically eliminating entire groups of prisoners. Shrioson informs him that he has already given orders to confine Argyll to solitary for 2 weeks. A grin spreads across Kraisman's face as he reveals that after 4 long years, the moment has finally arrived. They cannot afford for their deal with Argyll to fall through. He adds that the lycanthrope king will soon arrive at Solitude to inspect the merchandise, Saro. He informs Shrioson that once the delivery is complete, they will provide Argyll with pills at no cost. He then asks about Argyll's current standing with the major prisoners, such as Darkus and Comber. Shrioson replies that they've been engaged in a tense game of cat and mouse for quite some time now. He worries that once liberation occurs, a direct conflict between Argyll and Darkus may be unavoidable. However, Kraceman confidently brushes aside his concerns, asserting that Argyll is not someone who can be easily defeated by the Solitude prisoners. With enthusiasm, he declares that Argyll will navigate the challenges ahead with his usual skill. It seems that watching Argyll's interactions in Solitude has become a source of amusement for the Master of Solitude. Kraceman shifts the conversation once more, inquiring about Argyll's declining health. He discovers that Argyll can barely breathe anymore due to the absence of his medication. Shriozen grimly informs him that, at this rate, Argyll could meet Hades within the next 3 to 6 months. Meanwhile, back in his cell, Sorrow focuses intently on honing his abilities, striving to connect with his surroundings. Soon, Sorrow begins to sense the movement of nearby insects and even the gentle fall of water droplets. As his abilities improve, he starts to harness this newfound power, testing the limits of his capabilities. He realizes he has grown significantly stronger than he was just a month ago. Yet, despite this progress, a shadow of frustration looms over him. He can't shake the feeling of inadequacy, especially since he couldn't leave even a single scratch on Decapitator. Reflecting on Argyll's words from that day, Sorrow realizes he must harness a power greater than his opponent's attribute. This revelation leaves him pondering how to amplify his own wind abilities. After exhausting his options and finding no clear solution, Sorrow resolves to place his faith in Argyll, waiting for him to devise a plan. As he waits for Argyll, Sorrow decides to focus on his training, determined to grow stronger and not become a burden to Lucas. In a quiet corner, Argyll sits in meditation, his eyes closed as he observes Sorrow honing his wind attribute. Suddenly, Sorrow's concentration breaks when he hears the prison door creak open. He turns to see a girl standing in the doorway, calling out for Argyll with urgency. Completely oblivious to Sorrow's presence, she continues to shout for Argyll to come out. Sorrow glances down at her guard uniform, puzzled about her search for the old man. Suddenly, Argyll materializes silently behind her. She turns, calling him out for his stealthy approach. "What if I had been startled and accidentally attacked you?" she chides. Argyll shrugs nonchalantly, replying, "You'd probably be long gone by now if you had." With a smirk, he gestures for Sorrow to stand beside him. The female guard introduces herself as Teji, a Class 6 guard. Upon hearing her classification, Sorrow breaks into a sweat. She is significantly stronger than Alice, who is only a Class 5. Using his instincts, he can sense that Teji radiates a terrifying aura, setting her apart from Alice. Argyll speculates that the lack of new prisoners in their cell is no coincidence. It's likely a ploy to take him away. Teji appears visibly annoyed, commanding Argyll to follow her, fully aware that he understands her reasoning without needing an explanation. Argyll, however, grumbles about his deteriorating condition, expressing how exhausting it has become for him to move around. Teji's instincts kick in, alerting her to the possibility that he might be plotting something. Despite her urge to take action, she recalls her senior's advice to avoid reckless decisions. Teji's confusion deepens. No one had warned her that Argyll would be uncooperative. Sensing her dilemma, Argyll proposes a wager. "Fight Sorrow," he says, "and if you win, I'll follow you quietly. But if you lose, I'll stay locked up." Without hesitation, Sorrow readies himself for the challenge. Teji can't help but find the wager amusing after all. She sees him as nothing more than a small fry. She readies herself for battle, vowing not to hold back. Teji is eager to finish this quickly and return to her cell. As their fierce fight unfolds, she is caught off guard when Sorrow deftly dodges her attacks. Confusion washes over her. How can a mere Class 3 withstand her onslaught? Peering closely, she realizes he is harnessing the wind attribute. Despite all her efforts, Sorrow finds herself outmatched as Teji effortlessly dodges her attacks. It dawns on Teji that the old man had made this seemingly hopeless wager solely to push Sorrow into practicing and gaining valuable combat experience. With a mischievous glint in her eye, Teji decides to give Sorrow a little scare. As Teji rushes toward her, Sorrow's heart races in terror, fearing a direct hit. But in a surprising twist, Teji zips past her, channeling her wind attribute to slice through a slab of metal with ease. Sorrow is taken aback as he discovers they share the same attribute, but while his only manages to lightly scratch the metal slab, hers slices through it like a knife through butter. The mere thought of one day matching Teji's strength fills Sorrow with excitement. Argyll notices his enthusiasm and feels a sense of satisfaction, knowing his goal has been reached. However, he quickly realizes that Teji's expression has darkened, revealing her growing frustration. Taeji's irritation flared as she caught sight of Saro smiling, a clear indication that he was enjoying himself. Saro, sensing the shift in her aura, felt a wave of fear wash over him. Determined to evade her impending attack, he resolved to focus and dodge as much as possible. Knowing he couldn't win, he prepared to endure whatever came next. However, he quickly overestimated his dodging skills when Taeji suddenly materialized behind him, catching him completely off guard. Before he even realizes it, Taeji lunges at him with full force. Saro attempts to dodge, but to his astonishment, her punch seems to multiply. Before he can utter a word, Saro is bombarded by 100 strikes from every direction. His entire body aches, rendering him immobile, yet Taeji shows no signs of relenting as the relentless fists rain down on him like a meat grinder at work. Argyll watches in silence, choosing not to intervene. After knocking Saro unconscious, Taeji turns to Argyll, assuring him that she didn't kill him and declaring her victory in their wager. Argyll doesn't dispute her claim. Instead, he agrees to follow her quietly. With Saro slung over his back, he trails behind Taeji. Moments later, as they reach a fork in the path, Saro begins to stir. Argyll instinctively moves to the right, but Taeji halts him, insisting they must go left. He attempts to persuade her that the right path is quicker and insists on making a stop before they continue their journey. Taeji can hardly believe he's acting on his own whims. Nevertheless, she chooses to follow him, instructing him to lead the way. She wants to avoid any unnecessary conflict. Before long, they arrive at another door. As the door swings open, a blinding light spills into the hallway. Saro squints, bewildered by the brightness and the unfamiliar surroundings. To his astonishment, they find themselves in a gym bustling with prisoners. Argyll gestures around, explaining that this is the physical training room, a space dedicated to relentless training. All around them, inmates are engaged in bodybuilding, each paired with personal trainers who guide and motivate them. Argyll turns to Sarah, his expression serious. "You need to stay in the training room and focus on your training for the next 2 weeks," he instructs. "I have to go somewhere with Taeji, but I'll be back to check on you." Saro nods, confidence shining in his eyes. "I can handle it. I'll show you just how much I can grow in that time." With a reassuring smile, Argyll adds, "In the training room, your wind attributes will become stronger than ever before." Recalling the thrill he felt witnessing Taeji's power, Saro declares that he can do it too, vowing to become much stronger before Argyll's return. Meanwhile, the prisoners begin to notice Argyll's presence, and 2 of them exchange puzzled glances, questioning why Argyll is accompanied by a guard. Disgusted by the stench in the room, and irritated by the sight of them flaunting their abs, Taeji decides to step outside and wait for Argyll. Moments later, a burly figure with curly hair strides in the Class 5 prisoner, Delram. He immediately spots Argyll and reprimands him for breaking his promise. "What were you thinking, bringing a child to the gym? This isn't an orphanage," he chides, casting a glance at Saro. With a smirk, he adds, "Looks like Argyll's brought in another piece of merchandise this time." Saro, bewildered, can't help but wonder what Delram really means by that. Argyll suggests they find a more private place to talk. Before they leave, Delram casts a chilling glance at the prisoners and ominously instructs them to remain silent. Fear washes over them, and they hastily clamp their mouths shut, some even covering their lips with trembling hands. Once they've moved to a different location, Argyll turns to Delram and asks for his assistance in training Saro. Understanding that Argyll is straightforward and unlikely to heed his conditions, Delram challenges him to a duel, proposing a trade, babysitting Saro. It seems this is a familiar routine for them, despite Delram's consistent disadvantage against Argyll, who easily outmatches him. After delivering a stern warning, Argyll accepts the deal and provides Delram with a location for their upcoming duel. He explains that he has run out of time and prepares to leave, warning Delram not to fill Saro's head with nonsense. Delram, however, stands his ground, declaring that he will do as he pleases now that Saro is under his wing. With a dismissive glance, Argyll ignores him and walks out. Once the door closes behind Argyll, Delram turns to Saro and suggests they head off for a beat-down session. Though the idea sends a shiver down Saro's spine, he quietly follows Delram, unsure of what awaits him. Meanwhile, Taeji escorts Argyll to solitary confinement, anticipating his reaction to be much like that of other prisoners, either begging for mercy or succumbing to madness in the oppressive isolation. Some inmates, unable to withstand the suffocating darkness, have even taken their own lives. As these thoughts swirl in her mind, Taeji hesitates at the door. Argyll, growing increasingly impatient, questions whether the opening mechanism is malfunctioning, prompting her to unlock it swiftly. She wonders why he remains so calm while everyone else is in a frenzy. After escorting him inside, Argal thanks her and even offers directions to the guard's waiting room. Teichi retorts, insisting she can find her own way back. Just as she turns to leave, Argal unexpectedly grabs her from behind, covering her mouth with his hand to stifle any scream. Teiji's heart races with fear as she questions whether he has truly lost his mind. Paralyzed by dread, she eventually ceases her struggles as darkness envelops her. Meanwhile, in the training room, Saro is having the worst day of his life. Sprawled on the floor, utterly exhausted from lifting weights, two burly trainers praise him for his perseverance, impressed that he managed to endure despite it being his first time. Saro can't help but think that when Delram promised to beat him to a pulp, he had envisioned something quite different. Delram's intentions were far from gentle. He intended to whip Saro into shape as if he were training for a marathon. During a brief moment of rest, Saro observes that the other prisoners are solely focused on their workouts, intent on building muscle. This brings him a sense of relief. At least he can concentrate on his training without the constant fear of being killed. However, Saro's naivety quickly becomes apparent when he is unexpectedly pulled into a fighting arena for a duel. The spectators are taken aback by the sight of a child on stage. Even his opponent, a Class 4 prisoner named Vincent, scoffs at him, calling him a weak brat and remarking on how young he looks. Vincent warns Delram that the kid might not make it out alive, making it clear he won't take responsibility for any repercussions. In response, Delram coolly tells Vincent to knock Saro out and suggests he might as well break a few bones while he's at it, since the kid will heal quickly enough. He deduces that Argal only accepts valuable merchandise, and he intends to uncover his true form by forcing him into battle. As soon as the bell rings, signaling the start of the fight, Vincent charges at Saro. In response, Saro swiftly transforms into his beast form, blocking the attack and igniting Delram's excitement. Delram is taken aback. Only beastmen over the age of 20 can transform. He realizes that Argal must have taught Saro the skill earlier. Delram frowns, his irritation growing as he questions why Argal is willing to teach others but refuses to extend the same courtesy to him. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Vincent, who swiftly overpowers Saro, pinning him to the ground and unleashing a relentless barrage of punches. Each blow lands with incredible force, and Vincent's speed leaves Saro with no chance to escape. Yet, amidst the chaos, Saro can't shake the feeling that Vincent is weaker than the opponents he's faced before. He remembers Argal's warning about the dangers of relying too heavily on attributes. They drain one's life force, sapping stamina and mental strength, and can ultimately lead to death. While he knows he should heed this advice, he chooses to ignore it for now. After all, this is just a casual fight to test his abilities, not the life-or-death struggle he faces in the corridors, where everyone is out to get him. Saro taps into his wind attribute, swiftly breaking free from his pinned position and evading Vincent's powerful punches with ease. Vincent stands bewildered, struggling to grasp how Saro managed to dodge all his attacks. Before he can react, Saro lunges forward, slashing at him with his claws, leaving marks across various parts of his body. Vincent crashes to the ground, overwhelmed by Saro's strength, and soon collapses. Blood pooling around him, the room falls silent, each person rendered speechless by the shocking turn of events. Even Delram stands in disbelief, unable to fathom how a Class 4 prisoner could be defeated by a mere Class 3 child. It seems that Saro's attributes are far beyond what anyone at this level can withstand. Only a Class 5 prisoner or higher could hope to match his power. Delram acknowledges that Argal was his teacher, yet he can't shake his surprise at how well Saro has mastered the skills. This situation leaves him questioning whether Argal's teachings are based on talent or lineage. Jealousy simmers within him, especially since Argal has consistently denied his requests for further instruction, no matter how fervently he pleads. Unwilling to accept this rejection, Delram is determined to prove his worth by challenging Argal's prized disciple. Saro stands bewildered as Delram strides into the ring, his expression dark and determined, clearly challenging him to a duel. Just as Delram prepares to throw the first punch, Saro hesitates, questioning whether this might be yet another test. The thought lingers only for a moment, but he quickly shakes it off, regaining his focus just in time to evade the incoming strike. However, Delram's speed catches him off guard, and soon Saro finds himself overwhelmed beneath a relentless barrage of heavy blows, the pressure mounting to an almost unbearable level. On the brink of being overwhelmed, he remembers Argal's advice about attributes and resolves to endure for as long as possible, even if it means pushing himself to the point of fainting. He skillfully dodges several attacks, but eventually, Delram finds an opening and delivers a powerful punch to Saro's side. This time, the pain is sharp and unmistakably real. Sorrow understood that a Class V prisoner would hit hard, but the actual impact was far more brutal than he had anticipated. The force of the blow sent him reeling, and Delram seized the opportunity, unleashing a flurry of rapid strikes that sent Sorrow crashing to the ground. Despite the challenges, Sorrow remains resolute, reminding himself that this is the path he has chosen, a crucial step toward his own strength. The thought of Lucas drives him forward, igniting a renewed determination within. He is determined not to be a burden to his brother, and that conviction ignites a powerful transformation within him. As his aura intensifies, he finally unleashes his true attribute. Sorrow darts forward with lightning speed, positioning himself directly in front of Delram just as he prepares to strike again. Delram, quick on his feet, evades the counterattack and retaliates with a powerful punch. Before Sorrow can regain his footing, Delram ensnares him in a firm grip, and in a swift motion, he slams Sorrow's head into the ground. The entire exchange unfolds in a heartbeat, leaving Sorrow momentarily stunned. Even in his dazed state, Sorrow fights back, struggling against Delram's grip as punch after punch lands on him. Summoning a surge of will and drawing on the strength of his attribute, he finally breaks free and slips behind Delram. The sudden shift catches the prisoner completely off guard. Sorrow unleashes a flurry of wild, improvised attacks, clawing at Delram from multiple angles. To his astonishment, Delram effortlessly blocks each strike, emerging unscathed. In retaliation, Delram taps into his earth attribute, and red armor of hardened earth begins to envelop his body. Just as he readies himself to escalate the confrontation, a vivid memory of Argal flashes in his mind. He remembers approaching Argal long ago, seeking help to grow stronger. Argal had refused, explaining that Delram lacked the resolve to confront the darkness within himself. Now, as he observes Sorrow's untamed ferocity, Delram finally grasps what Argal meant by walking in darkness. The realization washes over him, and for the first time, he embraces the truth behind Argal's words. Delram finally manages to calm down, even going so far as to praise Sorrow's talent. As he observes him, he mutters to himself that Sorrow's darkness is impressive. Sorrow, puzzled by the comment, asks if Delram also trained by traversing that strange dark abyss. The question catches Delram off guard, leaving him speechless and bewildered. A bead of sweat trickles down his face as he struggles to comprehend what Sorrow is referring to. He wonders if sorrow truly means literal darkness, surprised that such a training method even exists. After a brief pause, Sorrow begins to explain, detailing how it all works, including Argal's unique meditation technique. He shares how he grew stronger through meditation, just as Argal had taught him. Delram stares at him for a moment before bursting into laughter, calling him foolish. He claims he has meditated before and never gains strength by simply sitting around like a duck. Sorrow insists that this method is different, attempting to convey the sensation of traversing the darkness within one's inner self. He confesses that he, too, struggled to grasp it at first, but over time, he began to understand what Argal meant. Despite Sorrow's additional explanations, Delram remains perplexed. Nothing makes sense to him, leading him to believe that Argal's training holds a deeper significance he has yet to grasp. Fueled by this thought, he pleads with Sorrow to teach him. The unexpected request catches Sorrow off guard, leaving him momentarily speechless. After all, he has only trained under Argal for about a month and feels unqualified to instruct anyone else. As he contemplates the request, Sorrow recalls Argal's warnings, weighing them heavily in his mind. The old man cautioned him against meddling, warning that engaging with someone trapped in their own darkness could be perilous. Argal had even advised him never to peer into that abyss, let alone converse with anyone in such a state. These warnings reverberated in Sorrow's mind as he grappled with his next move. Meanwhile, Delram, brimming with enthusiasm, dropped to his knees, pleading like a child yearning for a treat. He confesses that the real reason he accepted Argal's deal was to learn Sorrow's training method, especially after being turned down by Argal so many times. Sorrow observes him, pondering how he's supposed to manage this relentless pestering. With Argal absent for another 2 weeks, he braces himself for the inevitable challenge of dealing with Delram during every training session. He begins to consider that perhaps teaching him just a little wouldn't be so bad. On the surface, Delram beams with a wide smile, but inside, he's a bundle of nerves. He questions whether pushing a child into something so serious is truly the right choice. Taking a deep breath, he reassures himself that Sorrow will likely refuse anyway. Meanwhile, Sorrow finds himself in a tight spot, feeling the weight of the pressure bearing down on him. he stammers, gazing up at Sorrow like a lost puppy. The moment Sorrow agrees to teach him even the smallest part, Delram's face lights up with the enthusiasm of a child. He eagerly urges Sorrow to begin the training immediately. Though taken aback by the sudden request, Sorrow decides to go along with it. They settle into a meditative position, and Sorrow instructs Delram to close his eyes and clear his mind of any distractions. Inspired by Argal, Sorrow starts to teach him the breathing pattern, gently guiding him toward accessing his inner self. Meanwhile, in the guard's resting area, Teiji relaxes in a sauna, yet her thoughts are consumed by Argal and the events that unfolded after she attempted to walk away from him. Previously, after escorting him into solitary confinement, Teiji attempted to leave. Suddenly, Argal seized her from behind, covering her mouth to stifle any screams. Misunderstanding his intentions, she nearly fainted from panic when he urgently gestured for her to look ahead. To her horror, she spotted a ghostly figure standing just outside the door, lurking and waiting for its next victim. If Argal hadn't sensed the danger first and acted quickly to grab her, Teiji would have likely walked straight into its jaws. He releases her from his grip, and together they stare at the grotesque, multi-eyed lizard monster clinging to the door, desperately trying to break through the protective barrier. Teiji feels a deep sense of gratitude toward Argal for saving her from becoming a monster's meal. Yet she can't shake the confusion of why a creature would dare to attack her, especially since she possesses an amulet crafted by the Light Constellations faction. This special amulet is designed to keep corridor ghosts at bay and prevent them from becoming aggressive. Teiji's mind races with questions. How did the ghost manage to find her? And why hadn't she sensed a monster's presence at all? She is further puzzled by the amulet's failure to work its magic. Argal explains that the ghost might have been too powerful, or perhaps the amulet itself malfunctioned. He adds that, sometimes, amulets simply don't function against certain corridor ghosts. Teiji's eyes widen in surprise. This is her first time hearing that corridor ghosts can be so unpredictable. As the monster finally tires of battering the barrier, it lumbers away, allowing Teiji to prepare for her return to the guard rest area. Just as she steps through the door, she hesitates and turns to Argal. "I haven't been working in Solitude for long," she begins, her voice steady yet curious. "But I've heard plenty of rumors about you." With a determined gaze, she asks, "What are you really? What is your true identity in this place?" After a moment of hesitation, Argal suggests that Teiji speak with the clerk, Bemlio, if she wants to learn more about him. Teiji is taken aback. Bemlio is a Class 9 guard with a secretive job title. How could a mere Class 1 prisoner like Argal possibly know about him? Sensing her confusion, Argal simply turns to her and advises, "Direct all your questions to the clerk." He impatiently urges her to shut the door, insisting he has things to attend to. As the door clicks shut behind Teiji, she walks away. Back in the present, she can't shake her thoughts about Argal, convinced there's a secret about him that remains hidden. Meanwhile, Senpai Sorrow appears to be struggling with his own challenges. He finds himself alone in a dark abyss, his mind racing with worry for his student. As he scans the void for any sign of Delram, doubt creeps in had the experiment failed. Frantically, Sorrow calls out for him, desperation lacing his voice. Just then, Argal materializes behind him, his presence chilling. He whispers his disappointment, chastising Sorrow for ignoring his warning and venturing into someone else's inner self. Argal had been looking forward to 2 weeks of well-deserved rest, but Sorrow had to go and stir up another troublesome situation. Staggering in shock, Sorrow turned to face him, bombarding Argal with questions about how and why he was inside the abyss. It was hard for Sorrow to believe, especially since Argal was supposed to be in solitary confinement. With a knowing smile, Argal reminded him of their connection, which allowed him to enter Sorrow's inner mind whenever he pleased. Argal turns to Sorrow and explains that Delram isn't ready to navigate the darkness within himself. The colors in his mind are simply too vivid. Meanwhile, Delram drifts in a state of lifeless suspension, unable to confront the shadows that lie ahead. Argal elaborates, noting that Delram becomes easily distracted by the bright hues swirling in his thoughts, preventing him from perceiving the true darkness he must learn to traverse. Argal warns Sorrow that they must rescue Delram, or he may never return to normal and could even lose his life. Panic washes over Sorrow as he frantically asks Argal how they can save him. Argal, however, insists that he must take responsibility for his mistake, leaving Sorrow bewildered. Suddenly, a dark, thick mesh ensnares him, tightening around him as he struggles to break free. It is Argal who summoned his binding force, manipulating it to constrict Sorrow, squeezing the breath from his lungs. Argyle delivers a stern lecture, emphasizing that the heavier the responsibility, the stronger one becomes. He instructs Sorrow to truly feel the weight of his actions, as he intends to confine him in darkness for a time due to his disobedience. Soon, a dark mesh envelops Sorrow, swallowing him whole as he fights desperately to escape. In a moment of vulnerability, Sorrow reaches out with his mind voice, apologizing and pleading for Argyle's forgiveness. His eyes are filled with terror as he desperately calls out to Argyle in his mind, but Argyle remains indifferent, leaving him to be completely engulfed by the darkness. Meanwhile, Delram floats lifelessly in the void. Argyle observes that Delram has truly grown since their first encounter. Once plagued by self-doubt, Delram now exudes a newfound calmness. Argyle ponders whether his new role as the training room manager is the cause of his unease. Sensing his desperation, he resolves to lend Delram a helping hand. Venturing deeper into the shadows, Argyle eventually halts, realizing he has ventured far enough. He questions the unseen presence around him, calling out into the darkness. In response, a towering dark figure materializes before him. The figure possessed striking golden eyes and an unusual marking on its forehead, nestled between its eyes. Argyle declared that he had waited for years and could continue to wait. Slowly, the dark figure descended back to the ground, entering a dormant state. It seemed that, whatever this entity was, Argyle had been anticipating its arrival for over 60 years, and he was in no rush. With a calm resolve, he murmured that they should wait just a little longer. After his encounter with the towering dark figure, Argyle turns to glance at Sorrow, who remains tightly ensnared in the black mesh. With a newfound excitement, he declares that he has finally discovered a delightful hobby after a long absence. As he strides away, Argyle bids farewell to the dark figure, confidently stating that they will meet again. Meanwhile, in the training room, a remarkably muscular man flaunts his impressive 10-pack abs and bulging biceps. Piram, a Class 5 prisoner, admires his reflection, clearly pleased with his results. With a mix of pride and narcissism, he praises his incredible physique and boasts about his heavy weightlifting prowess, reveling in the admiration he believes he deserves. It seems this guy is determined to be the top dog in the training room, but he can't shake the fear that Delram might steal his spotlight if Argyle agrees to train him in exchange for taking care of Sorrow. Remembering Sorrow's incredible power, Piram realizes that Delram could surpass him in ways he never imagined if Argyle gets involved. This thought sends a chill down his spine, prompting him to devise a plan to keep Delram and Argyle apart. Piram retrieves an orb from his locker, ready to contact the demon worshippers. He informs them that Argyle visited their training room and, after a brief encounter, left the kid behind. In a calculated move, he proposes a deal. Hand over Sorrow in exchange for something significant, likely the power to surpass Delram. Moments later, Piram strides toward Delram's bunker, calling out his name. When silence greets him, he steps inside, demanding to know where Sorrow is. He is taken aback by their unexpected position and grows puzzled when no one responds. Shrugging off their silence, he continues to chatter, turning to Delram. "I want to teach Sorrow the rules of the training room," he declares. "I'll handle it myself, so you don't need to be here for the lesson." He pauses his chatter and turns to Delram, seeking his thoughts on the suggestion, but receives no response. Piram then notices that Sorrow is also completely unresponsive and wonders what could be happening. Although they appear conscious, none of them seem to be aware of their surroundings. Taking Delram's silence as agreement, he hoists Sorrow up like a sack of potatoes. Piram exits the room, a satisfied smile on his face, pleased that everything has unfolded more smoothly than he anticipated. Meanwhile, a group of demon worshippers hovers in the corridor outside the training room, their whispers filled with skepticism. They exchange glances, debating whether they can truly trust a muscle-bound brat like him. One of the worshippers insists they must wait patiently, recalling Piram's confident claims about capturing Sorrow. As their discussion unfolds, Piram suddenly interrupts, carrying an unconscious Sorrow over his shoulders. He inquires about his belongings, and they hand him a small box containing 5 capsules filled with a mysterious red substance. Piram's face lights up with delight as he completes the exchange. After securing the boy, they suggest staying in touch for future collaboration. Piram eagerly agrees, hastily departing while clutching his precious cheat system tightly. As he watches him leave, one of the demon warriors scoffs, calling him foolish for only thinking about muscles. Meanwhile, in the training room, everyone else continues their usual routines. However, Delram begins to stir, slowly regaining consciousness. Moments later, he jolts awake, drenched in sweat. Panic sets in as he frantically scans the room, desperate to find out what happened to Sorrow. Delram gazes at his reflection, still lost in thought about his recent journey into his inner self. To him, that moment felt like a visit to another world. He reminisces about his past as an arena prisoner, where he fought fiercely to claim the champion's seat. As he walks through his memories, he finds himself enchanted by the shimmering glory of his past. Yet, just before he becomes fully absorbed in those memories, he has a moment of clarity. The past must remain where it belongs behind him. Delram had been ensnared by the vibrant echoes of his past, unable to move forward. Just as despair began to settle in, he noticed a small purple swirl flickering behind him. Instinctively, he understood that he needed to venture down the shadowy path that lay hidden behind his colorful memories. With a resolute heart, he cast aside his past and stepped into the darkness, feeling as though a voice beckoned him from within that small abyss. Delram is left wondering who or what was beckoning to him. Could it be his future self? But perhaps it was Argyle. Just then, a frantic prisoner burst into the room, urgently calling out to Delram that something terrible has happened. Confused, Delram speculates whether their resident troublemaker Piram has challenged him to yet another duel. The prisoner explains that Piram went on a rampage, attacking the guys in the training room for no apparent reason. Delram swiftly strides forward to confront Piram, demanding that he face him directly and spare the boys from their conflict. Unfazed, Piram flashes a sinister grin and threatens to turn Delram into a bloody sausage. He revels in the thrill of having taken out everyone in the training room, his eyes gleaming with a chilling excitement. The look in Piram's gaze sends a shiver down the spine of the boy who reported everything earlier, prompting him to urgently warn Delram against facing Piram alone. Delram remains unfazed, turning to Piram with a confident smile. "I just had an exhilarating experience myself," he declares, "and I plan to test the results right now." Meanwhile, Sorrow lies disoriented, encircled by the demon worshippers, who watch him with bemusement as he mutters incoherently. Their amusement quickly turns to horror as chaos erupts. Sorrow suddenly springs to life, tearing through them limb from limb with a ferocity that leaves them reeling. In a shocking twist, it is revealed that Argyle had taken control of Sorrow's body, the thrilling hobby he had alluded to earlier. For some time now, Argyle had been curious about the experience of inhabiting a werewolf's form. Just then, a group of demon worshippers arrives at the bloody scene, their faces a mix of disbelief and horror as they witness a mere child unleashing such chaos with seemingly effortless ease. One of them voices a loud complaint, expressing frustration that no one informed them about the children's abilities. Another notices the number 51, clearly marked on Sorrow's neck. Meanwhile, Argyle, now in control of Sorrow's body, feels a surge of emotions coursing through him. Though Sorrow remains unconscious, a fierce desire to break free and destroy everything around him simmers beneath the surface. This overwhelming rage is a trait unique to purebloods. Argyle contemplates whether this uncontrollable rage is the very reason werewolves faced extinction so long ago. He feels an exhilarating thrill, wishing he could inhabit Sorrow's body indefinitely, free from any constraints. However, reality sets in Sorrow as merely merchandise, soon to be delivered. With the knowledge that this thrilling experience won't last much longer, Argyle resolves to savor every moment to the fullest. Argyle soon surpasses the beast transformation limit that Sorrow had never been able to reach. The difference lies in Argyle's formidable mental power, which far exceeds Sorrow's. In a shocking display, Sorrow's body morphs into a terrifying lycanthrope. As he lunges toward the demon worshippers, they scramble to cast a spell against him, but Argyle remains completely unaffected. Argyle swiftly terminates his foes, leaving a trail of blood across the battlefield as he goes on a rampage, mercilessly eliminating the remaining demon worshippers. Once the room is cleared, he reverts to his human form, standing bare-skinned amidst the chaos. With a sigh of exasperation, he rummages through the fallen enemies for clothes, grumbling about how clothing is always a hassle after every transformation. He soon senses Jacob nearby and decides to ask him for some durable magic clothes that won't tear during his future transformations. After meeting with Jacob, Argyle plans to check in on Delram. Meanwhile, back in the training room, everyone is taken aback to find Delram knocked out cold by Piram. The sight raises eyebrows and suspicions, leading them to wonder if Piram might be up to something shady. At the start of the battle, both fighters seemed evenly matched. However, as the clash progressed, an unexpected shift occurred, tipping the scales in favor of Piram. Reflecting on Delram's attack patterns, it became clear that he had improved significantly. He must have acquired some new, secret techniques. Meanwhile, Piram's strikes were alarmingly swift and powerful, almost as if he had undergone some extraordinary training. The intensity of his attacks left everyone questioning the source of his newfound strength. The two of them fought as if their lives depended on it, moving like feral beasts, desperately battling for territory. Their display of newfound strength sent shivers down the spines of the others in the training room, leaving them utterly in awe. Initially, Delram and Piram's attacks mirrored each other flawlessly, creating a breathtaking spectacle of skill and determination. As the battle rages on, neither fighter seems to gain the upper hand until Piram suddenly shifts the tide in his favor. With a single devastating blow, he leaves Delram resembling a helpless pufferfish. In that moment, regret washes over Delram. He wishes he had trained more diligently in the past and not underestimated his opponent. Just then, he hears a voice calling his name, echoing in his mind. He instantly recognizes the voice as Argyle's. To his surprise, Argyle is already present, inhabiting Cyro's body and standing silently behind the crowd. With a sharp reprimand, he scolds Delram, questioning whether he intends to continue enduring beatings like a stubborn donkey. He reminds Delram of all the trouble he went through to lead him into the darkness. At that moment, Delram finally comprehends that it was Argyle who guided him out of his vividly colored memories and into the shadowy depths beyond. Delram pleads with Argyle to keep guiding him, expressing his exhaustion from being treated like trash by Piram. Argyle grins, satisfied that Delram has finally set aside his arrogance and is begging earnestly. As Delram remains on the receiving end of Piram's relentless assault, Argyle instructs him to close his eyes. Delram finds this request strange and questions it, thinking, who in their right mind closes their eyes on a battlefield? He fears that once his eyes are closed, Piram might strike his jaw and end him in an instant. Argyle urges him to let go of his fear and take a step forward, just as he did when navigating through the darkness. With punches raining down and options dwindling, Delram resolves to trust him. He closes his eyes, and once again, he is enveloped by the darkness. Argyle instructs him not to rely solely on his eyes, but to truly sense his opponent's movements, attributes, killing intent, obsession, and fighting spirit. Under the guidance of his spiritual mentor, Argyle, Delram starts to push past his limitations. As he transforms into his red earth armor, he feels an unprecedented surge of strength coursing through him. After his reawakening, Delram shifts the battle's momentum with a single, devastating punch to Piram's face, delivering an unexpected dose of free plastic surgery. The crowd is left utterly stunned, their jaws dropping in disbelief. A wide grin spreads across Delram's face as he savors the exhilarating power of being Argyle himself. Piram collapses to the ground, having just received his unexpected lip and nose job. Delram, brimming with newfound confidence, declares the match officially over, and Piram, though reluctant, agrees. But, refusing to accept defeat, Piram suddenly opens his chest, revealing a strange purple swirl that spreads rapidly across his body. He's determined not to remain in a place where he can't be the top dog. Frustrated by his inability to achieve his desires, he resolves to destroy everything in his path. With a sinister laugh, he declares his intentions as he prepares to self-destruct. Still inside the training room, Delram swiftly takes charge, barking orders for everyone to evacuate the room immediately. No one pays heed to his warning, but as Argyle suddenly realizes that the purple pattern on him might be linked to the demon worshippers, the crowd erupts in panic and rushes out. Meanwhile, Argyle fearlessly charges in the opposite direction toward Piram. In less than a heartbeat, with a single fluid motion, he decapitates Piram, severing his head from his body. He moved with such speed that even the grin on Piram's face stayed perfectly intact after it was severed. After silencing the broken radio, Argyle confidently declared his disdain for chatterboxes. Moments later, the prisoners found themselves back in the training room, watching the lower half of Piram's body release a strange, foul-smelling purple smoke. Delram remarked that Piram must have taken some pills from the demon worshippers. Another gym-goer, noticing Delram's battered face, immediately jumps to conclusions and begins to scold Cyro. Delram quickly intervenes, clarifying, wait, it's Argyle in control of the body. The man's eyes widen in disbelief as he takes in the sight of Cyro's form, struggling to process the revelation. To prove his point, Delram reveals the prisoner number, 51, boldly displayed on Argyle's body. In that moment, everyone finally accepts the truth. Argyle, with a hint of mischief, explains that he was simply bored in solitary confinement, so he decided to take the body for a little joyride. While he finds the concept of body possession puzzling, Delram muses that in solitude, anything is possible. His curiosity piqued. He asks Argyle if he uses similar methods to develop merchandise. However, Argyle, unwilling to divulge any secrets, warns him to stay out of his affairs. Just then, another man bursts in, breathless, announcing that hundreds of demon worshippers have gathered outside the training room. The news sends a wave of terror through the prisoners. Delram seized with anger, realizing they had been targeted from the very beginning, with Piram merely serving as the appetizer. He threatens to send them all to their maker, his voice laced with fury. However, still reeling from his previous injuries, he suddenly collapses to the ground, coughing violently. As he struggles, Argyle watches with a mix of concern and contemplation, reflecting on the demon worshipper's scheme to seize control of the training room through Piram. With their plan in ruins, the demon vermin swarm in droves, ready to consume everything in their path. The prisoners in the training room are gripped by fear and anxiety, especially since the attack coincides with Delram's serious injuries. Yet, fueled by a fierce determination to defend their territory, the others charge outside, ready to confront the threat. Delram, despite his wounds, attempts to join the fray, but his comrades hold him back, insisting he must stay behind. He wonders how they can possibly fend off hundreds of black magic users with their meager numbers. The thought of the entire training room being wiped out looms over him like a dark cloud, especially since help from other training rooms may not arrive in time. Delram fears they might all become easy prey before reinforcements show up. Realizing that their only hope lies in Argyle's intervention, he pleads with him to step in and save them. Argyle, seemingly unfazed, continues his meditation, ignoring Delram's presence. Sensing an opportunity, Delram proposes a deal. Knowing Argyle's penchant for such arrangements, he promises to do anything if Argyle can save his people. Without a moment's hesitation, Argyle agrees, demanding Delram's soul in exchange for their safety. Delram is taken aback, left to ponder whether Argyle intends to claim his soul as he did with Sero's body. He knows that trusting Argyle has always been the right choice. With the demon worshippers lurking, ready to steal everyone's life force, and potentially their souls, Delram understands that hesitation is a luxury he cannot afford. He cannot risk the lives of his innocent subordinates. Resolutely, he agrees, offering his soul to Argyle. Argyle quickly agrees to the deal and instructs Delram to stay indoors while he takes care of the vermin outside. Without hesitation, he knocks Delram out from behind, anticipating that he might refuse to comply otherwise. Turning to one of the prisoners, Argyle says, "Gently lay him down inside. I'll handle things out here, so Delram can rest peacefully without any worries." After dealing with Delram, Argyle rushes outside to assist his allies. Meanwhile, chaos reigns as the demon worshippers clash with the gym fighters. Argyle transforms into Sero's full wolf form, charging into the fray and unleashing havoc. He mercilessly takes down the demon worshippers, splattering plasma in every direction. The sight of the fearsome wolf sends the demon minions into a panic. They realize too late that their black magic is ineffective against the swift beast. Upon hearing this, one of the demons is taken aback, but quickly reassures himself, believing the wolf will eventually run out of steam, leaving them free to destroy it. Meanwhile, Delram's subordinates are facing their own struggles, as the demon vermin unleash black magic lasers, incinerating them with ruthless efficiency. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the prisoners remain resolute, refusing to abandon hope. Despite the loss of most of their colleagues, they remain resolute in their mission. Argyle takes a moment to survey the chaotic scene, realizing that the prisoners may not survive much longer if he doesn't act quickly. The cramped battlefield restricts his abilities, so he steps outside the room, determined to eliminate the remaining threats with haste. The horde of demon worshippers waiting outside is taken aback by the sight of the lycanthrope, their anxiety palpable as they ponder what exactly he is. One of the vermin, having witnessed the chaos from inside, explains that this monstrous figure emerged from the training room and has already dispatched several of their own. In a fit of panic, the group leader bellows an urgent command, ordering them to capture the beast at all costs. Argyle glances back into the training room where chaos still reigns. Nearly half of the trainees have already been taken out. He shifts back to his human form, deciding to let Sorrow's body rest and recover for a while. As he transforms, the demon vermin finally grasp the truth. He is a werewolf. Mistakenly believing that Argyle has abandoned his wolf form due to exhaustion, they resolve to capture him before he can regain his strength. Argyle finds himself quickly surrounded as a swarm of attackers rushes at him from all sides, desperately unleashing black magic in their frantic assault. Yet, even in Sero's human form, Argyle continues to sow chaos, leaving his foes bewildered and terrified. As the dust begins to settle, it becomes clear that it was Argyle's massive bear companion, Anton, who dealt with the demon worshippers, effortlessly handling the threat with his imposing presence. In the depths of darkness, Argyle searched meticulously, ultimately summoning the one ally he he could find, in that moment, Anton. With a proud grin, Anton declared it an honor to be chosen, proclaiming loudly that he was fully prepared to follow Argyle's every command without hesitation. Later, Delram stirred awake, his injuries already tended to. He glanced around, concern etched on his face, and inquired about the situation regarding the attack by the demon worshippers. The blond man grimly explains that the raid resulted in heavy casualties. Nearly all the trainees in the room were wiped out. The shocking news sends Delram into a fury as he storms out of his room, his subordinate trailing behind, cautioning him to be careful. His wounds could worsen. But Delram brushes off the warning, striding into the training room, only to be met with a gruesome sight, a heap of torn-up demon worshippers. The subordinate reports that they too endured significant losses, but ultimately emerged victorious thanks to Argyle's timely intervention. Delram inquires about Argyle's whereabouts, and the subordinate hands him a letter explaining that Argyle has ventured into the corridors to tackle the remaining demon worshipper camps in the vicinity. Delram chuckles as he reads the old man's note, which humorously states that he simply went out for a walk. Outside the corridors, Argyle and Anton catch their breaths after dismantling yet another demon worshipper camp. As they prepare for their next raid, Argyle's gaze falls on a patch covering one of Anton's eyes. Concerned, he asks about it, but Anton brushes him off, insisting there's no need to worry. Argyle, however, can't let it go and presses for an explanation, but Anton remains tight-lipped. Just then, Argyle staggers slightly, prompting Anton to check on him. Argyle reassures him, saying he plans to visit the warden soon and has regained some strength, so there's no need for Anton to fret. Still troubled, Anton hands Argyle a piece of extension grass, explaining that he found it during the last liberation. Recognizing its rarity, Argyle inquires if a person named Shamini was responsible for Anton's lost eye. Anton hesitates, reluctant to delve into the details. He reassures Argyle that he's fine and insists that he even emerged victorious. Argyle is taken aback. This Shamini is evidently much stronger than Anton, suggesting that Anton has significantly improved since their last encounter. He commends Anton for his dedication and hard work. However, it's soon revealed that, like Delram, Anton has offered his soul to Argyle and has also faced his own inner darkness. After expressing his admiration, Argyle's tone shifts as he scolds Anton for recklessly risking his life despite all the warnings he had given him. He expresses his concern, insisting that he doesn't want Argyle to get hurt, and warns him against putting himself in danger with unnecessary actions. Taken aback, Anton quickly apologizes, pleading for Argyle's forgiveness. With a nod of acceptance, Argyle continues on their path. As they move forward, they encounter a haughty butler, hovering a floating disc between his hands, searching for Argyle. Anton instinctively readies himself for a fight, but Argyle intervenes just in time. The butler announces that he carries a message from his master, placing a disc on the ground that projects a holographic image of the vampire king, Enduras. Enduras, trapped in his cell, explains that he couldn't make an appearance himself, so he had to send Argyle in his stead. With a smirk, Argyle quips, suggesting that the real reason is Enduras's fear of facing them directly. Enduras doesn't deny it. He admits that he has survived in solitude for so long precisely because of fear. Anton observes intently, bracing himself for yet another pointless confrontation. To his surprise, Enduras instead offers an apology for his foolish subordinate, Beckham, who had offended Argyle. He clarifies that Beckham's actions were never his intention. Argyle, however, finds the apology suspicious, noting that a king would never humble himself so easily. He suspects that Enduras has laid a hidden trap. However, Argyle is taken aback when Enduras unexpectedly bows his head. Setting aside his reputation as the fearsome vampire king, Enduras acknowledges his mistake and offers to make amends. Anton remains skeptical and demands that Enduras reveal his true intentions. As anticipated, Enduras reveals he has another reason for reaching out. He inquires whether Argyle plans to forgive Darkus, but Argyle's response is a firm refusal. Enduras had expected this answer and chose not to press the matter further. Instead, he remarks that all he can do is watch as Argyle decimates his comrades. Before departing, Argyle warns him to stay in his lane, just like the high and mighty noble he has always been. With a chilling display of his killing intent, he warns Enduras that any attempt to interfere will result in one of his friends meeting a grim fate. As Argyle and Anton walk away, Enduras is left feeling utterly defeated, unable to sway Argyle from his path. The once mighty vampire king can't fathom how he found himself cowering before an ordinary mortal. A nagging question lingers in his mind. Who in this world could possibly stand against Argyle now? Meanwhile, Argyle and Anton press on with their tour, soon arriving at yet another camp of demon worshippers. Without a moment's hesitation, they unleash chaos upon the countless demon vermin lurking within. No matter how many emerge, none are left standing. Each one is mercilessly crushed to pieces. After another successful raid, Anton observes that the demon worshippers appear to be preparing something in a separate compartment. Their strategy of splitting their attacks instead of launching a full-on assault raises his suspicions. Argyle expresses his frustration, noting that they are likely stalling for time. Just then, they enter another room, revealing a floating piece of metal suspended in the empty space. Meanwhile, William, the demon worshipper's 17th captain and a Class 6 prisoner, sits atop a pile of corpses observing Anton through a device. William is perplexed by Anton's decision to ally with the Exercise Alliance and a young wolf boy. Shaking off his confusion, he boasts about having taken down several Class 1 prisoners in the corridors, planning to use their bodies as fuel. With a sense of satisfaction in his supply, William confidently declares that he will not be defeated by Anton. William's excitement is palpable. He doesn't even need to hunt down Anton, as the man is heading straight for him. After defeating Anton, William plans to capture Sero and present him to Darkus, so he eagerly awaits their arrival. Moments later, Argyle and Anton race forward, quickly spotting William lounging on his pile of meat. With a grin, he welcomes them, announcing that he has just finished preparing a feast. Argyle brushes aside the nonsense and inquires whether William ordered the black magic raid on their training room. William confirms it, all the while noting that the werewolf sounds far too mature for someone so young. He quickly dismisses the thought, planning instead to capture the boy and present him to Darkus. Turning his attention to Anton, he asks, "Are you trying to impress Argyle by babysitting the kid?" Anton completely ignores William, which only serves to irritate him further. Bored by Anton's indifference, William decides to showcase his black magic tricks, playfully threatening to turn Anton into a stylish fur coat. Anton is taken aback as he witnesses William's display of power impressive for a captain-level Class 6 black magic user. With a flick of his wrist, William summons two colossal monsters, commanding them with dark magic to launch an attack on both Argyle and Anton. The colossal beast, its tail replacing legs, looms over Anton, while a spider-like creature advances on Argyle. As Anton clashes with the beast, their battle intensifies, neither gaining a clear advantage. The creature's strikes are powerful but not lethal, prompting Anton to recognize its straightforward tactic, to wear him down and drain his stamina over time. The battle rages on, and Anton realizes that the beast, despite its massive size, possesses surprising speed. However, this doesn't deter him. After all, he's no slouch himself for a big teddy bear. Without a moment's hesitation, Anton swings his butcher axe, landing a swift blow. Meanwhile, Argyle remains locked in a fierce struggle with the creature, each moment charged with tension. He quickly discovers that the lycanthrope's claws can't penetrate the spider monster's tough exterior. Determined, he decides to unleash Sorrow's attribute, fully aware it may drain his energy rapidly. Channeling the wind attribute, he lunges at the creature with the speed of lightning, stunning the spider in the process. In mere moments, Argyle rips the bizarre spider apart with his claws, treating it like a mere rag doll. By the time Anton finished, he stood triumphantly beside his neatly chopped beast sausages. William, now perched atop his pile of meat, praised them for making it this far, but he had no intention of letting them rest. With a flick of his black magic, he began to reassemble the two monsters before Argyle and Anton's eyes. This time, however, he merged them into a larger, more formidable creature, a giant ninja spider, complete with a menacing tail. Moments after its assembly, the monster lunges at Anton and Argyle simultaneously. William watches the chaos unfold, excitement bubbling within him as he revels in the brilliance of his creation. Laughing maniacally, he invites Argyle to join the fray. But Argyle, with a wry smile, bluntly declines. "I'm a bit too tired for that, you know," he quips. "Age has its drawbacks. I think I'll take a moment to rest." William is frustrated with Argyle for seemingly trying to ruin his fun, but he underestimates him. For Argyle, resting doesn't mean idly waiting. It means preparing to eliminate the source of the problem. Before William can grasp the situation, he finds himself in a dire predicament, literally losing his head before the main event even kicks off, all thanks to Argyle's swift intervention. Even after severing William's head, the monster continues its relentless assault. Argyle quickly realizes that William had been channeling his life force into the corpses, controlling them through dark magic. The creature he just decapitated is merely a decoy, not the true William. To put an end to the conjured nightmare, Argyle must locate and eliminate the real body. He scans the surroundings, pondering whether the genuine William is lurking nearby, biding his time until they exhaust their strength, ready to strike when they least expect it. The true perpetrator is already inside another body, lurking beneath the pile as he taunts Argyle, challenging him to find him. William explains that they can't catch or kill this entity because he wields soul black magic, allowing him to seal souls and shift from corpse to corpse. Even if they managed to locate him, he would simply slip away and inhabit another body, making him effectively immortal, and that presents an even greater challenge. Argyle quickly senses the presence beneath the pile and, without a moment's hesitation, tears through the heap to reach him. In the process, he inadvertently uncovers the new body as William departs from it, puzzled by how Argyle managed to find him. Just like that, he slips into yet another new form. However, to his surprise, Argyle catches him almost instantly, grumbling that dealing with spirits is quite the hassle. Before losing his head, William asks Argyle how he keeps tracking him down. Argyle replies that while he may not rely on magic or vast knowledge, he has gathered plenty of insights during his time in Solitude. Just before his head is crushed, William is taken aback when he spots the number 51 tattooed on Argyle's neck. As he makes his escape, it dawns on him that the true form of the werewolf is Argyle himself, not the child he had anticipated. Panic grips him as he realizes that no matter how fast he runs, the old man will always be right behind him. Trapped and unable to escape, William knows he's in deep trouble. Yet, despite his fear, he refuses to meet his end like a coward. Determined, he decides to summon something powerful. As he prepares for the incantation, he contemplates what to conjure, knowing that an ordinary spirit simply won't suffice. He realizes he needs someone with intense emotions. Meanwhile, Anton once again vanquishes the giant ninja spider monster, dismantling it as if it were nothing more than scrap metal. In the shadows, William gathers the remaining corpses, preparing to summon a being he believes can restrain both Anton and Argyle while he makes his escape. From a distance, Anton and Argyle observe as dark magic envelops the corpses, slowly coalescing into something formidable. Moments later, William successfully conjures a bizarre, dark creature adorned with red horns. He hopes it will buy him enough time to escape while Anton and Argyle are distracted. As he observes his creation an evil spirit of his own making, he can't help but feel a mix of pride and irony. After all, even he can't control the very monster he summoned. The moment the evil spirit is summoned, Anton charges forward, determined to eliminate it. "I'll crush everyone William summons," he declares fiercely. He swings his axe down, aiming for the spirit's head, but to his dismay, the blow barely leaves a mark. In retaliation, the spirit strikes back, landing a devastating blow to Anton's side, leaving him gasping in pain. William grins, satisfied to see Anton knocked out with a single blow. Seizing the moment, he swiftly slips away, hoping that even though the evil spirit may not be a match for Argyle, it can at least keep him occupied while he makes his escape. After dispatching Anton, the malevolent spirit turns its attention to Argyle. Just then, Anton, still wincing and clutching his side, struggles to rise and assist his master. William, on the other hand, is filled with excitement, convinced he can outsmart Argyle and escape alive once the evil spirit takes him on. However, he has seriously overestimated his abilities, as the events that unfold next leave him utterly bewildered. To his astonishment, the evil spirit collapses to its knees, resembling a slave bowing before its master. It seems to recognize Argyle, realizing it stands no chance against him. With desperation in its voice, the spirit pleads for a swift end, begging Argyle to spare it from suffering. It is clear that this malevolent entity understands that Argyle, who strides through darkness and chaos, is the one who is taking control of the werewolf. Argyle inquires about the spirit's name, but the malevolent entity dismisses it as unimportant. Instead, it begs him once more to end its suffering. Meanwhile, Anton, regaining a flicker of strength, administers an injection while observing the surreal scene unfold before him. Rather than granting the spirit's request for death, Argyle chooses a different path and asks what it truly desires. The spirit, desperate, pleads for the chance to withdraw and return to its origin. Without a moment's hesitation, Argyle agrees, and the evil spirit expresses its gratitude before vanishing into thin air. Once it has completely disappeared, Anton turns to Argyle, seeking clarification about what just transpired. However, Argyle brushes him off, shifting the focus to his own condition. Anton winces as he explains, "My ribs are broken, but they'll heal soon enough." He then suggests pursuing William, who has already slipped away. Argyle shakes his head, insisting it's not necessary. He further explains that he has already reached out to someone via telepathy, instructing them to eliminate any prisoners attempting to escape through the nearby corridors. The individual Argyle contacted for this task is none other than Delram, who has already reduced William to a mere pulp during his escape attempt. Argyle reaches out to Delram once more, seeking updates on the situation. Upon hearing that the job was complete, Argyle praised him, assuring that they would meet again soon. Delram expressed his gratitude for saving the training room, vowing never to forget the debt he owed. Once back in human form, Argyle and Anton set out once more, ready for their next adventure. Due to Sero's young and still developing body, Argyle finds himself growing tired and sleepy far too quickly. He turns to Anton and asks him to carry him for a while. Always eager to serve his master, Anton readily agrees and inquires about their next destination. Argyle replies that they should head to the arena, noting that the guards will likely come looking for him soon. As they set out, Anton cradles him like a baby, a grin spreading across his face. Argyle, entrusting the safety of the body to Anton, informs him that he'll be gone for a few days. While the body rests, Argyle delves back into the darkness within to assess Sero's condition. It has been 6 long days since he took control, and Argyle begins to wonder if he should release Sero before the weight of it all shatters his spirit completely. As some of the ropes binding him begin to unravel, Sero appears utterly miserable and mentally drained. He pleads with Argyle to end his suffering, confessing that he can't endure it any longer. Argyle responds that he can't be released just yet, but hints that he may soon leave Solitude. Sero is taken aback by this revelation, struggling to comprehend Argyle's words as he questions him further. Ignoring Sero's desperate question, Argyle locks him back up and prepares to leave, promising that they will meet again in a week. As darkness envelops Sero once more, he struggles against his restraints, calling out Argyle's name in vain. A few days later, Argyle awakens to find himself in Sero's body. Confused, he hears Anton's voice nearby, informing him that they are nearing the arena. Dressed in a pink apron like a nurturing mama bear, Anton cheerfully asks Argyle if he would like something to eat. Argyle eagerly accepts, his stomach growling after days of sleep. Anton pauses for a moment, adding seasoning and the last of the condiments to the simmering soup. Moments later, he finishes cooking, and Argyle devours his bowl with astonishing speed. Between bites, he praises Anton's improved culinary skills. Anton beams with pride, explaining that he recalled Argyle's preferences and practiced nearly 150 times to ensure the taste was just right. Suddenly, a prison guard strides over, delivering a message from the warden for Argyle. He informs him that he has been summoned for a meeting with a guest inside the arena. As Anton processes this news, he recalls that Argyle had asked him to head toward the arena just a few days prior. A mix of surprise and admiration washes over him. Everything is unfolding exactly as Argyle had predicted. Before departing for the arena with Anton, Argyle instructs the guard to inform the warden that he has urgent business to attend to. After delivering this message, Argyle and Anton continue on their way. Meanwhile, in the arena's VIP room, a notorious figure named Talahar, who is not only the Lycanthro king, but also Saros's father, is causing a scene, demanding an audience with the prison warden. Clearly displeased with the abysmal hospitality, he begins to wreak havoc in the establishment, venting his frustration about the dismal solitude of this prison. He demands to see the manager immediately. Meanwhile, Argyle and Anton make their way down a corridor near the arena, where they encounter Tolman, a Class 7 arena official. Argyle is taken aback to see him all grown up. The last time they met, he was just a boy. Tolman protests, asserting that he is over 50 years old and asking Argyle to stop treating him like a child. Argyle, undeterred, teases him further, saying he might consider it if Tolman says, "please," first. Anton observes their playful banter, surprised by how relaxed Tolman is with Argyle, leading him to conclude that they must share a close bond. As Tolman takes the lead like a guide, Argyle dismisses the need for direction, confidently stating that he knows the way without anyone's help. Tolman explains that the current situation doesn't allow for him to be left alone, which is why he's guiding them. After leading them for a while, he comes to a halt, stating that he can only accompany them this far. He then turns to Argyle, revealing that the guest waiting in the arena has come to inspect the merchandise. Tolman adds that Argyle's possession of Saros's body is actually advantageous. It means that no one can carelessly lay a hand on him. Argyle makes the decision to go in alone, instructing Anton to wait outside. He steps into the elevator, which swiftly ascends to the VIP area of the arena. Meanwhile, Talahar continues to wreak havoc, furiously trashing everything in sight as he pushes deeper into the venue. Bemlio, a Class 9 prisoner and the clerk, attempts to reason with him, urging him to calm down and cease the chaos. He informs the furious Karen that his merchandise is already on its way. The way they refer to his son as merchandise only fuels Talahar's anger. Bemlio, blissfully unaware of proper customer service etiquette, attempts to explain that they simply store items securely according to prison regulations. However, Talahar can't help but notice Bemlio's pompous tone, as if he were doing Talahar a favor. Frustrated, Talahar retorts that he paid for the service, and they have no right to act as if they're being generous. Moments later, Argyle arrives just as the two men are bickering like an old married couple. Talahar spots him and cheerfully calls out to Saros, but his expression shifts to shock as he senses Argyle's presence within the body. Anger surges through him once more, and he demands to know what they have done to his son. Bemlio attempts to clarify that they merely store the merchandise without engaging in anything unusual. Talahar, visibly agitated, gestures towards Saros's body, insisting that something strange lies within. Bemlio, already aware of the truth, is impressed by Talahar's ability to sense Argyle's presence, even though he exists beyond the physical realm. He then explains to Talahar that Argyle is a specialist, renowned for his expertise in solitary merchandise storage. At this point, Talahar is done with their nonsense. He's ready to teach them a lesson for daring to lay hands on his son. However, he quickly cools down when Argyle offers to talk and clear up the misunderstanding. But Talahar, unwilling to listen, vents his frustration by smashing a few more objects, demanding that Argyle vacate Saros's body. Argyle, unfazed, replies that it might be difficult since he's already grown fond of Saros. Hearing this, Talahar's anger boils over as he seizes Argyle by the neck. As he struggles for breath, Argyle taunts him, insisting that while Saros's body is impressive, he could easily crush the boy with just his pinky finger. In a bold display, Argyle transforms into Saros's lycanthrope form, showcasing the remarkable abilities the body now possesses. Talahar stands in stunned disbelief, grappling with the realization that Saros, still just a teenager, can transform at will. Lycanthropes can only transform at will once they reach their 40s, and they must undergo a series of awakening ceremonies to harness their powers. Still in awe, Talahar turns to Argyle, seeking answers about his origins. However, Argyle brushes off the question, assuring him that Saros is safe and that he should take pride in his son's remarkable achievements. Frustrated, Talahar retorts, calling Argyle an insolent prick. With a show of authority, he threatens to forcibly drag him out. Argyle remains unfazed by his display of strength, casually suggesting they need to have a serious chat before pulling Talahar into the depths of his inner darkness. Talahar dismisses the move as shallow, quickly realizing he's trapped within a mental realm. Spotting Argyle lounging in the shadows, he questions whether this is his true form. However, Argyle simply ignores him. Undeterred, Talahar presses on, asking again, but receives no meaningful reply. He was merely seeking to discern whether Argyle was a friend or foe. Argyle, curious, pressed him for information about the enemies of the lycanthropes. Talahar explained that his answer would shape their future together. After a moment of contemplation, Talahar disclosed that they were being hunted by the Emblem of Light, a cult devoted to the Light constellation. Recognizing that this cult is also his adversary, Argyle resolves to befriend Talahar. Yet, still fixated on Argyle's true identity, Talahar presses him once more, demanding to know who he really is. Argyle responds simply, stating that he is driven by a desire for revenge. Talahar eventually relaxes, sensing the profound darkness and intensity behind Argyle's resolve. He appreciates that kind of deep-seated longing, so he assures Argyle that there's no need for further explanation. Argyle expresses his gratitude for the understanding and reflects on his own life, which he likens to the darkness surrounding them, filled with fear and terror. He continues, noting that Sero is different from him. Despite the harshness of solitude, Sero clings to hope and refuses to be broken. Argyle explains to Talahar that Sero persevered, holding on to the hope of one day returning to his father. He then poses a question to Talahar. Does he desire a son or a warrior? Talahar dismisses the question as foolish, wondering if Argyle truly expects him to behave like a father. Reflecting on all that Sero has endured under Talahar's watch, Argyle finds Talahar's response unsatisfactory and resolutely decides to choose him. As Argyle unleashes his killing intent, he makes it clear that he will not relinquish Sero unless Talahar is prepared to treat the boy as his own. The atmosphere in the room thickens with tension as Talahar readies himself for a confrontation. Seeking to assert his dominance, he derides Argyle as an unwise human, delivering a stern warning not to complicate matters any further. After a tense standoff, the two men glare at each other like rival roosters, their silence thick with unspoken tension. Finally, Talahar bursts into laughter, shattering the icy atmosphere. He finds Argyle's words utterly ridiculous. Deciding to let the matter rest for now, Talahar informs Argyle that he will return once the contract period concludes. While Argyle's peculiar behavior amuses him, Talahar issues a stern warning. The next time they meet, he expects to receive his son. If Argyle refuses, Talahar threatens to drag him out himself. As they return to reality, Talahar departs after delivering his warning. Watching him go, Bemlio turns to Argyle, expressing his gratitude for helping to smooth things over. Argyle, however, can't help but voice his frustrations about the ordeal, reminding Bemlio that his assistance didn't come without a price. In response, Bemlio assures him that he will ensure Argyle is properly compensated, as the merchandise in question belongs to the esteemed lycanthrope king. Bemlio presents Argyle with a box of pills, and Argyle inspects one closely. Recognizing its authenticity, he nods in approval. Bemlio assures him that he will safeguard the pills and deliver them once his solitary confinement is over. As Argyle gets ready to depart, Bemlio instructs one of his subordinates to escort him out. He can't help but marvel at Argyle's remarkable ability, not just to handle merchandise, but also to manage customers with such finesse. Meanwhile, Anton waits outside for Argyle's return, lost in thought. He reminisces about their first meeting, a memory that feels both distant and vivid. 15 years ago, the galactic government issued an evacuation notice for Anton's home planet. Determined to protect his home, Anton fought fiercely against the oppressive forces. But in the end, he was defeated and imprisoned in Solitude, a harsh reminder of his struggle. He was trapped in a relentless agony, burdened by the knowledge that he would spend the rest of his life in the worst prison in the universe. This torment ignited a fierce rage within him, driving him to spend years in solitude, wandering the bleak halls and battling inmates like a wild beast. At one critical moment, he fought with such ferocity that he nearly brushed against death itself. Just as he was on the brink of surrendering to the darkness, Argyle appeared. He noticed the fire of vengeance burning in Anton's eyes, even in the face of despair. With a knowing smile, Argyle remarked that he admired fighters who cling to hope, even in the most hopeless of circumstances. Argyle proposed a deal, vowing to reveal the exhilarating sensation of achieving one's dreams. In the present, however, Anton shakes off the nostalgia, refusing to dwell too deeply on the past. Suddenly, he feels a chill in the air, a foreboding sign that someone cloaked and cold is drawing near. Moments later, Alicia, a Class 6 prisoner, arrives and inquires if he has given his soul to Argyle. Anton, recognizing her as the former Grade 6 champion, boasts that he knows a great deal about Argyle. Alicia, clearly irritated, snaps at him not to act like a know-it-all. The tension escalates as they quickly dive into a heated argument, each determined to prove they know Argyle better than the other. Choosing to take the high road, Alicia decides to let it go, considering that Anton serves Argyle as well. With a hint of condescension, she asks him how he managed to enter the arena, remarking that it isn't a place anyone can simply waltz into. Anton, irritated by her openly hostile tone despite it being their first encounter, interprets her arrogance as a sign of jealousy. He snaps back, insisting that he arrive with Argyle. Alicia's expression shifts, surprise mingling with jealousy. Seizing the moment, Anton boasts that he understands arena prisoners are confined, suggesting that she must envy his freedom to follow their master without any limitations. Consumed by jealousy, Alicia brandishes her ice blade, her glare fixed on Anton as she seethes, "I hate you!" Anton, matching her intensity, retorts, "I feel the same way." He gestures for her to come at him. Initially confident, he looks down at her sword, dismissing it as weak compared to his formidable mallet. But soon, his expression shifts to one of surprise as he witnesses the full extent of her power. She rises into the air, poised to strike him. In the chaos, Anton loses his favorite cap and a few furs, yet he manages to withstand the attack, barely holding his ground. Determined not to yield, Alicia advances and unleashes a flurry of rapid, precise strikes in close combat. Anton, relying on his strength and reflexes, manages to block each attack. However, when he attempts to counter, Alicia effortlessly evades every move with astonishing speed and agility. Anton roars in frustration, ready to strike once more, but Alicia catches him off guard, unleashing a flurry of sharp, glimmering icicles. He narrowly dodges the icy projectiles and swiftly draws his sword, engaging her in a fierce clash. The duel between them rages on, relentless and intense, as each strike echoes with determination. Anton fights with all his might, but he soon finds himself overwhelmed. Alicia's speed and flashy moves are too much for him to handle. Despite his strength and experience, he struggles to keep pace with her relentless assault, coming to a stark realization of just how formidable his opponent truly is. Determined to turn the tide, he decides it's time to stop warming up and prepares to unleash his ultimate technique, Domain Expansion Earth. As Anton unleashes his ultimate technique, his body swells, muscles bulging with newfound power. His armor, unable to withstand the transformation, shatters and crumbles away. Alicia watches in awe, her eyes widening in realization. Before her stands the legendary prisoner known as the Weapon Master, a figure rumored to wield countless weapons with unparalleled skill. Moments later, Anton undergoes a stunning transformation into a colossal, fierce bear with 4 powerful arms. One hand grips a massive sword, while another wields a heavy mallet. The remaining 2 arms, clad in armored gauntlets, brandish a gigantic axe. Fully equipped with this overwhelming arsenal, he lets out a thunderous roar, declaring that it's his turn to shine. With terrifying speed and force, he lunges forward toward Alicia. Just as their weapons are about to clash, a commanding voice rings out, demanding that they halt. Argyle strides in, positioning himself between them and effortlessly restraining both, who flail and squirm like children caught in a petty quarrel. With a single piercing glance, Argyle issues a firm command for them to stop. After his fierce warning sinks in, Anton and Alicia finally relent, calming down and ceasing their struggle. As Argyle releases them from their restraints, he immediately reprimands Anton, reminding him that Tolman explicitly instructed him not to cause any trouble. Meanwhile, Alicia remains on her knees, trembling like a child bracing for a scolding from her mother. Argyle's frustration grows as he chastises both of them, insisting that they shouldn't resolve their petty quarrel in such a reckless manner. Yet, before long, the two begin bickering again, each eager to convince Argyle that the other was the instigator. Argyle looks between his 2 friends, confusion etched on his face. "Why are we fighting? You're both my friends," he asks. Alicia, her voice firm, protests. "Argyle is my master, and that will never change, even in death." With a weary sigh, Argyle replies, "You really haven't changed at all. Just speak to me casually, like Alice does. She visited recently." At the mention of Alice, Alicia freezes, her expression shifting. It's revealed that Alice is her sister. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Argyle continues, "I heard you became the inter-arena champion. Did you come here for me?" Alicia nods, revealing that she discovered he was here and struck a deal with Tolman to secure a few extra matches in exchange for permission to visit. Argyle's brow furrows with concern as he tells her she shouldn't have put herself at risk just to see him. But Alicia brushes off his worries, her eyes sparkling with determination. She's never lost a match and aspires to become an undefeated legend, just like him. Argyle, pretending to be humble, insists he's merely an ordinary Class 1 prisoner, leaving Anton utterly perplexed. Alicia quickly reassures him, stating that his class doesn't diminish his accomplishments and that he will always be her role model. Just then, Tolman's voice crackles over the intercom, cutting through their heartfelt reunion. He declares he's had enough of their sentimental moment and orders Argyle and Anton to exit the arena. However, Argyle stands firm, explaining that they plan to explore a little longer. He gestures for Anton and Alicia to follow him, suggesting he has something important to show them and someone to introduce. Meanwhile, Tolman watches from the monitors, regretting his decision to agree to Alicia's request. He had only permitted her a brief visit, but now, seeing her leave with them, he can only hope that nothing goes awry. Later, Argyle, Anton, and Alicia arrive at the nuclear power plant. The electricity generated from this facility powers the entire Solitude system. From there, he guides them on another tour to the Ocean Water Purification Center, where seawater is drawn from deep within the planet and transformed into drinking water. Argyle explains that gladiators can drink as much as they need, which is why so many aspire to become arena fighters. As Anton and Alicia continue on their journey, their playful bickering resembles that of children. Soon they arrive at the animal breeding facility, a bizarre place where creatures of solitude, including grotesque janitors and fire-breathing dragons, are raised. Anton stands in awe, struggling to comprehend that such a place truly exists. Argyle explains that the galactic government allows this facility to operate, as long as they share their research data in return. Anton is astonished by the depth of Argyle's knowledge. Moments later, they arrive at a lab where Tylun, a Class 7 life science clerk who had been anticipating Argyle's arrival, steps out to greet them. Without hesitation, she inquires whether the others plan to listen in. Argyle nods, encouraging her to speak openly. Tylun then begins to explain his condition, presenting his medical statistics with clarity and precision. She tells Anton that, based on his projected life expectancy, it's a miracle Argyle is still alive. Unfortunately, there's nothing she can do to prevent his body from gradually shutting down. Anton stands in stunned silence as Tylun adds that Argyle's health has deteriorated due to possession. She explains that using a child's body only exacerbates the situation. Anton is crushed, realizing that Argyle had possessed him several times in the past to help him grow stronger, completely unaware that each instance had drained Argyle's life force. Tylun warns Argyle to cease all use of possession immediately. When Anton inquires about the possibility of restoring Argyle's body, Tylun responds that it is indeed feasible. She then presents an image of a miraculous pill that could sustain his life. Argyle interjects, mentioning that Bemlio has already promised to provide him with the pill once his solitary confinement concludes. However, Anton, eager to secure it sooner, presses Tylun for alternative ways to obtain one. To their astonishment, she reveals that the pill is incredibly expensive. One single dose costs as much as an entire planet. An awkward silence hangs in the air before Argyle decides to send Alicia and Anton outside for a private conversation with Tylun. As they step out, Anton can't shake the feeling that Alicia was already aware of Argyle's predicament. When he voices his suspicion, she rolls her eyes and calls him foolish for not piecing it together sooner. Frustrated, Anton spins around to reprimand her, but his words falter as he notices tears streaming down her face. Once the moment passes, Argyle turns to Tylun, inquiring about the situation outside Solitude. She reveals that the Order of Constellations has become intrigued by the darkness, and although Kreisman has been doing his best to delay them, he is nearing his breaking point. Tylun insists that Argyle must cease storing the merchandise, revealing that Kreisman has ordered her to provide Argyle with the pills for free once he fulfills the contract. The mention of free pills sends a shiver down Argyle's spine. He understands all too well that a businessman never offers anything without a hidden motive. It dawns on him that the only reason Kreisman would give something away for free is to gain leverage over him. He promptly declines the offer, insisting he won't accept any handouts. Tylun is impressed that Argyle remains steadfast in his principles. She then reveals that Alicia's market value has recently soared. Explaining further, she shares that Alicia has been using her winnings to buy him pills, but so far, she's only managed to acquire 2. Talon interjects, suggesting that Alicia could sell herself to the wealthiest universe to escape the darkness that surrounds them. Despite her feelings, she chooses to remain in Solitude for Argyle's sake. Argyle believes her sacrifice is unwarranted, and while Alicia would be disheartened to hear him say that, Tylun shares his sentiment. Though he hesitated to voice it in front of the others, Tylun finally admits that his body may not hold out much longer, even with the pills. Argyle acknowledges that he has already sensed the impending change and expresses his gratitude for the warning. Curious about his remaining time, he asks Tylun for specifics. She reveals, based on her collected data, that he has 6 months left. Despite the daunting odds, Tylun holds on to hope, believing that Argyle's spirit can endure long enough to reach their 2-year goal. Shortly after his visit to the lab, Argyle and Anton get ready to leave the arena. Before departing, he gently tells a somber Alicia to take care of herself. Alicia hesitates, then reveals her intention to challenge the Class 7 title. Anton raises an eyebrow, incredulous that she would dare to take on a Class 7 prisoner while she's still just a Class 6. After a moment of contemplation, recalling their earlier conversation with Tylun, Argyle cautiously inquires if her motivation stems from his need for the pills. Alicia brushes him off, declaring that her desire to become Class 7 is for herself alone. She reassures him not to worry, promising that she will definitely win. Argyle, however, warns her that even if she succeeds, she might not be able to walk for quite some time afterward. Aware that she won't heed his concerns, he resolves to support her ambition, urging her to ensure she's a Class 7 champion by the time he visits the arena again. Alicia is taken aback by how readily he agreed, but as they prepare to leave, she bows respectfully to her master, vowing to protect him at all costs. 6 days later, Anton stands vigil outside the solitary cell, Sorrow's unconscious body beside him. Moments later, Argyle emerges from confinement. Anton drops to one knee in a gesture of welcome, and Argyle chuckles, explaining that he had been in another body, making solitary confinement far from unpleasant. At last, Cyril awakens in his own body, tears streaming down his face. In the depths of darkness, he felt nothing, but now he is overwhelmed with gratitude for the sensations that return to him. As he wipes away his tears, he suddenly notices Anton beside him and jolts upright in surprise. Argyle, sensing his shock, introduces Anton as a friend. Cero struggles to wrap his mind around the idea that a giant bear can be a friend. Then, he remembers Argyle mentioning it before. Though still a bit groggy, Cero senses the urgency in Argyle's demeanor. Time is slipping away, and Argyle knows he must quickly impart the crucial knowledge about the liberation. As the event approaches, Argyle explains to Cero that the liberation process closely resembles the summoning and release methods he has encountered before. He urges Cero to remain vigilant for his survival, cautioning him to venture out only during the day and to avoid the darkness of night at all costs. As Argyle begins to walk away, Cero struggles to recall everything that was said, his mind racing as fragments slip through his fingers, igniting a wave of panic. Just then, Jacob approaches, delivering a message from Bemlio. He hands Argyle the promised 3 doses of pills and adds, "Liberation starts in just 1 hour." After handing over the pills, Jacob takes his leave, and Argyle quickly inspects them. Almost instantly, he feels a surge of energy, his muscles visibly bulking up. Anton, intrigued by Argyle's next move, asks what he plans to do now. Argyle sighs, revealing that he was just contemplating how to fill his time, since he can no longer possess anyone. This had been his hobby, and now he finds himself unable to enjoy it any longer. Anton believes it's best to avoid further harm to his body. But to Argyle, this decision feels like a deepening loneliness and act of cruelty. In an attempt to lift his spirits, Anton suggests they concentrate on the upcoming liberation. He reassures Argyle that he will search for him, even if they become separated later. With that, Anton excuses himself, setting off to find some honey before rejoining the group. After promising he wouldn't be long, Anton stammers, asking Argyle if he likes honey. Argyle, noticing Anton's fidgety demeanor, quickly realizes he's not being truthful. The truth is, Anton doesn't want Argyle to worry about him during the liberation, so he uses the search for honey as a convenient excuse to slip away. In the heavy silence, Argyle reflects on his next move, quietly resolving to eliminate anyone or anything that threatens his friends in the stifling darkness. He vows never to be complacent again, recalling his past of passivity and conflict avoidance. No longer will he live like a fugitive. He is determined to confront his troublesome enemies one by one, especially Darkus, who has been pursuing him relentlessly. With his ability to possess others now lost his once favorite pastime, Argyle realizes that hunting down and eliminating his enemies might just become an exhilarating new hobby. Suddenly, the alarm blares, cutting through the tension and signaling the start of the liberation. But this time, instead of the familiar golden lights, ominous red lights flicker to life, preparing to teleport them to the site of the impending liberation. As they are teleported, Cero is momentarily taken aback by the sudden warmth of sunlight on his skin. When they arrive, he finds himself in a vast, dense forest known as the jungle. Stunned, he takes in the sprawling greenery that surrounds him. This prison planet, designed for Solitude to confine its prisoners, also harbors a massive continent meant for their eventual liberation. In this vast, unforgiving continent, prisoners are thrust into a perilous jungle where they must fend for themselves for an entire month. The liberation system is designed not just to test their limits, but to torment them, much like during the summoning, when they faced a fire-breathing beast, and the release, when they encountered horrifying creatures lurking in the corridors. Now, during their liberation, they must confront the terrifying natives who call this jungle home. As Cero struggles to orient himself in this unfamiliar environment, he suddenly turns to find the natives charging at him, spears glinting menacingly in the light. Confusion washes over him for a fleeting moment as he questions their intentions. But there's no time to ponder. Instinct kicks in, and he swiftly transforms, bolting away. Yet, after a frantic chase, Cero soon comes to a painful realization. He is no match for their relentless speed. As the attack begins, he swiftly unleashes his wind attribute to evade their strikes. However, despite his efforts, Soro is quickly overwhelmed and suffers a fatal wound. Stunned and desperate, he grapples with the question of why he can't dodge their blows, even with his powers fully activated. It soon dawns on him that, in addition to their speed, they are also exceptionally skilled users of the fire attribute. Without a moment's hesitation, he sprints forward, pushing himself to the limit. As he runs, the number on Soro's neck shifts from 3 to 4, marking him as a Class 4 prisoner. A surge of adrenaline courses through him, fueling his determination. He locks his gaze onto the enemy directly ahead, ready to confront the challenge. In a distant part of the jungle, a crimson light pierces the sky, illuminating a man with a red circle emblazoned on his head. He sprints through the dense foliage, the ominous light trailing closely behind him. Behind him, a group of armed prisoners gives chase, their intentions clear. Fueled by sheer will to survive, the man races for his life, knowing that capture would mean certain death. As several prisoners pursue him like a pack of hounds, one of them shouts, urging him to accept his fate. Another insists that his choice could save many of them, but the man being hunted bluntly rejects their pleas, refusing to slow down. Tears stream down his face as he runs, overwhelmed by the weight of his circumstances and questioning how he ended up in this nightmare. Suddenly, one of his assailants unleashes a light attribute, summoning a chain that ensnares the man's foot and sends him tumbling to the ground. He struggles desperately as the other prisoners close in, poised to finish him off. Just then, a dark attribute user emerges from the shadows, activating a protective shadow armor that shields him at the last moment, preventing the fatal blow. Several weapons come dangerously close to striking him, but his armor absorbs every impact, providing an unyielding shield. His assailants grow increasingly confused as they continue to jab at him, yet the armor remains steadfast. Just then, the light attribute user arrives on the scene, commanding the other prisoners to take their battle formation. He warns them that they are about to confront a formidable number of demon worshippers. The demon worshippers who rescue the man have swiftly dealt with the 2 prisoners who attempted to strike him earlier. The stakes are clear. The worshippers cannot allow the man they refer to as the adversary to perish, while the light attribute user and his group are resolute in their mission to eliminate him. With both sides fueled by conflicting intentions, they brace for battle. Moments later, chaos erupts as the 2 groups clash fiercely over the fate of the adversary. On one side, voices rise in a fervent plea to protect him, while on the other, shouts echo with a fierce intent to destroy. From the edge of a cliff, Argyle and Anton survey the chaotic battle unfolding below. Argyle turns to Anton, urging him to help resolve the situation. Without hesitation, Anton leaps from the cliff into the fray, diving headfirst into the chaos and swiftly tearing through the ranks of the demon worshippers. He rampages fiercely, taking them down one by one, sending waves of panic through their ranks as the battlefield becomes drenched in the blood of demon vermin. At this point, it's no longer a fight, it's a merciless thrashing fueled by a deep-seated vendetta. After the field is lined with corpses, Argyle descends to join Anton, where the prisoners erupt in joyful cheers, hailing their savior. Among them is Barura, a Class 6 prisoner and a member of the Light Constellation cult, who greets Argyle warmly. Their familiarity is evident as Argyle comments on how Barura continues to shoulder quite the burden, as always. Barua calmly replies that he chose this life, viewing it as his duty rather than a burden. As he watches the prisoners, Argyle points out that he only mentioned it because Barua appears to be overexerting himself with the responsibility. Barua offers a gentle smile, assuring Argyle that he will take his words to heart. Meanwhile, the adversary they had been pursuing earlier has already met his fate amid the chaos. The adversary, a prisoner marked by a crimson symbol on their forehead, emerges after the liberation. Above their head, a red pillar materializes, reminiscent of the crimson light that once shot into the sky. As soon as another prisoner locates the adversary, the red light vanishes. The stakes are high. If the adversary isn't defeated within 2 days, a nightmarish monster will be unleashed upon the jungle, bringing terror in its wake. This is why the prisoners relentlessly hunt for the adversary, desperate to eliminate it and avoid being annihilated by the great monsters. However, the demon worshippers, a group of bumbling fools, choose to protect the adversary instead. They yearn for a chaotic showdown, hoping to use the resulting bodies to harvest life force as ingredients. As always, this adversary system is yet another cruel tactic employed by Solitude to torment the prisoners, pitting them against one another in a twisted game of survival. As Argyle and Anton press on in their journey, Anton inquires about Argyle's connection with Barura. Argyle responds thoughtfully, describing Barura as a remarkably kind-hearted man who feels a deep sense of responsibility for the lives of all the prisoners trapped in the jungle. He adds that even if they succeed in halting the summoning of a great monster, Solitude will inevitably discover new ways to torment the captives. As they sprint forward, Argyle suddenly halts, his eyes fixed on a red light shooting into the sky, a signal, marking the location of their next adversary. Without hesitation, they take off again, racing toward the source of the light. In the midst of their dash, Argyle turns to Anton and asks if he has ever faced an adversary. To Argyle's surprise, Anton reveals that he has been an adversary not once, but twice. He explains that the monstrous beings summoned in these battles grow in strength according to the rank of the adversary. He adds that the formidable monster summoned for his sixth-class self had once wiped out a significant number of prisoners in the jungle. Anton admits he feels no shame in having survived after becoming an adversary, despite the many lives lost. Argyle nods in agreement with this mindset. Curiously, Anton then asks Argyle if he has ever faced the trials of being an adversary himself. Argyle confesses that he has faced adversaries countless times, yet today, for some inexplicable reason, it stings a little more than usual. Anton, sensing his unease, surmises that it must be about Taro, and Argyle reluctantly confirms his suspicion. They push forward, sprinting with all their might, until Argyle suddenly halts, finally closing the distance to Sero. Anton is taken aback as he gazes at the red pillar and the mark on Sero's forehead. Confused, Sero turns to Argyle, pointing out the strange mark. Argyle, however, remains unfazed. He had anticipated this moment, which is precisely why he had been rushing toward the light. The air thickens with an awkward silence as they all exchange glances, each wondering what will happen next. Meanwhile, at Barura's temporary shelter, one of the prisoners bursts in, shouting his name. He excitedly reveals that the target has arrived at their camp. Shock ripples through the group. They can hardly believe that an adversary would dare to enter enemy territory willingly. The prisoners share a collective sense of relief, realizing they no longer have to scurry around like frightened mice. With this unexpected turn of events, the looming threat of monstrous pursuers seems to fade away. They step outside, where Barura has already erected a barrier to keep outsiders away from their main camp. He moves beyond the barrier, instructing them to wait while he speaks with the visitors. Spotting Argyle on the other side, Barura attempts to establish a firm boundary between them. Now that they find themselves on opposing sides, Argyle, maintaining his composure, calmly explains that Sero is his ally, and that he has come solely to warn them to back off. He sternly warns that anyone who dares to lay a hand on the child will face immediate termination. Barura's heart races with fear as he questions just who Sero is to Argyle. Panic sets in, and beads of sweat form on his brow. Realizing the situation could spiral out of control, torn between his options, Barura grapples with a harrowing dilemma. If a powerful monster is summoned, the prisoners could perish, yet if they confront Argyle, they would surely be annihilated, leaving no exceptions or survivors. Noticing that Argyle has traveled all this way, Barura understands that he must be attempting to extend an olive branch. Curious, he decides to test the waters. He asks Argyle about his all-time favorite pastime, making deals, a topic that never fails to capture his interest. With a glint of opportunity in his eyes, Barura proposes that they join forces to hunt the monster set to appear tomorrow. As silence envelops them, Barura silently prays that Argyle will accept the deal. If they attempt to hunt the adversary, it would be like swatting at bothersome ants easily crushed. His concern for the great monster has faded. He trusts the old man to handle it without breaking a sweat. Glancing at his followers, he hopes they can sense the gravity of the moment and refrain from causing a scene. Still receiving no response, Barura bows his head in gratitude, thanking Argyle for offering them a potential escape. However, the prisoners are visibly unsettled by their leader's surrender, voicing their concerns about how they are supposed to survive the looming threat of the great monster. Barura turns to Argyle once more, seeking clarity on the terms of their agreement. Argyle then inquires about what he would receive in return for protecting them, to which Barura responds with a solemn offer, his own life. The prisoners are taken aback by this declaration, while others express their anger, desperately trying to dissuade him. They fear for their own fate should anything happen to their leader. Sensing their worry, Barura gently reassures them not to be afraid, explaining that he must make this necessary sacrifice. To him, his life feels insignificant compared to the countless lives of the prisoners. Argal admires his reckless sacrifice, and as he departs, he advises Barua to rest, reminding him that the summoning begins at noon the following day. As they walk away, Sorrow apologizes for the trouble he's caused. Argal reassures him, saying there's no need to worry after all. In Solitude, survival is everything. He urges Sorrow to concentrate on survival and to put everything else aside. The next day, they gather with Barura and his followers, all preparing for the summoning. Argal informs Barura that they only require 4 fighters to confront the monster, leaving everyone puzzled. Barura protests, arguing that 4 seems far too few, but Argal clarifies that they must first evaluate the monster's abilities before making any further decisions. Barua understands the gravity of the situation. If the creature heals by consuming flesh, having too many people in the fray could spell disaster. He finds comfort in Argal's insight, appreciating that he has considered various scenarios. After determining who will face the formidable monster, Barura casts a barrier spell, effectively sealing off the remaining prisoners from the battleground. The chosen 4 are Sorrow, Barura, Anton, and, of course, the original hero, Argal. Moments later, the red mark on Sorrow pulses with energy, shooting into the sky as the summoning begins. In the wake of this dazzling display, the great monster materializes just as the 4 rush toward it. This summoned beast is a colossal creature, a fearsome blend of scorpion and devil, ready to unleash chaos. As the monster roars fiercely in the distance, the prisoners behind the barrier tremble with fear, regretting their decision to confront the adversary instead of eliminating it. In that moment of dread, Barura swiftly activates his light attribute, chanting a series of incantations. A shimmering lumen shield materializes around himself, Anton, and Sorrow, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. Argal stands out as the only one seemingly immune to the chaos around them. Unfazed, he brandishes his favorite princess wand, rallying his comrades to join him in battle. With a shared determination, they all lunge forward, charging at the colossal monster, while Barura holds back, steadfastly maintaining the lumen shield. As Anton, Sorrow, and Argal launch their assault on the monster from every angle, the prisoners behind the shield watch in awe. Barura channels her magic once more, casting Solar Snare. The spell ensnares the creature, restricting its movements while the others press their attack relentlessly. Anton channels his Earth attribute, summoning a colossal boulder shaped like a mallet. With a mighty swing, he crashes it down onto the monster, sending tremors through the ground. But as the dust begins to clear, he stands in disbelief. His attack has left not a single mark on the formidable beast. Argal stands in awe of its creator, Tylun, a true genius in the art of gene manipulation, capable of birthing extraordinary life forms. He can't help but commend her once more for crafting yet another astonishing masterpiece. As he studies the creature before him, Argal begins to grasp the full extent of its formidable strength. Despite his admiration for the monster's exceptional qualities, he remains resolute. With a determined nod, he signals to his crew to commence the main hunt. In an instant, they spring into action, launching their assault on the monster, while Argal lingers at the edge, still gearing up to join the fray. A tingling sensation dances in his fingertips as he studies the creature, searching for a weakness. He soon discovers that the monster excels in close-range defense, a formidable challenge. Yet, despite the odds, Argal feels a spark of confidence. He believes he has found a way to outmaneuver it. Moments later, Anton finds himself injured by the monster's brutal attack. As he feels the impact, he quickly realizes that this creature is a Class 7 rank. The monster lunges at him again, but Anton narrowly dodges its strike, observing its incredible speed and ability to deflect most attacks. Even if someone manages to land a hit, its hide is so tough that it absorbs the blow without leaving a mark. Despite the overwhelming challenges ahead, Anton presses on, fueled by the knowledge that he is not alone in this fight. From the backline, Barura lends his support, mending Anton's injuries with his light magic. Meanwhile, Argal makes a bold decision to borrow Sorrow's body for a brief moment, establishing a connection. He takes control and transforms Sorrow into his full lycanthrope form. Anton stands in awe as he witnesses Argal launch himself into the fray, embodying Sorrow's powerful transformation. Argal calls out to Anton, who instinctively understands the signal. In an instant, he transforms into his full beast form. Together, they charge onto the battlefield, guns blazing. "It's time to end this game," Argal declares, his voice steady with determination. He then turns to Barura, instructing him to amplify their reflexes and speed to the maximum. Without hesitation, Barura unleashes his light attribute, pouring his blessing magic over both warriors as they prepare to face the colossal monster ahead. The battle escalates as Argol and Anton launch a relentless assault on the monster, denying it even a moment's respite. "Don't stop," Argol urges, and Anton responds without hesitation. Armed with 4 weapons, Anton, the master of arms, strikes with precision, delivering swift jabs one after another. Meanwhile, Argol claws at the massive beast with fervor, his speed amplified by Barura's light blessing. As the monster feels its space constricting, it retaliates fiercely, attacking from both sides. Recognizing that they're making no headway, Anton resolves to unleash his secret ultimate ability. Meanwhile, Barura, eager to bring the battle to a swift conclusion, casts a spell that conjures a double solar snare to ensnare the beast. Turning to Anton, Argol urges him to take his turn, expressing their unwavering trust in him. With unwavering confidence, Anton assures Argol to leave everything to him. He lunges at the monster, unleashing a flurry of strikes with astonishing speed. As he fights, his mind wanders to the joy he has found in recent days, battling alongside his esteemed master. Once he feels he has delivered enough blows, Anton plants his hand on the ground and channels his earth attribute, invoking Grasp of the Earth. With this ability, he commands the land to shape massive hands of solid earth. He attempts to seize the monster from behind, but it reacts instantly, slicing through the earthen hands and leaving Anton in shock. As the creature charges toward him, Anton senses its overwhelming momentum from a distance and realizes that this is no ordinary foe, far too formidable for a mere artificially created specimen. Despite the intimidating odds, Anton stands firm, unleashing another Earth attribute, Earthen Shackles. With his fists guiding the colossal hands of Earth, he ensnares the monster from every direction, using these massive appendages as restraints. Meanwhile, the esteemed spectators, safe behind their protective shield, offer their unsolicited opinions, completely detached from the chaos unfolding before them. They question Anton's decision, incredulous that he would attempt to trap a giant monster with nothing but ordinary dirt. Some even suggest he should use a weapon instead, conveniently forgetting that they had just witnessed him wielding 4 massive weapons against the creature, all to no avail. Unbeknownst to them, Anton's earthen shackles possess a unique ability. They can temporarily transform the enemy's attributes to earth. Anton remains unfazed by the possibility of the monster breaking free. His only goal is to restrain it for just a few seconds, allowing Argol to land the final blow. As the earthen shackles bind the creature, Argol springs into action, while Barura channels all his light magic into him, bestowing a powerful boost known as Radiant Force. Barura reveals that from the very start, Argol had identified the monster's attribute as lightning. Understanding that lightning is grounded by the earth and that the earth is disrupted by the wind, Argol crafted a meticulous plan to expose the monster's vulnerabilities. With Anton's earth shackles in play, they had already managed to temporarily shift the monster's attribute to earth. With the change in attributes still active, Argol prepares to finish off the monster using Sorrow's wind power, which slices through earth with ease. As Barura's boost flows into him, Argol unleashes Sorrow's wind attribute, channeling it through his Wolf's Claw ability. In a swift motion, he tears through the monster, his claws cutting cleanly and decisively. The monster, fatally wounded from the attack, loses one of its stingers. As it breaks free from Anton's earth shackles, it lets out a roar of pain and staggers toward them. Seizing the moment, Anton lunges from below, while Barura ensnares it with his double solar snare. Argel, impressed, praises Barura before launching himself into a powerful leap. Wolfclaw remains on the prowl, but with a swift, forceful strike, it slashes at the creature's head, obliterating it entirely. As the monster collapses, Argol solemnly acknowledges its demise, stating that its purpose has been fulfilled, and it can now find peace. The moment the creature hits the ground, a triumphant cheer erupts from the prison, echoing the relief and victory of those within. Behind the shield, the survivors rejoice, catching and feasting on bugs to celebrate another day of enduring Solitude's torment. A wave of relief washes over Anton and Barura as the prisoners continue their cheers, having narrowly escaped the clutches of a great monster's summoning. Once again, hope ignites in the hearts of over 100 survivors as they gaze upon Argol and the others, standing triumphantly beside the fallen beast. This newfound hope is ignited by none other than an old prisoner, Argol Rastros. And with that, our story comes to an end. For now, if you enjoyed the recap, please leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next recap.